Come on a journey with a cinephile.
Wake up, sucker. We're thieves and we're bad guys. That's exactly what we are.
We was getting too big for our britches.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
What have you done to its eyes?
I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains in.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Pretty well, little brother. Pretty well.
Hello and welcome, listeners, to Journey with a Cinephile, a horror movie podcast, where we take a deep dive into the world of horror cinema, from the eerie classics to the latest spine-chilling releases. Join me as I explore the history, themes, and artistry of horror one film at a time. Whether you're a seasoned horror fan or just stepping into the shadows, this journey is for you. So dim the lights, embrace the fear, and let's talk horror. And let's do that on episode 300 here. I'm your tour guide of David Garrett Jr., recording out of Columbus, Ohio. So this episode here for you is going to be my foray through the fours. So I took all last year for the most part, and I watched stuff that was done before that and everything. But so what I'm going to do for the feature here is going to be my stats, bottom 10 and honorable mentions, as well as my top 100 foray through the fours films, which are, all films that I've watched since starting the podcast that end in the year of number 4. And then for mini reviews here, I went to the Wexner Center for the Arts to watch Hour of the Wolf. I gave a rewatch to Dracula, Dead and Loving It. That's my Voyage to the Fives 1995 rewatch. Then I have some screeners here of Hot Spring Shark Attack, Bury Me When I'm Dead, and Hemet, or The Landlady, Don't Drink Tea. And then I also have here a rewatch of a 2025 release of Project MKHEXE. So there's one other thing I'm going to do here, and this is going to be reading a press release that I got for a book that I was given, and that is, without David Lynch, our world would be a much more ordinary place. As a filmmaker, David Lynch, designer, musician, photographer, visual artist, and living avatar of all things uncanny for more than 5 decades, David Lynch's influence pervaded every corner of the culture. When the rise of the prestige television with the ongoing interplay between art house and mainstream movies, from the dream pop of artists like Lana Del Rey and Bayhouse to off-kilter video games, from Cabaret X and performance art to TV commercials, online ads, music videos, and more amateur short films than most people could watch in a lifetime. In this book, David Lynch, His Work, His World, author Tom Huddleston explores what makes Lynch's work unmistakably Lynchian, unraveling the inspiration and creative forces behind this surreal, dreamlike cinematic landscapes, the eerie collusion of the mundane and the macabre, and his haunting exploration of darkness simmering beneath everyday life. Huddleston delves deep into Lynch's life and career, tracing his journey from a 1950s childhood in Missoula, Montana, and his early short films to his emergence into singular presence in cinema with films like Eraserhead, The Elephant Man, Dune, Blue Velvet, Wild Heart, Mulholland Drive, and the television show Twin Peaks. Through the decades, Lynch explored film, television, art, music, photography, transcendental meditation, and more recently, nightclub design and weather forecasting. His sources of influence are equally diverse and spanning painting, photography, cinema, literature, and beyond, each playing a role in unlocking the depth of his singular vision. So this is coming out, this book is September 9th, 2025, in a lavish slipcased hardcover, expertly researched and filled with rich range of images. David Lynch, his work, his world, bring together Lynch's complete output in one collection, including a filmography and discography telling the full story of how this was created, thought, and lived. So this is, like I said, available September 9th. This is a hardcover with slipcase. It's 176 pages. It's going to be retailing at $45 in the United States and $60 in Canada. So I'm excited to delve into this one. As you can tell from the video here that I have accompanying this, this is pretty kind of cool thing here. So I just wanted to relay this information as I delve into reading this book. Then before I jump over to, get into those mini reviews, I still have to do my
monthly review.
For July 2025, I watched 42 films, and 36 of these were horror films. 13 of these are 2025 releases, and that is my percentage of horror just kind of overall for the month of July is going to be 85.71%. So kind of break this down as to how this compares with other months of July that I've done. This one by far is the most new releases I've ever watched before. The highest before this would have been 8. The lowest would have been 4. So last year was 2024 that I did 8. Then 2022 I did 4. I've watched 48 horror films released in that specific year in months across July's. And then for horror films I watched 36, as I was saying here. This is tied for my second highest. With 2019 I did 56, which is wild that I did that. But then it looks like in 2023 I also did 36. I've watched 269 horror films across July's. And then the 42 films that I watched this month is going to be my third highest. That would be behind 2019 where I did 58. And then 2023 I did 44. I watched 323 total films across the months of July. And then for the average, actually I'll come back to that here later. So the horror films that I watched in the month of July here were The Death of Snow White, Day of the Dead. This is the original one from 85. I watched Our Happy Place, Uncontained, Bring Her Back, The Mystery of Edward Drood, Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, Ketchup on Waffles, Tales from the Hood, Eye for an Eye, Black Sunday, Control Freak, Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, Baby Blood, Airhawks, 28 Years Later, Castle Freak, Snatchers. This is one that is from 2025. The Orphanage, The Rule of Jenny Penn, The Eternal Mask, Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight, Shiestry, Dirty Boy, I Know What You Did Last Summer. This is the remake here from 2025. White Guilt, Zombie Con Volume 1, Opus, Hour of the Wolf, Dracula Dead and Loving It, Hot Spring Shark Attack, Bury Me When I'm Dead, Hemet or The Landlady Don't Drink Tea, Project MKHEXE, The Sea Fiend from 1935, and Pulse from 2001. So then for the countries represented here, I watched 15 different countries are represented. So the United States, Australia, Italy, United Kingdom, France, Canada, Spain, Belgium, Mexico, New Zealand, Austria, Switzerland, India, Sweden, and Japan. So then the new releases that I watched in the month, the new releases I watched in July are going to be The Death of Snow White, Our Happy Place, Bring Her Back, Ketchup on Waffles, Eye for an Eye, 28 Years Later, Snatchers, this is from 2025 again, Shiestry, Dirty Boy, I Know What You Did Last Summer, White Guilt, Zombie Con Volume 1, and Bury Me When I'm Dead. So the oldest watches are all from 1935, and it's The Mystery of Edwin Drood, Airhawks, The Eternal Mask, and Sea Fiend. So then for the average year, I'm at 2001, which is going to be my second highest, which was last year, which was 2003. And then the earliest I've ever done would have been 2023, where I was at 1998. The average year across the board is going to be 1996. So I am trying to bring that average up here this year, as it looks like 2001, as I was saying, is the average year. And then The Orphanage is the highest film that I've rated in the month of July at a 10. Then the lowest is going to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation at a 3. And there's one that it's tied with this, but I'm going to be cryptic on it because it could be on this episode. And then the average rating across the board is going to be a 7.1, which is actually my lowest I've ever done. The highest would have been 2018 at a 7.8, and then the next lowest was actually going to be 2023, it was a 7.4. So I'm bringing down my 7.5 average rating across all of July's. And then for percentage of horror for this month, I'm at 85.71%, which looks to be on the upper end here. The highest I've ever done would have been 2019 at 96.55%. Lowest ever would have been 58.82% back in 2018. And then it looks like last year was probably it looks like 2020 would have been the next highest at 85%. So I am bringing that up, which is an 82.14% across the boards here for all of the Julys. And then before I jump into kind of doing some more of the monthly or the yearly stuff, let me kind of break down that according to Letterboxd, I watched 65.4 hours worth of movies, 50 directors, 11 countries, and 7 languages. The most reoccurring years is going to be 2025 at 16 films, and then 1995 with 5, 2024 with 5, and 1935 with 3. So Thriller would be the next highest at 13 films. United Kingdom was the highest, that was not the United States, at 6, and then France, Japan, and Australia all had 2. Japanese being the language for the second highest, as I had 2 films that fall into that. The highest theme is going to be Horror the Undead Monster Classic at 14. And then nano genres, animation, adorable animals, because of watching stuff with my daughter. So that's 5 films that fall into that there. And then reoccurring cast for this month would have been Heather Angel, Blake Clark, Kim Whitley, and Charles Fleischer, all at 2 films. And then all the directors I have that are reoccurring are going to be also kind of animated stuff, so I'm kind of just jump over that. The highest average film that I watched is going to be Hour of the Wolf at a 4. Lowest average is going to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation at a 1.9. Most popular is Moana with a 3.7. Most obscure is History. The newest is going to be Happy Gilmore 2, which came out July 21st. And then the oldest is going to be The Eternal Mask, which was January 1st, 1935. Longest is going to be Pulse, which I watched last night, and that's going to be 119 minutes. And the shortest is going to be White Guilt at 62 minutes. And then let's kind of jump into doing some of this yearly stuff here. I have currently 62 2025 watches. To stay on pace, I should be at 58.1. And it looks like my average now across the new releases thing here is going to be at 90.4, so I'm above on that one. And then that's what I've kind of done across all the years that I've been keeping track. So I'm at 219 horror films, which is up because I should be at 212.8 if I want to get to 365. So I'm well ahead of that one. I'm still averaging 350.6 horror films in, across the years. And then I am down for if I'm going to get to 500. I am at 276. I should be at 291.9. And then it looks like I average about 437 films per year as of, kind of right now. Average rating is a 7, and I'm bringing down that 7.3 average that is across the board here. And then this is actually my lowest year so far, as last year was the next lowest at 7.1. The highest I've ever done would have been 2019 at a 7.6. And then my percentage of horror, I'm slightly bringing it down. I'm at this year is a 79.35%. And then I'm currently, the average is 80.01, so I am bringing it down. The highest I've ever done for a year was 2019 at 86.87%. Lowest would have been 2018 at 72.07%. So my most seen actor, Johnny Depp, still 14 films, probably going to run away with that one. And then next is Bela Lugosi at 8, Boris Karloff at 3rd with 6. Tied for 4th is going to be Helena Bonham Carter and Christopher Lee with 4. Then tied for 6th, I have John Carradine. These all have 3 films. Lynn Acton McPherson, Libby Higgins, Justina Armstead, Madison Pullins, Jeffrey Rush, Timothy Spall, Haley Steinfeld, Philip Filmar, Bill Nighy, Alfred Molina, Valerie Hobson, and Paul Whitehouse. And then everybody else tied for 19th with 2 films: Deep Roy, Matthew J. McCarthy, Rupert Everett, Lester Matthews, John Lithgow, Jeanette McDonald, Jack Quaid, Kevin Heintenrich, Beverly Bonner, Peter Lorre, Colin Clive, Henry Kolker, Francis Drake, Robert Englund, Lisa Wilcox, Nicholas Melle, Danny Hassel, Joe Couric, Haley Lynn Rose, Tim Dorsey, Michael Carano, Samara Nelson, Josephine Bullock, Sigourney Weaver, Anne Darlene, Flying Lotus, Naomi Harris. And I'm going to kind of stop there because this is getting to be a little bit reductive. And then I'm going to go ahead and say the top directors here. Seth Breedlove is still running away with 7 films. And then tied for 2nd is Jeff Herberger and Tim Burton with 4. Then tied for 4th is going to be William Butler and Gore Verbinski with 3 films. And then tied for 6th is going to be Thomas Edward Seymour, Zach Lipowski, Frank Henenlotter, J.R. Bookwalter, Flying Lotus, and Stuart Walker, all with 2 films. And then I just have a little bit more I wanted to do and get you away from this because this is running longer than I probably would like to do, but here we are. So as of right now, I have, according to Letterboxd, watched 441.5 hours worth of films. And then, let me see here. Where is kind of the fun stuff? My next highest genre is going to be thriller at 84 films. The next highest country is going to be UK at 37 films after the United States. And then Japanese, right now, 7 films. The top themed and nano genres are going to be Horror, the Undead, and Monster Classic at 72 films. Animation, Adorable Animals is tied with Cute Animation Magic, both at 16 films. So then as of right now, my highest average and most popular is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse at a 4.4. Lowest average is Leprechaun Origins 1.4. Most obscure is Shurinsky. Newest is going to be Happy Gilmore 2. Oldest is still Nosferatu from February 16, 1922. Longest was Leviathan, that documentary, at 476 minutes. And then shortest is a short still of Hard Truths at 12 minutes. So that's all I'm going to do here then for this monthly review and everything like that. So now I'm going to go ahead and get you over to a very brief break before I get into those mini reviews, and I hope you enjoy coming on this journey with me. I have a great thing here that I wanted to go ahead and give you an offer for since it fell into my lap and wanted to go ahead and share it with you. I have been given a promo code here for shimmerwoodbeverages.com. These are CBD infused seltzers that are award winning. They have been twice recognized by Forbes as the #1 CBD beverage in the United States and the best lower potency option out there. It blends full spectrum CBD with local Maine fruits and cocktail bitters for bold flavors, crafted without added sugars, caffeine, or artificial ingredients ingredients, which if you know me, that is something that I prefer because I get enough of the caffeine and I'm trying to get away from sugars. So it's designed for relaxation without intoxicating effects, perfect straight from the can or a refreshing cocktail or mocktail base, depending on what you're looking for there. This has unique flavors like raz lime, chai cherry, ginger orange, and just hemp. Now, Simmerwood offers a health-conscious alternative to sugary sodas or alcohol, made to revive a calm, clear focus for natural stress relief. Each can contains 5 milligrams of full-spectrum CBD for a balancing, calming effect. So this one here is at, like I said, shimmerwood.com, and my promo code here for you listeners is actually you get 30% off of if you use my code, and this is, like I said, a great deal if you can go ahead and you want to do that, and my code is going to be Cinephile1. So if you want to check out more of the information or check out their site, there will be links in the show notes for you to check that out there. And my first mini review here, I'm going to go a little bit shorter with because I actually covered it earlier this year. It's going to be Hour of the Wolf. This goes by the original title of Vargtimmen. This is from 1968. It was directed and written by Ingmar Bergman. This stars Max von Sydow, Liv Ullmann, and Gertrude Friede. Now, this is a drama horror mystery film that is from Sweden. It is currently sitting on a 7.5 on IMDb and a 4.0 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being: while vacation on a remote German island with his younger pregnant wife, an artist has an emotional breakdown while confronting his repressed desires. So this is a film that, if you'd like to hear a mini review, is going to be episode 279, which was Centennial Club number 18, that had The Dead Thing and Machiste in Hell paired up as the two featured reviews over there. So this time I got to go to at the Wexner Center for the Arts, so I actually got to see this on the big screen, which is kind of a cool thing. So this is Bergman's 1968 psychological thriller. So this isn't your typical horror film, and pretty much I believe this is the only thing that he's done that is actually considered to be in genre, but it's a rather chilling exploration of an artist's descent into madness during a remote island vacation while with his pregnant wife. So Max von Sydow is our star, as I was saying, and he actually is the artist from the synopsis. He is Johann Borg, and his wife is Alma, portrayed by Ullmann. And then Bergman blurs the lines of reality, delivering a haunting atmosphere through a stark black and white cinematography and masterful sound design. While not traditionally scary, it's compelling and unsettling journey into the darker corners of human psyche that you won't necessarily want to miss, in my opinion. So that's where I'm going to leave this here. This one I actually have came up a lot on my rating here. I am now sitting on this one as being a 9 out of 10. And then my second mini review here is actually going to be my Voyage to the Fives rewatch of Dracula Dead and Loving It. This is from 1995. This is directed by Mel Brooks. And then the writers here, let me go ahead and just pull this up real quick so I get this correct, is screenplay was done by Brooks, Rudy DeLuca, and Steve Haberman. Now, DeLuca and Haberman came up with the story, and then they're giving credit here to Bram Stoker for the characters. This stars Leslie Nielsen, Mel Brooks, and Peter McNichol. This is a parody, slapstick, supernatural, vampire, comedy, fantasy, horror film that is from the United States, and as well as a co-production with France. Currently sitting on a 5.8 on IMDb and a 2.8 on Letterboxd for a synopsis being: Brooks' parody of the classic vampire story and famous film adaptations. So this is what I used to watch all the time growing up. Part of it was that it was always in the movie channels. I didn't necessarily realize who Brooks was at the time. Having horror elements in it helped. It is interesting because I don't necessarily care for comedy horror, but when it works, I'm a fan. Nostalgia probably comes into play here, as I've now given this a rewatch for my Voyage of the Fives, as you can tell. Where I'll then start is acknowledging that this isn't top-level Brooks comedy. That's not to say that it isn't fun still. You see how smart of a guy he is with his ability to incorporate so much Dracula lore into this film. You know, pulling from the novel, the 1931 classic with Bela Lugosi, Gary Oldman's take from 1992, and even a bit of Hammer is being paid homage to as well. So where I'm going to go is saying that this version of the story it's closer to the 1931, where that one was adapted from the stage play. So we have Dr. Seward, who is portrayed by Harvey Korman, isn't a suitor to Lucy, who is portrayed by Lisette Anthony, but the father to Mina, portrayed by Amy Yazbek. So they completely remove the character of Quincy Morris, and none of these are issues. It just kind of condenses down the character. Since this is a comedy, you don't necessarily want to overstay its welcome. With a less than 90-minute runtime, this gets in, gets out, and I appreciate that. Let's then explore what makes this as a comedy horror. Is definitely in that order. Most of the comedy comes from our cast. First, you have Nielsen. He's a great Dracula. What I like about him is that he asks things, tries to save time, and it messes up. His frustration is great. McNichol also helps here as Renfield. There's a great scene with him eating insects in front of Seward. and their back and forth is good. Brooks isn't on his A game, but still great. Yazbek and Anthony are here, mostly because they're kind of busty as well as being attractive. Weber also adds comedy here. He is taking on the Harker character at Steven Weber. We just have a solid cast that kind of works to make things that are funny. There are also situations that we get. It's first introduced in Dracula's castle with Renfield. Another is the opera, particularly the daymare that Dracula has. Then, of course, you get the climax where it starts at a ball put on by Dr. Seward. This leads to an abandoned church. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up that Harker and Van Helsing go to the cemetery with the blood gag we get there. Not all work, but they're not gut-busting funny. You just have its moments. Also, then be filmmaking. There's something interesting that I noticed this time around is that you can tell certain things are sets. One is the village in Transylvania. Having seen other Brooks films, there is charm there. I do think this is a solid cinematography and framing. There isn't much horror here, but I do like the blood that we get. That was practical. We get some CGI with Dracula becoming a bat. Since it's played for laughs, that's fine. I like the look of the vampires. It does well as it's set in Victorian England for the most part. I'd say the soundtrack also fits for what they needed. In conclusion, this may not be reaching the comedic heights of Brooks' most iconic works, but it remains a charming and intelligent parody. It is successfully blending Dracula lore, a talented comedic cast led by Nielsen, and a well-executed situational humor makes it an enjoyable watch. While some gags might not land perfectly, the film's brisk pace, effective cinematography, and practical effects contribute to a satisfying experience. I would recommend this film to fans of the original Dracula story, its various adaptations, as well as those who appreciate the unique brand of comedy that Brooks consistently delivers. So my rating after this watch here of Dracula Dead and Loving It is going to be a 7 out of 10. And my next mini review is going to be a screener here of Hot Spring Shark Attack. This goes by the original title of Onsen Saku. This is from 2024. This is written and directed by Morihito Inu. And then this stars Daniel Aguilar, Soichiro Akiboshi, and Takayu Fujimura. So this is an action comedy horror film from Japan. It is currently sitting on a 6.4 on IMDb and a 3.3 on Letterboxd for a synopsis. There have been cases of mysterious disappearances of onsen visitors in Atsumi City in S Prefecture. The victims were eventually found dead with signs of severe injuries to their bodies resembling a vicious shark attack. So what I would say here is an onsen is actually a hot spring. I didn't realize this until I was watching the movie and kind of putting things together. So I got a chance to see this via screener thanks to Justin Cook. Now, when I saw the title, it made me chuckle. I'm not necessarily the target audience when it comes to these absurd shark attack films. Figured I'd give it a chance though. Outside of the title, I did come into this one blind. And where I'm going to start is that it does definitely fall into those veins of the ones that I thought. Think something along the lines of Sharknado, Two-Headed Shark Attack, or Sand Sharks. You can take your pick of any of the parody ideas of places where you wouldn't find sharks and then have them attack people. Obviously, this one is paying homage to Jaws. What I like here is that we have this mayor. It was in the city here. In this case, it is Kanichi. I think that might be how you say his name. If I mispronounce any of these, I do apologize. He is actually portrayed by Fujimura. So he is to blame. He's the one building this resort, and it needs to succeed or he'll go broke. He turns into one of our heroes trying to defeat these dangerous creatures. Let's then discuss what I like here. I love the idea of sharks attacking people in these hot springs. It isn't logical, but playing that childhood fear of water. Even if it's something like a pond, swimming pool, or even a bathtub, someplace you wouldn't find sharks, I do like the explanation they give here, though. These are freshwater, or at least they can survive in both fresh or salt. I love the idea of using the groundwater for them to get around. That's terrifying. What gets far-fetched is that they're appearing in the city because they're able just to make water appear, or the fact that they're going to go through tiny pipes to get into places. Now, they explain this because they say that these bones that they have are kind of malleable. They're more like cartilage, or I know they have cartilage-type bones anyways, but these ones are supposed to be extremely kind of able to do these things, but it goes too far into the comedy. That does lose me. I'm not the biggest fan of films that are these type of combination. This did make me chuckle with how wild it gets, I will say that though. Where I'll then go is talking about our trio of heroes. I've already said that I like the social commentary here about tourism and capitalism. What I like though is that Kanichi, who could easily be a villain derailing things to not lose all of his money, he actually spearheads a project to kill off the sharks. I like that redemption angle. Then we also have Mayumi Kozi, portrayed by Yu Nakaishi. I thought she was good as this marine biologist who is smart, but in over her head. She starts to feel down when she can't figure out what to do. Then we have this odd guardian character who is Tetsuzaman Mangan, portrayed by Soichiro Akaboshi. I think he's kind of funny because he's in the submarine to fight the sharks. We actually get his introduction is weird because he throws one onto a boat. So there's a sly joke where he brings submarine sandwiches onto the vessel. If they fleshed him out a bit more, I think that would help me. As it stands, he's a borderline beast of a human being that is fighting these animals. There are also these two who are secondary heroes of Benbei Tezuka, who is portrayed by Kiyombumi Kaiko. And then you also have Kohei Hanako, who is Masaki Naito. Now, they're father and son in this one, where Denbi is the chief of the police and Kohei is about to take over for him. So they get their moments, which I appreciate, to be heroes. Next should be the acting performances. This being a comedy, they are over the top. It is fitting for a movie like this, though. Akaboshi's body is perfect for his role. He is stoic, but that leads to comedy from him. He plays that well. I like Fujimura as a potential villain who sees the error of his ways. Kaneko and Naito are good in their roles. Nakashimi is cute, and I like how she plays her character. She feels like, I love this feeling that she isn't over his head. She's young, so that adds to it. Other than that, the rest of the cast were fine for what was needed. All that's left then would be filmmaking. This is where it's hit or miss. I do think that for the most part, the cinematography is fine. The framing would be as well. Now, over to the effects, there are puppets used for the shark at times. I appreciate that. There's some charm there. What's funny is that they're like Pokemon because they actually say shark. That made me laugh. There is some CGI here. It doesn't look great. I understand that being a movie like this, it isn't any other way to be possibly done. Then they go underwater. There is green screen. This reminds me of something like Lake Erie Monster or Hundreds of Beavers. It's fine. By the time that part of the movie comes around, though, I'm mostly checked out, unfortunately. The soundtrack and design were fine for what was needed. In conclusion, this is a wild ride that delivers on its absurd premise, though it leans heavily into the comedy horror, which may not appeal to all. While I can't recommend it universally, fans of over-the-top creature features and comedic animal attacks will probably find enjoyment with its ridiculously. Its commitment to its premise, despite some technical shortcomings, makes this a unique entry into the genre. So my rating, unfortunately, though, for Hot Spring Shark Attack is going to be a 4.5 out of 10, and this one is on VOD right now if you are interested. Then up next here, I have Bury Me When I'm Dead. This is from 2025, directed and written by Siebold Krebs. This stars Devin Terrell, Charlotte Hope, and Mackenzie Lee. This is a horror mystery thriller film that is from the United States. Currently sitting on a 4.6 on IMDb, and not enough ratings on Letterboxd, but between a 1 and like a 2-star movie over there, with our synopsis being: after failing to keep his wife's dying wish, a series of tragic events leave Henry to believing that she has returned to get revenge. So this is one I got the chance to see thanks to Mitch from Millennial PR. He reached out to see if I would be interested in the screener for review. I confirmed that this film was in the horror genre. Other than that, I knew the title and just kind of came to this one blind to kind of see what we would get here. So I'm going to start, though, is I'm not necessarily sure if this is a horror movie. I still am going to be keeping it here because it's listed on IMDb and Letterboxd that way. The tone is dark and depressing. That could also make it a drama. I believe that Henry, who I should go ahead and say is portrayed by Terrell, believes he is seeing things. There are a couple of surreal dream sequences as things kind of continue on and sort of happen to him. They're bad. He finally believes it's a curse from his deceased wife. I don't recall seeing anything outside of misfortunate events kind of happening to somebody. I don't necessarily care for him, though. So that's where I leave my opening thoughts. So let's get into this character then. And because this is a kind of a study of him. Terrell plays this emotionlessly. It is interesting because from the start to finish, there is very little that we get out of him. He's so stoic. That's not to say there isn't character growth. He makes me mad that he's cheating on his wife. He seems to care more about his mistress of Rebecca Gregor, portrayed by Lee, but he is planning to move with his wife until she gets diagnosed with cancer, and his wife is Catherine, portrayed by Hope. That feels like he's getting his cake and eating it too. Now, bad things do happen to derail that. By the end, it almost is like a horrible decision that I wouldn't fault him doing. He then decides to get clean, as he is an alcoholic, before, the most horrific things start to happen continuously. I didn't care for his performance since Henry kind of comes off as a sociopath. Now that I've already laid those out, let's kind of go into what could this make into a horror film. I do want to explore a bit that if Henry is cursed, or is it just bad karma creating self-fulfilling prophecies? The only thing that I can recall is that he has these few surreal nightmares. Now, one would be where he's having sex with Rebecca, then she changes into Catherine. The lighting here was good, though. Filmmaking has some good touches with things being out of focus and extreme close-ups, so credit there. He tells Rebecca that one of the previous nights he claims he saw a ghost. I don't recall seeing anything to indicate that. Now, the father of his wife is Gary Higdon, portrayed by Richard Beacons. He's using his power and influence to mess with Henry, but he told him that he would, but then he goes back on a deal that he made. So this has me more of like, Henry has a series of bad things and the universe is kind of punishing him. Less of a ghost getting revenge. So that should be enough for the story. Let's go over to the acting performance. I've already said that I didn't necessarily care for Terrell. Hope was fine. We get an idea of who she is before she passes away. Regardless if there is a haunting, her specter is plaguing Henry mentally. Now, Leah's fine in her role as the other woman. It bothers me that she's messing with a married man, knows it, and doesn't necessarily seem to care. But the true villain here is Beacons. He has money and power to ruin this guy's life. It would be one thing if he knew that his son-in-law was cheating on his daughter, but I don't think he ever knows. And then I'd also give credit here to Roxanne Hart, who is Patricia. This is Catherine's mother. She's actually a pretty good person. And then there's also Buck Campbell, portrayed by Mike Houston. I thought he was fine in his role. The rest of the cast kind of rounds off for what was needed. All that's left then would be filmmaking aspects. This is where I'll give credit. This is well made. The cinematography does well in capturing where this is set. I love showing nature and how remote things are when we go to the cabin. They do well with the framing and look of the dreams. I love the use of colored filters there. There's a good touch here to incorporate in the surreal feel. It is limited in the effects that are used. It also doesn't need them. This is more about the journey for our lead character. Then we kind of incorporate here Rebecca a little bit more as we go on. The sound design and music were good to help build the atmosphere, though. In conclusion, this film ultimately functions more as a dark drama than a traditional horror movie. While it flirts with the idea of supernatural curses and revenge from beyond the grave, the narrative largely focuses on Henry's downward spiral and the consequences of his actions. Despite some strong filmmaking aspects like cinematography and sound design, the lack of a compelling lead performance and the ambiguity around its genre classification make it a difficult one to recommend those specifically seeking a horror experience. So my rating here for Bury Me When I'm Dead, I came in here with a 6 out of 10. And this is available on VOD if you are interested. And then I got to watch another screener here of Hemet, or The Landlady Who Don't Drink Tea. This is from 2024. This is directed by Tony Olmos, who then the writer here is Brian Patrick Butler. This stars Kim Weinberger. Butler also stars along with Amy LaJoie. This is a B-horror, dark comedy, farce, quirky comedy, raunchy, satire, serial killer, slasher, zombie film that is from the United States. This is currently sitting on a 4.2 on IMDb, and not enough ratings on Letterboxd, but I would say between like a 2 to like a 4-star movie over there. That's a huge range now that I'm thinking about it. But this one here, the synopsis: a tyrannical landlady lords over her tenants during an epidemic, pitting them against each other in a web of paranoia spun for deadly results. So I learned about this one via Dan Butler, who reached out to me via Blue Sky to see if I would be interested in checking this out for a review. So since I like to check out independent cinema when I can, I agreed. I did come into this one mostly blind, making sure that it was in the horror genre. This doubles as well as a foray through the Forge film, so just kind of keep that in mind. But this one here is that it's a tough film to pull off. It works within the confines of its budget. Now, what you mostly need are a good group of actors who bring their characters to life. It's interesting that this is listed as a horror film. Now, there are these zombie-like people that they're like homeless, but it's more incidental story element. That mostly seems to have here because there's the President of the United States, I'm guessing at least, Phil Graves, portrayed by Mark Allen, and he has issued martial law, and that allows Liz, who is actually hilariously portrayed by Butler, to have complete control, and due process is thrown out because of this martial law that's instituted. So the story goes dark, especially with things that we see later. I don't have any issues with including it into the genre. The elements are just kind of limited. Now that I have it set up, let's delve into the plot structure. I do love that we have this shady complex, or like this apartment building. Not even a building, it's more like a motel, but yeah. So like one of those type of apartments. So we have Gary, who's portrayed by Matthew Rhodes. He reveals in dialogue to the character of Howie Stump, portrayed by Pierce Wallace, that people who live here are either poor or they're trying to get away from some. So the latter reveals that his girlfriend broke up with him and this place was the first that he could afford. Now Gary thinks that he is hiding something horrible that he's done. And this was revealed to him by Tank, portrayed by Nick Young, who showed him some pictures and claims that he is a pedophile. So we also have a character of Rosie, who seems like a good person. She's portrayed by Weinberger. Now, it's interesting that Liz is a slumlord. She changes rent and evicts people with no notice. Due to her doing these bad things, she takes advantage of people and pushes them into crime. Liz is also, like I said, hilariously played by the writer here of Butler, who is a man. This reminded me of something like Mother Riley character from the United Kingdom back in the day. So before completely moving away from these story elements, I want to kind of include a couple more points here. So this feels like a Coen Brothers movie or like a Quentin Tarantino film in that we have these characters who are shades of gray making decisions. Ultimately, everyone's choice is going to hurt someone else. It all just kind of shows you where you're being pushed, and enough that is, to where you don't care how it'll affect them. So that's where it tends to come back to Liz. Another film that this feels in the vein of would be like Killer Joe. No offense to this filmmaking team here. It is on the level of those filmmakers or the movies I've referenced, but in a similar style. Let's then go over that this is carried by the acting performances. I've already said that Butler plays the Liz character in a funny fashion. What I didn't say is that she makes vulgar sexual comments that crack me up. Weinberger is somebody that we see butts heads with Gary, but then she's pushed to do things by her boyfriend of Jason, and he is portrayed by Derek Alexander d'Avion. And so I thought that LaJoya, who makes some poor choices, which brings her back with her 2 children. She works in her role. I'd also give credit here to Merrick McCarthy, Rhodes, Young, Wallace, and the other tenants. I thought they were all fine. I didn't even bring up yet that we have Sheriff Hunting, who's portrayed by Randy Davison, and his other officers. They side with Liz, mostly due to not knowing the evidence and being swayed. That all adds tension as well. All that's left then would be filmmaking. It has a lower budget look, but that's not an issue. I still think that it does well in isolating our characters in this complex. We have a few times where these homeless people who are using bath salts, and it's turning them into this rabid state that helps contain our people for fear of infection. This feels like a place that I've lived when money was tighter, or places I've gone to when I was younger. This is limited the effects used when we get them. They look solid. Look to be done mostly practical, so credit to that team there. Something funny is that you can tell Butler is wearing a mask to be Liz. That made me chuckle. Other than that, the sound design and music fit for what was needed. So in conclusion, this is a challenging film to categorize, leaning more into the gritty crime drama with shades of gray morality than a traditional horror film. Despite its incidental zombie-like elements, while the lower budget is apparent, the film succeeds due to the strong character performances, especially Butler's humorous portrayal of Liz. Won't be for everybody, but if you appreciate low-budget, character-driven crime films, then delve into the dark themes and human deceit, then this is a movie that is worth checking out to an extent. So my rating here for Hemet, or The Landlady Don't Drink Tea, is going to be a 6 out of 10. And my last feature that I'm going to be covering here on this episode is going to be Project MKHEXE. This is from 2025, written and directed by Gerald Robert Waddell. This stars Ignacio Montania, Jordan Knapp, and Will Handro. This is a found-footage psychological horror film that is from the United States. It is currently sitting on a 5.0 on IMDb and a 3.0 on Letterboxd, for our synopsis being. Tim films his brother Sean's funeral for his suicide, then uncovers Sean's fixation with a non-existent online urban legend about a failed government mind control experiment. So I'll go ahead and say here, I'll introduce some of the characters. Tim is portrayed by Montanian, and then Sean, who has passed away, is Handro. And this is one that if you'd like to hear a mini review is going to be episode 285, which was Voyage to the Forest number 4, that featured Borderline and Phantom Ship as the 2 features over there. What I will say here is that this is an interesting 2025 found footage horror film. It's intriguing and well executed entry into this type of, subgenre and everything. Now, we have like I said, the synopsis here is an aspiring filmmaker searching out what his younger brother might have been involved with, and links to an obsession with this conspiracy. The commitment to the realism is what really kind of hooks me. We have limited information that's provided, and there's a blend of cosmic horror the more that we get into it, as we have unreliable narrators where the original one we're kind of learning about is Sean, and then as Tim gets deeper and deeper in this, along with Nicole Martin, portrayed by Knapp, that we see that this might actually be something that Sean might not have been crazy. So these are some of the strengths that I've said there. There are some comparisons here to the Blair Witch Project because there's so little information that was available when I first watched this, which is kind of reminds me, going back to that other movie. And then we have Montania and Handro's performances are commendable. So for this one, for me, though, it unfortunately came down on rating, is that after the second watch, I'm not as high on it. There's just some issues that it runs too long, and I think just some of the information we get, it's very kind of vague, and I needed just a little bit more. Some CGI that doesn't necessarily hold up as well, but like I said, still a solid film if you haven't seen this one yet. But I came in this time around as a 6.5 out of 10. And moving away from movies, let's go over to a book here, A Phantom Relics of Cheswick Hall. This is from 2025 here. This is written by Ian Flint. He's a guy that I've read some of his other stuff before, but the synopsis here is, when Lord Archibald Smith is flattened by a chandelier and wakes up to find himself a ghost, he's far more annoyed about missing breakfast and being dead. But when his feckless son puts Cheswick Hall and its priceless relics up for auction, Archibald must haunt, hustle, and hobnob with fellow phantoms to bring the artifacts home. From the rose gardens of England to penthouses in New York, this delightfully absurd tale of ghosts, misadventure, upper crust eccentricity, and spectral sabotage is a joyous romp through the afterlife of the 1920s aristocracy. So this is a book that I normally wouldn't read. I have corresponded with the writer here, Flint, so seeing that this was his next work that was out, I was intrigued to give it a read. Now, what I mean is that this isn't normally what I read, because this is geared more towards like older children or young adults. That doesn't take away the fact that this is well written. It's a fast read as well, which I always appreciate. It's a fun journey to go on. So we start this getting to know our lead character of Archibald until he tragically passes away. His wife has left and everything goes to his son. Now, due to what happened with his mother, he has no care for the legacy that Cheswick Hall brings. He decides to sell everything off, and it's interesting that ahead of reading this, I had watched a film called The Ghost Goes West. There are some interesting similarities here. Now, the biggest being that Archibald is now haunting this manor until he can get the artifacts back that were sold off. So his adventures first take him to New York City, where he haunts the collector who purchased his bed. He needs to learn how to haunt and fast in order to get these back. There are these chances here that everything could be sold to the winds if he doesn't. He does get aid by the help of Oliver Pembroke, as well as other ancestors who haunt Cheswick. Now, getting back to what I said before, this would be a fun read for teens or young adults. There are twinges of horror here with like a ghost haunting. This is more in the vein of Gothic, where they aren't the villains. In this case, they are the collectors and Archibald's son who is selling the items off. It quickly then moves into being whimsical. There's some heartwarming aspects, whereas Archibald gets better at being a ghost. His family starts to see that they've been a little bit hard on him. This brings heart as they want the best possible version of himself. Now, since this is written more for a younger audience, there isn't as much drama as there could be. It moves through the different set pieces rather quickly. I'm not necessarily the target audience, but this would be a book that I would pick up for my daughter and son when they're older. So Mackenzie, my oldest, is already starting to like spooky stuff thanks to me, so I think this would be something that she might be interested in. So in conclusion, this offers a lighthearted and enjoyable journey through the afterlife despite it not being a typical read. Flint delivers a well-written, fast-paced narrative that skillfully blends Gothic themes with whimsical humor. While geared towards a younger audience, the book's charming characters and heartwarming family dynamics make it a delightful experience, perfect for introducing young readers to spooky, yet not villainous ghosts. It's a read that I would readily recommend for teens and young adults. So my rating then for Phantom Relics of Cheswick Hall is going to be a 7 out of 10. And that's all I have here for mini reviews. Let me go ahead and get you over to the main event here, my foray through the fours.
Pod Nation TV has you beamed up with Out of This World award-winning podcast, found exclusively on Pod Nation TV. Download Pod Nation TV for Roku and Fire TV. Pod Nation TV, Out of This World.
And welcome to my main event here. So this is my foray through the fours. This has been a long while coming. So this is all going to be movies that end in the years of 4. So 24, 34, 44, anything like that. So this is also going to be caveated with the fact that I need to have watched it since starting the podcast. So then I have 282 movies here. There are 299 directors, 32 countries, and 19 languages that are being represented. The most popular year that is on here is going to be 2024. So, of course, I'm going to do some stats, and then I'll get into other things as I go. Then 2014, I have 33 films. 2004, 29. 1944, 25 films. And then 1974, 22 films. So then the next highest genre that is after horror is going to be thriller at 104. The next highest country is going to be United Kingdom at 35. And then Canada, 18. Italy, 13. France, 10. Japan, 8. Germany, 6. Ireland, 4. New Zealand, 4. And Spain, 4. The most popular languages are going to be, after English, are going to be Italian at 9, Japanese 6, Spanish 5, there are 5 silent films, French 4, Korean 2. Then the most popular theme that is going to be Horror, the Undead, and Monster Classics ran away with this 125, and then Terrifying, Haunted, Supernatural Horror at 71. And then for nano genres, it's going to be, at the top is going to be Frightened, Unnerving Creep, 16. And then there's going to be 3 tied at 15 of Gory, Death Stalking, Spooky Killer Screaming, and Horror Climax Confused. So then the most popular actor is going to be John Carradine at 7 films, then Lon Chaney Jr. with 6, Peter Cushing, Bela Lugosi with 5, then Johnny Depp, George Zucco, Dan Stevens, all at 4 films, then John Saxon, Vincent Price, and Jared Harris, Boris Karloff, David Warner, Anne Gwynn, Umberto Rojo, and Udo Kier, J. Carol Nash, Henry Kolker, Evelyn Onkers, Gene Parker, Kay Harding, Heather Langenkamp, Micah Monroe, James Swanton, all with 3 films, and there's a bunch tied with just 2. And then for directors, we have Reginald LeBorg, who is the top here with 4 films, Wes Craven with 3, he's tied with Roy William Neal with at the same number, and then tied at 2 is going to be Neil Jordan, Jeff Herberger, Bob Clark, Edgar G. Ulmer, Mario Bava, Toby Hooper, Rennie Harlan, Takeshi Shimizu, Fruit Chan, Adam Wingard, Antonio Margaretti, Kai Roach Turner, Tim Burton, William Bodine, and Leslie Goodwins. And then the highs and lows here, the highest average is going to be Quiden at 4.2. The lowest average is going to be Leprechaun Origins at 1.4. Most popular is The Substance at 3.8. Most obscure is Day of the Wicked. The newest is ZombieCon Volume 1. The oldest is going to be Dante's Inferno. Longest is going to be Agatha All Along. And then the shortest is going to be, it's El Hombre Bestia, but it's the Beast Man from 1934. All right, so now that I have that done, let's jump over here then to the list here. So the 10 that are my bottom here are going to be Chloe, Love is Calling You from 1934. This one just kind of had some weird things. It didn't necessarily work for me. Then Maniac from the same year. This one is more of like a PSA kind of like scare type film about drugs. Then Black Devil Doll from Hell, 1984. Then The Curse of the Komodo from 2004. Life Returns from 1934. The Beast Man, 34. The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a.k.a. Texas Chainsaw Massacre The Next Generation, from 1994. Corpses from 2004. Day of the Wicked from 2024. Street Tales of Terror, this is an anthology film from 2004. And then In the Land of Cannibals from 2004. These ones all just kind of have different things that just aren't necessarily working for it. I hate to have a list where I have things like that. It's just, I had to kind of have a bottom ones. These ones are all hovering between like a 3 all the way up to the highest one being a 4-star movie. So if that's telling you anything there. So let's do the honorable mentions really quick. I know I'm kind of flying through this, but I also don't necessarily want to bore you because this is going to go on for quite a while here. So my honorable mentions coming in at 101 is going to be Hunting Matthew Nichols. Got to see this at Nightmares Film Festival. This is a fun little found footage film that was pretty solid. It's actually going to be a run here of 2 more films from Nightmares Film Festival. Next is going to be Decibel. This one's kind of dealing with AI as they try to teach it how to make music. And we have this young artist who is kind of obscure in what she's doing, so she's trying to kind of help it, and then it kind of gets away from it. Then Solvent is a weird little film here that's found footage that we have. This guy is trying to find some Nazi memorabilia that belonged to his grandfather, and people kind of get driven mad. Now, one that I really need to rewatch that I didn't get a chance to last year is going to be Heretic. This is the one that stars Hugh Grant. I just kind of had my issues with some of the stuff at the end and kind of how the tone kind of shifted on that one, but that's one I do want to revisit for sure. Then Digging Up the Marrow. This is a little found footage film that is done by Adam Green. This one I saw once for the summer series, and I thought it was pretty cool. Then Firestarter. This one I've seen a handful of times. You know, the Stephen King property. This is the original from 1984. There's some good things in it. It just doesn't necessarily translate to film very well. And then coming in at 107, I have Phantasm 3, Lord of the Dead, from 1994. This one is probably the first one I saw from the series. Fun little film there. Evil of Dracula, from 1974. This is a Japanese take on vampires and everything. This is a fun film as well. Then Chud coming in. This is from 1984. This one, I'm actually surprised. I actually rewatched this one not too long ago, and it's got a good... I'm pretty sure I have a 7.5 on that one, and I'm pretty sure all of these are probably sitting at around that same rating. So, I mean, this isn't bad ratings that I'm giving any of these one. And then the last one for this little section here is going to be It's Alive from 1974. This is the Larry Cohen film about the killer baby and everything. I think there's some really good stuff, some really good commentary there and everything. It just... the movie doesn't necessarily work for me as well as I would like it to. So that's all I have here then for this little section. So that was my stats, my bottom 10, and my honorable mentions. So let me go ahead and get you over to a very quick break as I jump into 100 to 76 for my foray through the fours.
Have you ever had the burning desire to start a business and didn't know how? Are you elbow deep in your business but feel one of the 4 hurdles of stop: imposter syndrome, perfectionism, failure, and fear holding you back? If you have ever come across any of these, then The Undiscovered Entrepreneur, Get Across the Start Line is a podcast you should be listening to right now. Listen to new entrepreneurs that are just getting started like you. Learn from seasoned entrepreneurs that have been there at the start line and have advice for you to learn from. This will be your first stop in your entrepreneur adventure. Join your host, Scoob, as we take you through the 4 hurdles of stop, find your zone of genius, and get you across the start line. Start your entrepreneur adventure right now on The Undiscovered Entrepreneur, Get Across the Start Line. Available on all major platforms, or go to stan.store/Scoob. Go to stan.store/SKOOB. Let's get across the start line together.
And welcome back. So let's jump in here for number 100 of Broken Bird. This is from 2024. It was directed by Joanne Mitchell. And then we have a few people here that are doing the writing for it. So let me just make sure that I get all of this information here. Now, the writer of the screenplay is Dominic Brunt. And then the story was done by Joanne Mitchell. And then Tracy Shields helped with the story, as well as this is based on the original story by them. So this stars James Fleet, Rebecca Calder, and Jay Taylor. Horror film that is from the United Kingdom. Yes. and then this is sitting on a 5.8 on IMDb and a 3.2 on Letterboxd, where synopsis being Sybil works at an undertaker's. It's the only job with a few perks, so she takes solace where she can. So this is one that I originally had checked out for episode 254, which was Foray Through the Floors number 22, that featured Weird Woman in the Front Room. And this one here this premiered at Fright Fest in the United Kingdom, and it's a hard one to settle into at first, especially if you're like me and didn't have subtitles for the accents. But once you're in, you're in. This is a dark character study that intertwines the lives of an undertaker. So we have Sybil, who's played by Calder, and a struggling police officer of Helen, portrayed by Jessica Yemi. There's also a guy named Mark, played by Jay Taylor. This film does a fantastic job of revealing character layers, connecting everybody in unexpected ways. The editing is commendable, and the performances, especially Calder's, are solid across the board. If you're looking for something that feels like a dark twist on like Amelie, I'd recommend giving Broken Bird a watch. So that's why I give this one a 7.5 out of 10. So as you can tell, this one is borderline where it could have been an honorable mention, but at this time, this is where I have it sitting. And coming in at number 99 here is going to be Rec 4 Apocalypse. So this is from 2014. It is directed by Wami Bellarago, who wrote this with Manu Diaz. This stars Manuela Velasco, Paco Menezendo, and Hector Colomi. This is a supernatural zombie horror action thriller film that is... I know it's from Spain, but let me just make sure here. Yep, Spain. This one is sitting on a 5.3 on IMDb and a 2.3 on Letterboxd, where synopsis being: an ill-fated television reporter is rescued and sent on a voyage across the ocean, but she is followed by the deadly virus that plagued her and numerous others. So this one, if you don't hear a mini review, is going to be episode 241, which was Foray Through the Floors number 11. That had Two Monks and The Watchers were the two featured reviews over there. And I'll say is that this is the finale for this little series here, directed by Bellarago. Having been a fan of the series from the start, I finally watched this one for the Summer Challenge series for the podcast Under the Stairs. The film picks up right after the original, with the reporter Angela Vidal, portrayed by Velasco, rescued and taken on a cargo ship, but the deadly virus follows. What really stands out here is, unlike its predecessors, this ditches the found footage style entirely to an extent. We do get a little bit of that. This is a more traditional cinematic experience, though Angela's old camera footage does make a cool appearance, and we also have them looking at surveillance stuff. The setting here, the claustrophobic apartment building to an isolated ship, works perfectly, maintaining that tension. And speaking of continuity, the filmmakers did an amazing job bringing in Angela, and even a character from the third film, connecting all the pieces together. Velasco as Angela is fantastic, picking up where she, as if no time has passed. Manazendo as Guzman and Colomi as Dr. Ricard also deliver strong performances, adding depth to the unraveling mystery. This installment veers away from the religious themes of the first two, focusing instead on a scientific search for a cure. Well made, from the cinematography to the sound design, and a solid conclusion to the franchise. If you're a fan of the Rec series or just looking for a tense horror film, I think this one's worth a watch. So I know a lot of people don't love this one. I enjoyed my one-time watch of this one, and I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. Then at position number 98, it's going to be Secret Window from 2004. This is directed by David Knopp, who also did the writing here. This is from the short story by Stephen King. Stars Johnny Depp, Maria Bello, and John Turturro. This is a psychological thriller, whodunit, drama mystery film. I consider it to be horror with some of the stuff that we get, and this one is from the United States. Currently sitting on a 6.5 on IMDb, and a 3.0 on Letterboxd with synopsis being: a successful writer in the midst of a painful divorce is stalked at a remote lake house by a would-be scribe who accuses him of plagiarism. So this one, there isn't an episode on Journey with a Cinephile for it. This one I actually went with Jamie and I over to the Nightclub podcast. Don't remember the episode number offhand, but we covered it over there. So this is one I remember on DVD shortly after it came out. Likely missing it in the theater due to a busy senior year of high school. As a big King fan, I definitely sought this one out. So this kicks off with an out-of-context scene. Mort Rainey, portrayed by Depp, is confronting his wife of Amy, portrayed by Bello, and her lover Ted Milner, portrayed by Timothy Hutton. Flash forward, and Mort is now living at their lake house amidst a painful divorce, struggling with writer's block and depression. His world is turned upside down when John Shooter, portrayed by Turturro, arrives, accusing Mort of plagiarism. This isn't the first time that Mort has faced such a claim, and he vehemently denies it, but Shooter's persistent and increasingly menacing. Mort, meanwhile, drags his feet on proving his innocence and enlists the aid of Ken Karsh, portrayed by Charles S. Dutton, who assisted him in a previous plagiarism case. So what stands out here is King's meta commentary on himself, using his own history with critics of his story endings. Here we have a writer character of Mort who struggles with the very thing that King has poked fun at for. Depth is fantastic in his role, embodying the unstable, isolated writer with perfection. His internal monologues, where he interacts with himself, really highlights Mort's unraveling mind. While the plot itself isn't incredibly deep, the film thrives on character study with subtle clues sprinkled through to piece together the true nature of Mort's situation. Supporting cast, though limited on screen time, makes a strong impact. Bello as Amy, while a cheater, garners sympathy, and Turturro as Shooter is effectively menacing, even when he's just a looming threat. Hutton and Dutton also deliver solid performances. The filmmaking itself is commendable. The isolated cabin setting perfectly emphasizes Mort's depression and loneliness, and the cinematography uses mirrors and cleverly frames to build an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty, constantly making you wonder what Shooter will do next, or if somebody is hiding in the shadows. The surreal moments playing out in Mort's mind are a great touch, especially given how things ultimately end up. Overall, I enjoy this one. It's a well-executed adaptation of a King story with depth, delivering a compelling performance as a man pushes the brink. The film does an excellent job of building atmosphere and subtly revealing its secrets. It definitely is worth a watch, or a rewatch if you haven't seen it for a while, especially if you go in blind and pick up the clues. I give this one a 7.5 out of 10. Then at spot number 97 is going to be Resident Evil Apocalypse from 2004. This is directed by Alexander Witt, written by Paul W.S. Anderson, stars Mila Jovovich, Sienna Guillory, and Eric Mabus. This is a one-person army action, zombie, action, horror, sci-fi thriller film that is from, let me just make sure of this one here, a co-production of Germany, United Kingdom, France, Canada, and the United States. This is currently sitting on a 6.1 on IMDb and a 2.6 on Letterboxd. Our synopsis: Alice wakes up in Raccoon City Hospital after the area has been overrun by zombies and must now make it out of the city before a nuclear bomb is dropped. So this one, if you'd like to hear a mini review, is going to be episode 50, which is Journey Through the Odds number 23, that featured 12-Hour Shift and Atom Age Vampire. And for this one here is, I really like this one when it first came out, even though I think I even saw it in theaters twice. It's been a while since I had watched it, with the critical eye, so I was curious to see how it would hold up, and this was back in season 1 that I last watched it. Picks up right after the original with Alice, who's Jovovich, waking up in Raccoon City Hospital, only to find that it's been overrun by zombies. Her mission: escape before a nuclear bomb hits. We get a quick recap of the first film leading to current chaos. Umbrella employees unleash the T-virus from the hive, spreading infection throughout the city. Meanwhile, Dr. Ashford, portrayed by Jared Harris, searches for his stranded daughter, Angie, portrayed by Sophie Vavassier. So we get a quick introduction to Jill Valentine, who's portrayed by Guillory, who, after being suspended, takes matters into her own hand, fighting off zombies and freeing LJ, who is Mike Epps. As Umbrella seals off the city, Major Kane, portrayed by Thomas Kreischman, makes a crucial decision. Alice, now armed and ready, teams up with Jill, Sergeant Peyton Wells, portrayed by Raquez Adotti, and other survivors after Dr. Ashford gives them a way out. They also encounter Carlos Oliveira, who is Oded Fur, and his Umbrella paramilitary unit, who are equally trapped and ready to turn on their company. While I appreciate about this one that it successfully adapts elements from Resident Evil 2 and 3, the video games, expanding on the contained feel of the first film into a larger infected sandbox, bringing characters like Jill, Carlos, Dr. Ashford, Nemesis, who is portrayed by Matthew G. Taylor in this, and Nikolai, portrayed by Zach Ward, really ticks my nerd box. Even though they're not exact replicas from the game, the Nemesis Project concept with Alice and Nemesis being two sides of a coin is a great touch, solidifying its action horror flick. Jovovich is fantastic as Alice, completely embodying this character. Guillory grew on me as Jill, and Fur is solid as Carlos. Kreischman works as this, spineless villain. Harris and Epps are welcome additions, and Taylor is a perfect nemesis. The special effects are notably improved here, with good-looking zombies and much better CGI for the lickers. However, some of the cinematography choices, like the blurry effects and certain camera work, did pull me out of the experience at times, while some CGI also doesn't hold up on top of that. Despite the minor issues, Resident Evil Apocalypse remains one of my favorite video game adaptations. It's a logical progression for the series, and the blend of Resident Evil 2 and 3 elements works well. It's a fun, above-average movie overall, and I give this one, once again, a 7.5 out of 10. I think this is still probably my favorite of the series here for this run with Anderson and Jovovich. And then coming in at my 96th position is going to be Trivial. This is from 2024. This is written and directed by James L. Edwards. This is starring Sasha Graham. Drew Fortner and Edwards also is in this. So this is a horror film that is from the United States, currently sitting on a 5.2 on IMDb, and I would say about a 3 to a 3.5 star over on Letterboxd for synopsis being. 5 strangers are forced to play an online game show by an unhinged hostess. Get the answers right, they move to the next level. Get the answers wrong, it's lights out. But the reason they're selected is as shocking as the game itself. So this is one that I got to see as a screener earlier this year. Actually, it was last year. That'll be December 2024. This was on episode 268, which was winter year end number 25, that featured Don't Open Till Christmas and Apartment 7A. So this one here is that, let me get into here, is I actually got the chance to see this when a friend recommended me for the review, and I knew that I had to check this work out. So this one, it's a simple yet effective story broken into 5 chapters. We follow Laurel Edmonds, portrayed by Sasha Graham, who hosts a new trivia show called Trivial, in which looks like it's a minimally dressed up garage. We have Truck, who's portrayed by Douglas Esper, runs a laptop and announces the trivia questions. The catch: for every wrong answer, there's a stiff punishment. 3 wrong answers and you're dead. Courtesy of Laurel giving you a Glasgow smile, or at least that's what she does for the first game. So the first one pits the misogynistic Dean Mathers, who is Edwards, against Chris Haim, portrayed by Adam Scott Clevenger. So as the game progresses, we see a pattern emerging, hinting at why these particular contestants are chosen. There's a subtle connection between Laurel and one of the players that unfolds in the final game. I won't spoil too much as the story is developed through each game and contestant, but suffice to say, the slight repetitive nature is my only minor gripe, which could have tightened the narrative just a bit. So despite not working with a small budget, it's evident in sets. Trivial reminds me of like Saw in its premise. Contestants waking up don't know how they got there, and each one having a troubled past. However, this isn't a ripoff, but a rather charming, inspired take on a revenge game. The filmmaking truly shines here. The effects are fantastic for the budget, maintaining realism by not going overboard. The cinematography and framing are commendable, especially in capturing the gore effectively. What impressed me most was the editing. The use of the old game show footage in the opening credits and as intercuts throughout the film, sometimes even making it seem like the old host is talking to our contestants, was expertly done. The simple yet effective soundtrack also builds tension perfectly. So Graham carries this film as Laurel, delivering a performance that is both creepy and fun. She brings a fantastic creepiness to the role, and there's a moment where you see the toll of her actions take before she completely cracks from reality, which was truly impressive. Edwards himself is hilarious as the deplorable Dean, and while he's a complete jerk, I surprisingly found myself feeling for him in the end. Then we have Drew Fortner, Tim Novatone, Rick Germain, Clevenger, Andrea Carlson Knight, and Esper also deliver solid performances, rounding out the cast. In conclusion, this is a minimal film that hooked me from the very first game. It's an impressive achievement on a small budget with a charmingly minimal set. The filmmaking, from the effects and editing to the soundtrack, cinematography, and framing, brings the unique story to life. Graham's performance, along with Edwards and the rest of the cast, is exceptional. If you're into gory independent horror films centered around high-stakes trivia game, then I highly recommend this one. I gave this one a 7.5 out of 10 as well. And I'm going to go very brief here with this next one just because I recently covered it, and that is going to be number 95 is The Rule of Jenny Penn. So this one is technically a 2024 film, getting its wide release here in 2025. I actually did a mini review on episode 298, which was Voyage to the Fives number 14. This was a mini review for there. And then the other time I covered this one would have been a featured review on episode 283, which was Voyage to the Fives number 2. Had this paired up as a featured review with Werewolf of London. So I'm going to direct you to both of those episodes if you'd like to hear a bit more. And I'm going to kind of just, cut it short here just because I did cover this so recently. And then position number 94 is going to be for Waka. This is from 2024. This is directed by and written by Aslan Clark. This stars Brittany Noctain, Claire Monley, and Alexandra Bezhirhitskaya. I know I'm mispronouncing gutted that one, but this is a folk horror film that is from Ireland, currently sitting on a 6.1 on IMDb and a 3.3 on Letterboxd, with our synopsis being: follow a student of nursing palliative care who is plagued by trauma from her past that has disorienting effects on her present, her relationship, and her career, and her ability to function. So this one, if you'd like to hear a featured review, is going to be episode 291, which was Centennial Club number 20. I had this paired up with The Bear's Wedding. And this one is hit my radar when it arrived on Shudder. As a fan of folk horror and Irish cinema, I came to this one blind. So we follow Shu, portrayed by Monley, a nursing student plagued by past trauma, and she's assigned to care for an elderly woman of Pieg, portrayed by Noctain, who lives in a remote rural area. Now the journey there is long and ominous, as there's warnings from locals hint at a cursed home and a fairy tree. Upon arriving, Shu finds Pieg distrustful and seemingly delusional, believing that she was taken by fairies as a young woman. As Shu spends more time with Pieg, she begins to question what's real and what's delusional, especially given her own mother's similar history. Now, what really captivated me about Foray is its unique take on folk horror using fairies as an unseen antagonist. Instead of overt creature appearances, the horror is presented through unraveling perception of these two women. The film delves into the idea of mental illness running in families, blending it with a traditional Irish folklore. The title Foray, which translates to roots, subtly hints at familiar trauma and deeply rooted in the land. Now, the performances by Nactane and Monley are outstanding. They portray two women from different worlds who, despite initial distrust, grow closer as Shu begins to believe Peg's terrifying experiences. Monley's portrayal of Shu following in similar footsteps to her mother is particularly compelling. The supporting cast, through smaller roles, effectively leads to their ultimate destinies. From the filmmaking perspective, this excels. The framing and cinematography are expertly done, creating a palpable sense of unease. There are moments where you see things in the background that characters don't, which is incredibly unsettling. The sound design is also top-notch, making you question who is speaking and what is real. The film doesn't rely on excessive effects, instead building tension through atmosphere and suggestion. So this is a solid folk horror film offering that provides a refreshing take on the subgenre. It focuses on two women, one believed to be delusional, the other one slowly convinced. Its strong narrative choice, while it borrows elements from other similar films, its distinct focus on this duo, along with strong performances and impressive filmmaking, make it a worthwhile watch. I recommend checking this out, as I give this one, once again, 7.5. Then position number 93 is going to be Grafted from 2024. This is directed by Sasha Rainbow. It was written, let's see here, there's a few people. I want to make sure that I get everybody correct. So, this is written amongst Lee Murray, Rainbow, Mia Maramara, and Waylene Oh. And this is starring Jess Hong, Mark Mitchinson, and Eden Hart. This is a body horror, dark romance, psychological drama, horror, thriller, romance film that is from New Zealand. Currently sitting on a 5.6 on IMDb and 3.0 on Letterboxd, where Synopsis being. A bright but socially awkward exchange student takes her craving for popularity to horrifying heights. So this one I did a featured review on episode 277, which was Black Appreciation number 12. I had this paired up with Kuzo. It doesn't make for the greatest double feature there, and then this is also on episode 291, which was Centennial Club number 20, that featured Foray and the Bear's Wedding. So for this film here, though, because this one got its wide release here in 2025, it must have been doing its festival stuff last year. And when I saw this hit Shudder, I was going to check this out because, being a woman in horror appreciation, I gave it a second watch to see how I would sit with it. So this has a horrific experiment gone wrong, and to start this off, showing a father of Leo and his daughter Wei, both with distinctive marks on their face, attempting a new skin graft thing. This sets the stage for the body horror to come. Years later, a teenage Wei, portrayed by Jo Yin Sun, now a scholarship student, moves to New Zealand to live with her aunt Ling, portrayed by Xiao Hu, and her popular cousin Angela, portrayed by Hong. So Wei is socially awkward, clashes with Angela and her mean girlfriend Eve, portrayed by Hart, but their shared science class, taught by a brilliant but pressured Paul, portrayed by Jared Turner, Wei sees an opportunity. She possesses her late father's research notes, which intrigues Paul. As Wei aids Paul in his experiments, aligns between scientific ambition and desperate craving for popularity, leading down a dark path, become like those she desperately wants to fit in with. So this is a fascinating blend of mad scientist trope with a deep character study of Wei. The film explores generational trauma through the mark on Wei's face, connecting her to her father's failed experiments and this burden to help her. It also delves into the universal human desire to fit in and the lengths one might go to achieve it, especially with facing bullying. Sun delivers a compelling performance as Wei, capturing her social awkwardness and scientific brilliance. Turner is equally strong as Paul, a prodigy whose ambition pushes him to unethical extremes, mirroring Wei's own descent. Now, the body horror elements are effectively unsettling, with a good mix of practical and CGI effects that make you cringe without being overly graphic. The sound design is a highlight, enhancing the grotesque transformations. The cinematography cleverly conceals the seams of the effects, and while some CGI blood wasn't my favorite, the overall brutal moments were unexpected and impactful. Hong and Hart also impressed with their performance, especially in later scenes where they take on different personas. Overall, I would say that I'm glad that I watched this one a couple times. It's an intriguing mad scientist body horror film that tackles themes of fitting in and bullying with nuance. The performances are solid, and the filmmaking, from effects to sound design and cinematography, is commendable. While there's some slight narrative structure issues, the story becomes more enjoyable with a second watch, as I have come in here with Grafted as being a 7.5 out of 10. And then number 92 is going to be Alien Romulus from 2024 as well. This one is directed by Fede Alvarez. Now, he also helped write this. I don't know if he fully wrote it. Let me just make sure here. He did this with Sado Sayagis, and then they're also giving credit here to characters created by Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett. This is starring Kaylee Spaney, David Johnson, and Archie Renault. This is a monster space sci-fi horror thriller film that is from, I believe this one's going to be a co-production here of United Kingdom, United States, Hungary, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. Currently sitting on a 7.1 on IMDb and a 3.6 on Letterboxd, where synopsis being. While scavenging the deep ends of a derelict space station, a group of young space colonists come face to face with the most terrifying life form in the universe. So this one, I did a featured review on episode 252, which was Foray Through the Forest number 20, that featured The Lodger from 1944 in this film. And then also gave it a mini review as I was doing my year-end roundup on episode 266, which was Winter Year-End number 23. This was a mini review, like I said. And this one I didn't even realize was coming out until close to its release, but knowing that Alvarez and Sayega's previous work definitely piqued my interest, especially with a second watch for my year-end list since, like I said. So this opens with a group of space colonists scavenging a derelict station, like it said, only to come face-to-face with this. And we have Rain, portrayed by Spaney, an agricultural worker, and her android companion, Andy, portrayed by Johnson. Now, Rain is trying to transfer off this desolate planet, but things go awry, pushing her to join a desperate mission with her friends Tyler, portrayed by Renault, Kay, portrayed by Isabella Mercad, Bjorn, portrayed by Spike Fern, and Navarro, portrayed by Eileen Wu. Their plan is to raid a Weyland-Yutani Corporation ship for cryopods. Quickly becomes a fight for survival. When they awaken, something terrifying. So this is interesting, takes place 20 years after the original Alien, but before Aliens. It subtly nods to other films in the series, from the beginning feeling like Aliens to the claustrophobic tension of the original. I especially enjoyed the social commentary woven throughout, as a group of impoverished workers attempt to revolt and escape their bleak existence. A dark look at capitalism that's a hallmark of the franchise. The claustrophobic feel on the ship is fantastic, but the added fear of acid blood burning through the hull really heightens the tension. The practical effects are brutal and realistic, reminiscent of Evil Dead, though not as good CGI when needed. This truly brings the horror to life. The cinematography and framing also effectively hide any seams in the effects and convey the vastness of space. The action sequences are well filmed and keep the excitement flowing. So my main gripe is that this has a requel feel, borrowing heavily from early movies with direct lines and even an appearance of Rook, which attempts to invoke Ian Holm. While I appreciate homage, some of these instances felt too bit on the nose and didn't visually land quite as well. As for the acting, Spaney delivers a strong lead performance, and Johnson is great as the android, especially as his protocols change. The heart between Rain and Andy is a highlight. The rest of the cast, including Renault, Mercad, Fern, and Wu, round out the ensemble well. In conclusion, despite its requel elements, I enjoyed this movie. It successfully builds tension as a prequel within the franchise timeline, and brutal effects are a definite bright spot. The cinematography and framing effectively capture the setting and enhance the horror. The continued social commentary remains relevant and appreciated. For my second watch, is solidified as the upper half of the Alien franchise for me, as once again, 7.5 out of 10 here. And then position number 91 is going to be Spring from 2014. This is written and directed by Justin Benson. Now, Aaron Moorhead helped co-direct this. It stars Lou Taylor Pucci, Nadia Hilker, and Francisco Carneludi. Now, this is a dark romance, monster drama, horror sci-fi film that is from the United States and Italy. Currently sitting on a 6.7 on IMDb and a 3.5 on Letterboxd. Synopsis is: a young man in personal tailspin flees from the U.S. to Italy, where he sparks up a romance with a woman harboring a dark, primordial secret. So this one, if you'd like to hear a mini review, is going to be episode 136, Trek to the Twos, number 10. That featured Crimes of the Future and Behind the Mask. So this one is a unique blend of horror, romance, and sci-fi, following Evan, a young man escaping to Italy after personal tragedy who falls for the mysterious Louise. So he's portrayed by Pucci, she's portrayed by Hilker, but Louise harbors a dark, primordial secret while that challenge their budding relationship. So this explores some relatable themes, its intriguing creature feature elements, and the directorial duo's signature Lovecraftian touch. It's an interesting, lesser talked about horror gem from the 2010s that's definitely worth your time. So my rating here for Spring is going to be a 7.5 out of 10. Then at position number 90 is going to be Creep. This is from 2014. It is directed by Patrick Bryce, who co-wrote this with Mark Duplass. They both star in this with Katie Aselton. This is a found-footage horror thriller film that is from the United States, currently sitting on a 6.3 on IMDb and a 3.3 on Letterboxd, where it stops being a young videographer answers an online ad for a one-day job in a remote town to record the last messages of a dying man. When he notices the man's odd behavior, he starts to question his intentions. So this one, if you'd like to hear a mini review, is going to be episode number 62, which was New Year to movie number 4. This was a mini review for that one. I had seen this one once before, and I believe I rewatched this. I think I was late watching it for the Summer Challenge series, so I was trying to catch up on it and everything like that there. So this one is an interesting little thing where this videographer, like I said, that is portrayed by Patrick Bryce, and his name in this is Aaron, and he comes out to record Yosef, portrayed by Duplass. So he is supposed to have this unborn child, so he wants to make sure, kind of like the one movie with Michael Keaton where he does that. But as the day progresses, our videographer realizes things are not as they seem. Bryce and Duplass star in this psychological thriller that makes you scream. I definitely think it's worth a watch. It is definitely kind of eerie, makes you kind of wonder what you would do and where you would kind of stop things and everything like that. So I have enjoyed this both watches and gave it a 7.5 out of 10. And as we finally venture into the numbers of the 80s here, at 89 I have Castle of Blood, which goes by the original title of Danza Macabra. This is co-directed between Antonio Margheriti and Sergio Carbucci. And then the writers here, we have the story done by Giovanni Grimbaldi, Carbucci, and then the original source material story is going to be Edgar Allan Poe. And then the screenplay was done by Grimbaldi and Carbucci. So this stars Barbara Steele, George Riveri, and Marguerite Robschab. I think it might be how you say that. I might mispronounce that as well. But this is from 1964, if I haven't said that already. It's a co-production of Italy and France. It is currently sitting on a 6.8 on IMDb and a 3.4 on Letterboxd, where it snaps being. A journalist takes a bet that he can spend the night in a haunted castle on All Hallows Eve. During his stay, he bears witness to a castle's gruesome past coming to life before him, and he falls in love with a beautiful female ghost. So if you'd like to hear a review of this one, it's going to be on episode 261, which was Italian Horror number 18 that featured Giallo and Masters of Horror Pelt. So that was a Dario Argento double feature. This was a mini review over there. So I rather enjoyed this romantic gothic film. We are getting a great location for a haunted house and then using elements of cosmic horror. There's even an argument to be made that there's some time loop elements, which is impressive for a film from 1964. So the acting is solid. Steele delivering a great performance as always in these types of films here, these gothic, Italian horror films. But then we also have Riveri serving as a solid lead. The cinematography, framing, and sound design all contribute to building the necessary atmosphere. Not groundbreaking, but definitely an enjoyable watch. So my rating here for Castle of Blood, once again, is going to be falling in line with the other ones as a 7.5 out of 10. Then at number 88, a very similar film here, is going to be The Long Hair of Death. This goes by the original title of Il Lunghi Capelli della Morte. And then this one here is directed by Margheriti again, who also, the screenplay was done by Toino Valerie, who did the dialogue, and then there's also Ernesto Gastaldi helped with the story under the name of Julian Barry, and then Margheriti also helped a little bit with the screenplay, but that was uncredited work. This one also stars Barbara Steele, but this one has George Artisan and Helena Zalewski. So this is a fantasy horror film that is from, it's from Italy. Currently sitting on a 6.2 on IMDb and a 3.3 on Letterboxd with a synopsis being: a woman under suspicion of witchcraft is burned alive. Her curse brings her back from the dead for revenge. So this one, if you'd like to hear a mini review, is going to be episode 262, which was Italian Horror Night number 19 that featured Murder Rock Dancing Death, and Voices from Beyond, which was my Lucio Fulci double feature. So this is a mini review over on that one. So this was another gothic romance horror film from 1964 that blends witchcraft, revenge, and a touch of the supernatural. The story follows a woman being accused and then curses her accusers before her death, leading to a tale of retribution that spans years. I found the social commentary on nepotism and the corrupt influence of power to be well developed throughout the narrative. Steele delivers a strong performance, as does Zalewski, who takes on dual roles in the film. Artisan is excellent as the lecherous Baron, and it's fun to see a young Roberto Rajo as a religious Von Clog. Now, the cinematography, framing, and limited effects all contribute to a solid atmosphere that truly captures this film's era. While my viewing copy wasn't in the best shape, I still found it a solid gem from the 60s that doesn't get enough attention. So, The Long Hair of Death, this one definitely is very similar to the other ratings here, as I have a 7.5 out of 10. Then number 87 is going to be The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue, a.k.a. Let Sleeping Corpses Lie. This goes by the original title of No Profar el Sueño de los Muertos. This is from 1974, directed by Jorge Grau. Now, the writing team that we have here is going to be Sandro Continenzia, Marcello Cosia are the official writers of the screenplay, but Juan Cobos and Miguel Rubio also did some uncredited work there as well. So this stars Christina Galbo, Ray Lovelock, and Arthur Kennedy. This is a drama horror sci-fi film that is from a co-production of Spain and Italy. Currently sitting on a 6.7 on IMDb and a 3.4 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being, a cop chases two hippies suspected of a series of Manson-like murders. Unbeknownst to him, the real culprits are the living dead, brought to life with a hunger for human flesh by ultrasonic radiation used for pest control. So this one, if you'd like to hear a mini review, is going to be episode 231, which was Foray Through the Forest #1, that featured Maniac from 1934 and Exuma. And for this one here is an interesting little zombie flick that is a foreign gem in my opinion. So Grau directed here, takes us on a ride with our characters here of George and Edna as they are portrayed by Gelbo and Lovelock. Now they're two strangers who get tangled up in a zombie outbreak. Now these aren't your typical flesh eaters. They're brought to back by ultrasonic radiation used for pest control, adding to a unique environmental twist to the horror. Get ready for practical effects, slow-moving, well, mostly zombies, and a solid dose of gore, all wrapped up in a visually striking, isolated countryside. Despite a few inconsistencies with the zombies and a jerk for a lead, the film holds up and offers an interesting ecological message that's still relevant today. So this one here, I gave another one that's going to be locked in here as a 7.5 out of 10. Then position 86 is going to be The Lodger from 1944. This is directed by John Bram. This is written between Barry Lyndon and Marie Bellick Lowndes. This is starring Laird Kreger, Merle Oberon, and George Sanders. This is a crime horror mystery thriller film that is from the United States. It is currently sitting on a 7.0 on IMDb and a 3.4 on Letterboxd, where synopsis being, a landlady suspects that her new lodger is Jack the Ripper. So this one was a featured review on episode 252, which was Foray Through the Forest number 20 that featured this and Alien Romulus as the two features. So then this one here is an interesting, it is not your typical Jack the Ripper tale, as we're clued into the killer's identity, this mysterious Mr. Slade who's played with unsettling intensity by Krieger. We get that from the get-go pretty much. The real tension comes from the landlady, Ellen, who is portrayed by Sarah Allgood, as she tries to convince her skeptical husband and charming niece of Kitty, portrayed by Oberon, that the lodger is indeed the notorious murderer. Sanders shines as the Inspector John Warwick, trying to piece together the evidence while also smitten with Kitty. While stage performances might feel a tad like filler, the film's strong cinematography and period detail, along with Krieger's unnerving stare, make this a unique and solid entry into Ripper's cinematic universe. So this one, again, I have as a 7.5 out of 10. And also, I bring up here, Cedric Hardwicke also plays a role in this one as well. Then at number 85 is going to be The Curse of the Cat People from 1944. Directed by, Gunther von Frisch and Robert Wise. It was written by Duet Bodine. This stars Simone Simon, Kent Smith, and Jane Rudolph. This is a drama horror mystery film that is from, I believe this is from the United States, but let me just double check here so I don't speak. Yes. And then this is sitting on a 6.7 on IMDb and a 3.4 on Letterboxd, with synopsis being, a young, lonely girl lives in a dream world with her father's dead first wife as a playmate. So this one here, if you'd like to hear a featured review, is going to be episode 247, which was Foray Through the Forest number 16, that featured this paired up with Oddity. That actually kind of makes for an interesting double feature here about things of people may be haunted, maybe they're not. Don't necessarily know until you've watched both. But this one here is an intriguing follow-up to Cat People. This film takes a decidedly different path from its predecessor, shifting from a potential monster movie to a poignant neo-Gothic character study. We reunite Oliver, who is Kent Smith, and Alice Reed, portrayed by Rudolph, now parents to young Amy, portrayed by Ann Carter, who struggles with an imaginary friend. When Amy begins to see Oliver's deceased first wife of Irina, portrayed by Simone, reprising her role, it raises questions of the imagination versus something more supernatural. With strong performances, especially from the young Carter, and master cinematography that beautifully captures the dichotomy between a child's perception and adult reality, this RKO Val Lewton production offers a unique and emotional resonant experience, a must-watch for fans of the original and classic horror cinema, just because it is such an interesting little piece of cinema here. So my rating then for this follow-up is going to be a 7.5 out of 10. And then position number 84 is going to be Messiah of Evil from 1974. This is directed between Hilliard Hoyek and Gloria Katz, who also wrote this together. Stars Michael Greer, Mariana Hill, and Joy Bang. This is a supernatural zombie horror film that is from the United States. This is currently sitting on a 6.3 on IMDb and a 3.5 on Letterboxd, for synopsis being. A young woman goes searching for her missing artist father. Her journey takes her to a strange Californian seaside town governed by a mysterious undead cult. So this one here, if you'd like to hear, I have 2 reviews of this one. Jake and I covered this over on SideQuest, which was episode number 20, and then I also went to see this at the Gateway Film Center, and that was a mini review on episode 220, which was New Year movie number 17, that featured Project Dorothy and Red, White, and Blue. So for this one here, we are venturing into a truly unique and unsettling horror film. Directed by Hoyek and Katz, the independent gem follows Ari, portrayed by Hill, as she searches for her estranged father in a remote coastal town. When she finds is far more sinister than she could ever imagine, a community slowly succumbing to a strange cult-like madness and growing hunger. This masterfully builds atmosphere and dread with surreal imagery and a perverse sense of unease. While the plot can be a bit ambiguous at times, the film's dreamlike quality and disturbing themes of decay and consumption leave a lasting impression. Featuring a memorable performance from a young Bill Paxton and a climax that is both shocking and unforgettable, Messiah of Evil is a hidden treasure in the realm of atmospheric horror, a film that gets under your skin and stays there. So my rating here for Messiah of Evil is going to be, once again, a 7.5 out of 10. Then position number 83 is going to be The Mask of the Red Death from 1964. This is directed by Roger Corman. It is written by Charles Beaumont and R. Wright Campbell, while also giving credit here to Poe. So this is starring Vincent Price, Hazel Court, and Jane Asher. This is a supernatural drama horror film that is from a co-production of the United Kingdom and United States. This is currently sitting on a 6.9 on IMDb. Nice. And a 3.6 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being. A European prince terrorizes the local peasantry while using his castle as a refuge against the Red Death, plague that stalks the land. So this one here, if you'd like to hear, I know I covered this over on one of the movie club challenges for the podcast Under the Stairs, but I did a mini review on episode 224, which was Women Appreciation number 10, that featured In My Skin and Lisa Frankenstein. I know I've also seen this one in the theater when the Gateway Film Center, I think, was doing like a Roger Corman run, or maybe an Edgar Allan Poe, something like that. So this is an opulent yet chilling world of Corman's adaptation of Poe's story, The Mask of the Red Death. Starring the incomparable Price as a devil-worshipping Prince Prospero, this film sees him terrorize the local peasantry while holed up in his lavish castle, shielded from the deadly Red Death plague. From the striking use of colored rooms for torture to the chillingly appearances of the masked Red Death figure, Corman masterfully blends horror with a compelling commentary on class disparity and the inevitability of justice. Price delivers a stellar performance as the wicked and arrogant Prospero, perfectly complemented by Asher as the devout Francesca, and the villainous Patrick McGee, who plays somebody who comes to the castle here. I'm going to see if I can pull up who he is, Alfredo. While some story elements could be further explored, the film's stunning cinematography, period atmosphere, and a timely reflection on pandemics makes this one of Corman's strongest Poe adaptations, a must-see for the classic horror, Price, and Corman fans. So my rating then here is going to be a 7.5 out of 10. And then coming in at number 82 is going to be another Vincent Price film of The Last Man on Earth. This is from 1964, directed by Ubaldo Ragona and Sidney Salco. And then this is written between, here, let me figure this one out. The screenplay was done by Richard Matheson and William S. Leicester. And then the novel was by Matheson. And then the Italian version screenplay is done by Furio M. Ronetta and then Raganona. I think I might be able to say that. I don't know. Then this one is starring Vincent Price, Franca Batoya, and Emma Danieli. This is a dystopian sci-fi vampire zombie drama horror sci-fi film that is a co-production here of the Italy and United States. Currently sitting on a 6.7 on IMDb and a 3.3 on Letterboxd, where our synopsis being. While a disease turns all humanity into the living dead, the last man on Earth becomes a reluctant vampire hunter. So this one, if you'd like to hear a mini review, is going to be episode 73, which was Odyssey to the Ones number 2, that featured Bloody Hell and Murder by the Clock. And then for this one here, though, we're looking at the 60s sci-fi classic here, then. The Italian-American science fiction horror film, directed by Raganoni and Salco, is one of the earliest and most impactful adaptations of the Matheson novel of I Am Legend. Now, we follow Dr. Robert Morgan, who is portrayed by the iconic Price, as he navigates exploring a post-apocalyptic world overrun by vampiric creatures. Unlike later adaptations, these ones are not fast-moving, or they're more like, they're zombies but not fast-moving, but slow and shambling, and seemingly intelligent zombies who retain some semblance of their former selves. Price delivers a powerful and moving performance as the lonely and increasingly desperate Morgan. his isolation palpable as he battles both creatures and his own sanity. While the film's pacing can be deliberate and some of the effects are dated, its bleak atmosphere, philosophical undertones, and Price's performance make it a foundational film in the post-apocalyptic and zombie genres. It's a must-see for fans of classic sci-fi horror and a fascinating look at a key adaptation of the legendary story that I am giving a 7.5 out of 10 for. And then I'm going to be very quick here. I'm going to do a bump up in rating, but I have 4 documentaries that I'm putting at the very tail end, as these are all going to be 8 out of 10s. The first one's Killer Legends. This one is kind of exploring, I believe, different people that have urban legends and stuff where that might have been the inspiration for different things there. That was kind of an interesting little documentary. I gave that one an 8 out of 10, like I said. Then Doc of Chucky. This one runs through the whole Child's Play series from all the films that were out at that time, I believe. Another one, really interesting. Now, the 50 best horror movies you've never seen. This was a fun one because I've actually seen most of the movies on this list. There were a few of them that I have, that I know about, just haven't had a chance to see. So that one was a fun one to kind of count down through. And the last one is going to be one that I wish I would have watched growing up. It's Terror in the Aisles. This one does a great job of using 70s and 80s horror, kind of running through different things, pairing them up, how things are similar, how things are different, what they're kind of doing, and their kind of lasting legacy and everything like that. So that one, again, I gave it 8 out of 10 too. So this brings me to movie number 77, the penultimate one for this part of the list, and it's going to be Kidnapped, a.k.a. Rabid Dogs. This goes by the original title of Kane Abarati, now 1974. This was directed by Mario Bava for the most part. This one, though the story and screenplay were done by Alessandro Parianzano, and then Bava did some uncredited work there. Also, there's Cesare Fragano, who did uncredited screenplay work. So there's also this updated version of it that was done by Alfredo Leone. And then Michael J. Carroll did the original one of Man and Boy that was uncredited. And then this one stars Leah Lander, George Eastman, and Ricardo Cucciolo. Now, this is a dark comedy, crime, drama, thriller film that I think goes dark enough to be a horror film. So this one is from Italy, currently sitting on a 7.4 on IMDb and a 3.7 on Letterboxd for synopsis. Followed a bungled robbery. 3 violent criminals take a young woman, a middle-aged man, and a child hostage and force them to drive them outside of Rome to help make a clean escape. So this one, I don't have anything on Journey with a Cinephile that I've actually covered this. This was a movie club challenge one that I did for Duncan over on his show. But this one here, we're sinking our teeth into Mario Bava's 1974 crime thriller. A botched robbery leads to 3 volatile criminals to take 3 hostages. Like the synopsis says, what ensues is a tense, claustrophobic car ride out of Rome. Bava masterfully builds suspense, hinting at hidden depths for both the captors and the captive, all the while delivering a lean, gritty, and surprisingly classy film. If you're a fan of Bava's unique style and don't mind a slow burn tension, you'll definitely want to check out this rediscovered gem, because this one got lost there for a while because the production company behind it, there was some financial issues that made it kind of disappear for a while, and then this will end up getting help done by Mario's son of Lamberto to kind of finally get released and everything like that. I really enjoyed it. I would watch this one again for sure. So like I said, give this one here an 8 out of 10 as I bump up in rating, as I said already. And then movie number 76 here, Night of the Comet from 1984. This is written and directed by Tom Eberhard. This stars Catherine Mary Stewart, Kelly Maroney, and Robert Beltrain. This is a dark comedy, parody, satire, horror, sci-fi film that is from the United States. This is currently sitting on a 6.3 on IMDb and a 3.3 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being. A comet wipes out most of the life on Earth, leaving 2 valley girls fighting against cannibal zombies and a sinister group of scientists. So this one I actually originally had covered over for Duncan on one of the movie club challenges over there as well. So this one is episode 239, though, that I covered it. That was Foray Through the Forest number 9 that featured Chloe Love Is Calling You and Low Lives. This was a mini review that I did for that episode. So this is a campy, cheesy, fun film that blends comedy, sci-fi, and horror. Written and directed by Eberhard. It stars Stewart and Maroney as 2 valley girls who survive a comet wiping out most of the Earth's population. They battle cannibal zombies and a sinister group of scientists, as the synopsis said. This features some great one-liners, some good acting, and captures that 80s feel with its sound design. While minor issues with pacing, some unbelievable elements, I recommend this one, as the overall concept, charming cinematography, and fun set pieces really kind of earned this one. I guess my rating I needed to update and actually fix it, but I give this one an 8 out of 10. And that's all I have here then for this section of the list. Let me go ahead and get you over to a brief break before I jump back in and start doing the 75 through 51.
Just wait until Father gets home. Those words chilled us all as a child. Now they can thrill us as adults. My name is Dan B. Fierce, author of the book Father Figure, Suspenseful Tales of Fatherhood. The calloused hands of fear will wrap around the mind in this roller coaster collection of extreme, gory, and psychological short stories and flash fiction. Get your copy of Father Figure today at danbfiercebooks.com.
And welcome back. So let's jump into number 75 here, which is Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter. A little bit of Hammer horror here. This is from 1974, written and directed by Brian Clemens. This stars Horst Jansen, John Carson, and Shane Bryant. This is a dark comedy, vampire, adventure horror mystery film that is from the United Kingdom. And then this is sitting on a 6.4 on IMDb. And a 3.3 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being a master swordsman and a former soldier and his hunchback assistant hunt vampires. So this one here, I know I covered this over for Duncan on one of his movie club challenges. I think it's when we were doing like Hammer horror and stuff like that. And I know I had seen this one in the theater. I've seen this one by myself a couple times here. And I'm trying to figure out what episode did I actually cover this one on last. I might not have actually covered it again for the podcast outside of doing it for Duncan. Nope, not true. I did this on episode 93, which was Odyssey of the Ones number 20, that featured Friedberry and The Thing from Another World. So it's probably when I saw it in the theater. But what I'll say here for this one is this is an often overlooked, where our titular swordsman of Captain Kronos offers a fresh take on vampire lore, introducing various species and unique ways to dispatch them. Despite some cheesy sword fighting and being credited with the downfall of Hammer, this one truly shines with its intriguing concept, solid pacing, and sharp performances. Leave me wishing for the unmade sequels. This is a definite must-watch for any horror fans looking for something a little bit different, earning, for me, an 8 out of 10 here. And then coming in at number 74 is going to be The Hands of Orlok, or the original title of Orlok's Hande. So this one here is from 1924, directed by Robert Venney. Now this is written by Louis Ners, and then Maurice Renaud did the original novel. This stars Conrad Viet, Alexandra Soriana, and Fritz Strasny. This is a body horror, psychological drama, crime, mystery, sci-fi thriller film that is from a co-production of Austria and Germany. It is currently sitting on a 7.0 on IMDb and a 3.6 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being a world-famous pianist loses both hands in an accident. When new hands are grafted on, he doesn't know they once belonged to a murderer. So this is one that if you want to hear a featured review is going to be episode 226, which was Centennial Club number 13. I had this paired up with Stop Motion as the two featured reviews there. And this one here has the phenomenal Viet in it. This is a chilling tale following a world-famous pianist who gets a hand transplant, only to discover they belong to a murderer. While a tad lengthy at 105 minutes for a silent film, Viet's masterful portrayal of a man descending into madness, coupled with fascinating explorations of identity and the mind's power, make this an essential watch for any film history enthusiast. Despite some pacing issues, the unique in-camera effects and solid performance on this one earn it an early cinematic gem in my opinion, and I actually give this one here a 8 out of 10. And then position in number 73 is going to be Lady in a Cage from 1964. This one is directed by Walter Grauman. This was written by Luther Davis, stars Olivia de Havilland, James Caan, and Jennifer Billingsley. So this one is a drama horror thriller film that is from the United States. It is currently sitting on a 6.7 on IMDb and a 3.4 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being a woman trapped in a home elevator is terrorized by a group of vicious hoodlums. So this one here, if you'd like to hear a mini review, is going to be episode 225. Now this was Black Appreciation number 10 that featured Skeletons in the Closet and Street Tales of Terror. So this one here, though, is a disturbing 1964 thriller. De Havilland delivers a powerful performance as a woman trapped in her home elevator, tormented by a sadistic group of hoodlums led by a young James Caan in his feature film debut. This film is truly mean-spirited look at humanity at its worst, with fantastic sound design and editing that heighten the tension. Despite its bleakness, it's a gripping and well-made time capsule that earns a strong 8 out of 10 for me as well. So this one's an interesting one I have coming in at number 72 is going to be Ed Wood. It's from 1994, directed by Tim Burton, written by Rudolph Gray, Scott Alexander, and Larry Kaczewski. And all this is starring Johnny Depp, Martin Landau, and Sarah Jessica Parker. This is a dark comedy, docudrama, period drama, quirky comedy, showbiz drama, biography type film that I know this is put into horror thanks to an encyclopedia that I'm working through. This is from the United States, currently sitting on a 7.8 on IMDb and a 4.0 on Letterboxd. My synopsis being, ambitious but troubled movie director Edward D. Wood Jr. tries his best to fulfill his dreams despite his lack of talent. So this one I actually covered with Jamie over on episode 4 of Depp Dive. We had this paired up with What's Eating Gilbert Grape as we run through chronologically Johnny Depp's films. So this one here is, we have Depp taking on the titular worst director of all time, and Martin Landau in an Oscar-winning performance as Bela Lugosi. This film is a loving, quirky look at the ambition and friendships between truly some schlocky cinema. while taking some liberties with history and the black and white cinematography perfectly capturing the era, and the performance by Depp, Landau, and the entire cast is simply fantastic. Not necessarily a horror film, but this is a movie about a director who did horror films, and I enjoyed this, but that's why I can't go much higher here and give this one an 8 out of 10 as well. The number 71 is going to be another Tim Burton film here of Beetlejuice from last year, 2024. So this was directed by Tim Burton, as I said. Now this was written between Michael McDowell, or based on the characters by Michael McDowell, Larry Wilson. Now the story was done by Alfred Gough and Miles Miller and Seth Grahame-Smith, while the screenplay was written by Gough and Millar. So this one here starring Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, and Catherine O'Hara. This is a body horror, dark comedy, dark fantasy, slapstick, supernatural comedy fantasy film that is from a co-production of the United States and France. Currently sitting on a 6.6 on IMDb and a 3.2 on Letterboxd, where a synopsis being: after a family tragedy, 3 generations of the Dietz family return home to Winter River. Still haunted by Beetlejuice, Lydia's life is turned upside down when her teenage daughter Astrid accidentally opens the portal to the afterlife. So this one here, Jamie and I got to go to the theater, the Gateway Film Center, to see this one. That was episode 253, which was Foray Through the Floors number 21, that featured Strange Darling and Bluebeard. So this one here is, I love the return of Michael Keaton, Ryder, and Catherine O'Hara, plus the addition of Jenna Ortega. This dives deeper into the afterlife after a family tragedy brings 3 generations back, like the synopsis says. While a bit overstuffed with plot lines, the fantastic performances, Burton's signature visual style, and Danny Elfman's score make this a magical and darker journey into a beloved world. So there's an issue here, is that there's another character that I haven't even brought up yet, and that would be done by Monica Bellucci. There's just too much going on here, and they don't have enough time to fully flesh everything out. So this one, though, I still had fun. Falls short of the original one, but that original one is definitely like lightning in a bottle. I still give this one an 8 out of 10 after that one viewing. And position number 70 here, we have Sting from 2024. This was written and directed by Kai Roach Turner, stars Noni Hazelhurst, Jermaine Fowler, and Isla Brown. So this is a B-horror, dark comedy, monster, sci-fi thriller film that is from Australia. Currently sitting on a 5.7 on IMDb and a 2.4 on Letterboxd for a synopsis being: after raising an unnervingly talented spider in secret, 12-year-old Charlotte must face the facts about her pet and fight for her family's survival when the once charmed creature rapidly grows into a giant flesh-eating monster. So this one here, I know I did a feature review on episode 233, which was Foray Through the Floors number 3. I had this paired up with Black Moon. And then I watched this one again on episode 253, Foray Through the Floors number 21, which was Strange Darling and Bluebeard, as I just kind of wanted to see where my thoughts would fall for my end of year. So this one here is a film that delivers a terrifying tale of a young girl, Charlotte, who discovers a rapidly growing flesh-eating spider from space. Set in a rundown apartment building during a brutal winter storm, the film masterfully uses its confined setting to build tension, trapping our characters with a clever and deadly arachnid. When the CGI spider is well executed and the family drama adds heart, the film leans into the camp at times. Nevertheless, it's effective in its scares. Good performances and an impressive sound design make it a fun and thrilling ride. Earning this one a solid 8 out of 10 for me. And position number 69, nice, is going to be Azrael from 2024, directed by E.L. Katz. It is written by Simon Barrett. This stars Vic Carmen Sohn, Samara Weaving, and Nathan Stewart Jarrett. This is a monster horror action film that is from a co-production of the United States and Estonia. Currently sitting on a 5.4 on IMDb and a 2.9 on Letterboxd for a synopsis being: in a world where no one speaks, a devout female-led community hunts down a young woman who has escaped imprisonment. Recaptured, Azrael is due to be sacrificed to an ancient evil in the wilderness, but fights for her own survival. So the character of Azrael is portrayed by Weaving. And if you'd like to hear a mini review, it's going to be episode 256, which was Foray Through the Floors number 24, that featured Cry of the Werewolf and The Substance. And this one here is kind of an interesting little silent action horror film starring Weaving. This film plunges into a post-rapture world where a devout, non-speaking cult hunts down Azrael to sacrifice her to an ancient evil. While its relentless pacing and visceral practical effects, this doesn't pull any punches. Weaving delivers a powerful performance conveying rage, love, and loss without a single line of dialogue from her. The isolated woodland setting and fantastic sound design amplify the terror, making it truly unique and cringeworthy in the best way take on religious horror. And I didn't even bring up here that there's these weird creatures that are roaming the forest as well. They're quite creepy in what they do there. And for me, though, I gave this one, after one watch, an 8 out of 10. Then at position number 68, we have The Forgotten from 2004. This is directed by Josh Rubin. It is written by Gerald D. Pego. This stars Julianne Moore, Dominic West, and Christopher Novaleski. So there's one I'm going to skip here because I don't want to ruin it, but it's a suspense drama, mystery, sci-fi thriller film that is from the United States. This is currently sitting on a 5.8 on IMDb and a 2.6 on Letterboxd or Synopsis. After being told that their children never existed, a man and woman soon discover there's a much bigger enemy at work. So I originally saw this one in the theaters, and it's one that I have seen a couple times throughout. I know the Summer Challenge series, this is probably the last time that it popped up. And I did a mini review on episode 62, which was New Year, New Me number 4, as I had, that's the Hell House LLC double feature of the Abaddon Hotel and Lake of Fire, 2 and 3 over there. And this one is an interesting, because we have a good cast here. Also going to include here is Linus Roach is in this. So we have Telly Peretti, who is the mother here portrayed by Moore, is a grieving mother struggling with the loss of her son of Sam. And he is portrayed by Kovaleski, and he supposedly died in a plane crash. But what happens is when everybody around her, including her husband and psychiatrist, claims that he never existed. As she desperately searches for evidence, she uncovers a much larger, insidious plot. So this one explores like the memory and loss and how it still kind of resonates, or is it best left forgotten? I like what they do here. I know not everybody is as big a fan of this one as I am, but I still give this one an 8 out of 10. Then position number 67 is going to be Honeymoon from 2014. This is directed by Lee Janik, who also wrote this with Phil Graziadei. This stars Rose Leslie, Harry Treadaway, and Ben Huber. This is a body horror, drama, fantasy, mystery, romance, sci-fi, thriller film that is from the United States. Currently sitting on a 5.7 on IMDb and a 3.0 on Letterboxd or Synopsis. A newlywed couple finds their lake country honeymoon descend into chaos after Paul finds Bea wandering disoriented in the middle of the night. I'll go ahead before I jump into a little bit more here is that Bea is portrayed by Leslie, Paul by Treadaway. And if you'd like to hear a featured review on this one, Jake and I covered this on SideQuest podcast episode number 8 over there. And for this one here is... So the question ends up becoming, is Bea the person that Paul married, or has something happened to her? So the film explores themes of like marriage and the idea that we may not truly know who our partners are, even if we've committed to them. After strong performances, with Leslie and Treadaway and effective use of practical effects and sound design, this delivers an interesting commentary. And the ending, it left me wanting a little bit more. I wouldn't be shocked if other people said very similar things. I still enjoyed this one and would recommend, so I give this one an 8 out of 10 as well. And then position number 66 is going to be The Voices from 2014. This is directed by Marjane Sharapi. This is written by Michael R. Perry. This stars Ryan Reynolds, Gemma Arterton, and Anna Kendrick. This is a dark comedy, psychological serial killer, slasher, tragedy, comedy, crime, horror, thriller film. That's a mouthful. That is from a co-production of the United States and Germany. Currently sitting on a 6.3 on IMDb and a 3.2 on Letterboxd or Synopsis. A likable guy pursues his office crush with the help of his evil talking pets, but things turn sinister when she stands him up for a date. So I'll go ahead and say the lead character here is going to be Jerry, portrayed by Reynolds. The one he's in love with is Fiona, portrayed by Arterton. And there's also Lisa, who is portrayed by Kendrick. And then, so this is an interesting journey. I will say that to start off with, but if you'd like to hear a featured review, it's going to be episode 13, which was women-directed horror films. I had this paired up with The Turning. And then I also give this a rewatch with Jamie for episode 132, which was Trek to the Twos number 6. I featured Off-Season and Chandu the Magician. And like I was getting into here before I realized I needed to give a little bit more is this one, I know I heard about it on horror podcasts early on. It went on my must-watch list. Having seen it twice, this one has a unique take on mental illness and a likable guy's descent into darkness, guided by his talking pets that truly stands out. I love that Ryan Reynolds actually does the voices of his pets as well, which makes sense. But the film masterfully builds its mystery around Jerry's subtle mental issues. Reynolds delivers a strong performance that leads to the comedic and tragic aspects of his characters. With a 103-minute runtime, it is a bit long for a horror comedy. The pacing never felt overly boring. The practical effects and shifting perspectives that added some significant depth for me. Despite a less than stellar soundtrack, The Voices is a good movie that explores deeper themes than expected, and that's why I give this one as well an 8 out of 10. And number 65 is going to be Speak No Evil. This is the remake. That's the American version from 2024. This is directed by James Watkins, who also wrote the screenplay, and then is given credit here to the original screenplay done by Christian and Mads Tudroff. This stars James McAvoy, Mackenzie Davis, and Scoot McNairy. This is a psychological drama, psychological horror thriller film that is from a co-production of Croatia, Canada, and the United States. Currently sitting on a 6.8 on IMDb and a 3.3 on Letterboxd, or Synopsis. A family is invited to spend a whole weekend in a lonely home in the countryside. But as the weekend progresses, they realize the dark side lies within the family who invited them. So what I'll say here is that our main couple is going to be Ben Dalton, portrayed by McNary, and then his wife is Louise, portrayed by Davis, and then there's James McAvoy, who is Patty, and they're the ones hosting along with his wife of Sierra, who is Ansling Francosi. I think it might be how you say that name. If I do mispronounce it, I keep doing this, and you'd think I'd get better at it. But this one here, if you'd like to hear a feature review, is going to be episode 255, which was Foray Through the Forest, number 23, that I had this paired up with Voodoo Man. I did get to see this in the theater, and I was initially wary, especially hearing about the changes that were going to be made to the ending, but my curiosity in the casting of McAvoy and Francosi won out. The film plunges into an awkward, escalating nightmare of the Dalton family's rural getaway with a seemingly friendly couple. Watkins, also behind Eden Lake, massively builds a slow burn tension, expertly weaving in gaslighting and plausible explanations that make you question everything alongside the characters. The performances by McAvoy and Francosi are outstanding, creating both untrustworthy hosts, while Davis and McNary perfectly portray a couple already on the brink. And then while the ending takes a familiar turn, the film's commitment to practical brutal effects and the ironically upbeat 80s soundtrack creates a truly unsettling experience. It doesn't surpass the original for me, but it's well crafted, tense watch that earns a solid 8 out of 10 in my opinion. And for number 64, might be controversial for some people, but it's going to be Terrifier 3 from 2024. This is written and directed by Damien Leone. This stars Lauren Rivera, David Howard Thornton, and Antonella Rose. So this is a body horror, dark comedy, slasher, splatter, supernatural, teen, horror, holiday film that is from the United States, currently sitting on a 6.3 on IMDb and a 2.9 on Letterboxd, or Synopsis. Art the Clown is set to unleash chaos on the unsuspecting residents of Miles County as they peacefully drift off on Christmas Eve. So this one, Art the Clown, once again being portrayed by Thornton, and Lavera is portraying Sienna, who is our lead character. And we have some other people that are coming back, as well as some new people that I think are quite interesting here. So this one I did a mini review here on episode 258, which was Foray Through the Forest number 26. That had Jungle Woman and Little Bites, which is interesting because Kiersey Fox is in Little Bites and in this movie here. But for this one I'm a longtime follower of the franchise. I was eagerly anticipating the return of Art the Clown, and Leone certainly delivered. The film picks up the events of the previous installment with Art back as a gleefully sadistic ways, this time bringing his particular blend of holiday horror or terror, cheer, you know how it is, to Christmas. Leone continues to push boundaries with his practical effects. Terrifier 3 is no exception, with gore that is both shocking and, dare I say, artistically rendered. The performances, while not the focus of Terrifier films, serve their purpose in moving the plot along and providing fodder for Art's rampage. This leans into the absurdity of its premise. The dark humor is more prevalent than ever, offering a twisted counterpoint to the brutality. While the Terrifier series isn't for the faint of heart, it's a worthy addition here, solidifying Art the Clown's place as a modern horror icon. It's blood-soaked, over-the-top ride that earns I end up giving this one an 8 out of 10 for sheer commitment to delivering what fans would expect here. And then number 63 is going to be Smile 2. This is probably what's going to be a little bit controversial here. But this one is also from 2024. Written and directed by Parker Finn. Stars Naomi Scott, Rosemont DeWitt, and Lucas Gage. This is a psychological showbiz drama, supernatural tragedy, horror mystery thriller film that is from a co-production of the United States and Canada, currently sitting on a 6.7 on IMDb and a 3.2 on Letterboxd, or Synopsis. About to embark on a world tour, global pop sensation Sky Riley begins experiencing increasingly terrifying and inexplicable events. Overwhelmed by the escalating horrors and the pressures of fame, Sky is forced to face her past. So she is portrayed by Scott. I thought she did a great job here in this role. We'll start off by saying that. If you'd like to hear a featured review, it's going to be episode 260, which was Halloween number 5, which I had Pumpkinhead 2, Blood Wings, and this paired up as the 2 featured reviews. So this one was a highly anticipated sequel, I think, that tries to build on the creepy curse from the first one. This time, we are following Sky as she witnesses a horrific event and then is tormented from there. Now, the film cleverly uses Sky's public persona and struggles with addiction to amplify the tension, making us question what's real and what's her unraveling mind. While it doesn't expand the lore as much as I'd hope, the shift to a larger scale with a pop star protagonist was a smart move. Scott delivers a compelling performance as a complicated lead, making her descent into madness feel incredibly real. The filmmaking is top-notch with excellent cinematography, sound design, and the blend of practical and CGI effects that really stick with you. Despite a few minor gripes about the curse's development, Smile 2 is a well-crafted and unsettling follow-up that I gave an 8 out of 10 to. It's definitely worth a watch if you're looking for a horror film that kind of gets under your skin, because I definitely think it does that. And number 62 is going to be another 2024 film, and that's going to be Invader. This is written and directed by Mickey Keating. This stars Sanjay Chaudhary, Colin Huerta, Vero Menez, and also giving credit here to Joe Swanberg. So this is a horror film that is from the United States. It is currently sitting on a 4.6 on IMDb and a 3.0 on Letterboxd, where synopsis being: a young woman arrives in Chicago suburbs and begins suspecting that something terrible has happened to her missing cousin, but soon realizes that her greatest fears don't even begin to scratch the surface. I'll just say that Swanberg plays the invader, and then the person that we're following is Vero Menez. So this one here, I actually blindly went to the Gateway Film Center to check this one out when it was showing one day, and Swanberg was actually in attendance. So this was on episode 233, Foray Through the Fours, number 3, that featured Sting and Black Moon as the featured reviews, and this one is a lean 70-minute thriller that wastes no time throwing us into the nightmare as a young woman arrives in Chicago, like the synopsis said. Now, Swanberg also co-produces and he actually provided some fascinating behind-the-scenes insight as his character just wreaks havoc. What makes it so effective is that it's a relentless pace and tight focus, using subtle details to build an unnerving atmosphere. The film cleverly leverages Menez's character's language barrier and unfamiliarity with the city to amplify the sense of vulnerability, a decision that feels incredibly authentic thanks to Swanberg's input. Cinematography and sound design are key players here, with the tight shots that immerse you in the dread and heavy footsteps that make the invader feel monstrous. It's an assault on the senses that in the best way possible, leaving you anxious and uncomfortable. While the almost found footage style might be a slight hurdle for some, it's a deliberate choice that only enhances the terror. Invader is a masterclass in minimalist horror, earning an 8 out of 10 for its ability to get under your skin with such a simple yet terrifying premise. And then up next is going to be another 2024 film. It's actually getting its wide release here this year, so it's been covered not too long ago. But this is number 61 is going to be Dewey Shaw. This is... it doesn't have my directors here. Let me see if I can pull this up. It's going to be Nuha Shumayan, and this was written between them as well as Gultakan Khan, and this stars Alan Shubro, Mazurun Rahman Aryan, and Abdullah Al Sento. This is a horror thriller film that is from Bangladesh. This is currently sitting on a 7.7 on IMDb and a 3.5 on Letterboxd, with our synopsis being: college students take a shady job vandalizing a temple for cash, but their actions trigger a series of violent events that mysteriously sync with their daily Islamic prayer times, threatening their survival. So that's a little bit misleading. That's actually the very first story, but if you'd like to hear a mini review, episode 239, Voyage to the Fives, number 10, that featured Fear Street Prom Queen and Mystery of the Ghastly Face. So this one I got to check out thanks to Rain Dance Film Festival. So let me just kind of say here is that this is a captivating anthology film that's a brilliant first impression from our director. This is a 4-part feature, masterfully revives traditional South Asian folk tales, updating them to modern chilling twists. So the first one I was talking about was Prayer Time. Its practical effects and perceptive cinematography and chilling and hooked me instantly. The next is Good Luck, that follows a fortune teller who breaks sacred rules to save his mother, exploring fascinating ideas of self-fulfilling prophecies with strong visuals. Then we have Antara, that delves into a timid housewife's unraveling reality, questioning her husband's true nature through unsettling time loops and impactful dream sequences. The blend of religious angles and dark folklore is particularly effective here. And then finally is Bashira. Though slightly more whimsical, the charm of this tale of a tone-deaf girl in a village of singers, its delightful musical numbers and creative cinematography offer a unique, smile-inducing contrast. So across all segments, the acting is strong, exceptional cinematography, and often brutal practical effects shine. Dewey Shaw seamlessly weaves organized religion with folklore, creating a menacing and atmospheric experience that left a lasting impression. I give this one an 8 out of 10, a fantastic debut from a country that I'm eager to explore more cinematically. And coming in at position number 60 is going to be Oddity. This is, once again, 2024, written and directed by Damian McCarthy. This stars Carolyn Bracken, Gimli Lee, and Steve Wall. This is a supernatural horror thriller film that is from Ireland. Currently sitting on a 6.7 on IMDb and a 3.4 on Letterboxd, where synopsis being: a psychic medium attempts to uncover the truth behind her sister's murder at the site of the crime. So this one I actually originally got to see at the Gateway Film Center, then I got to see it when it hit Shudder, so I could do, a rewatch there. So this one I covered, my featured review is episode 247, which was Foray Through the Fours, number 16. I had this paired up with Curse of the Cat People. Then the other one is going to be episode 262, which was Italian Horror number 19, that had Murder Rock, Dancing Death, and Voices from Beyond, so that Fulci double feature. And this one here, I will say is this caught my eye because I like McCarthy's previous film of Caveat. So we have a masterful blend of haunted house, home invasion, and mystery all wrapped up in a package that oozes dread. So this one, Danny is our main character of Bracken. Now she has a twin sister of Darcy who also plays that's the blind medium. Darcy believes that the official story of her sister's death is a lie and uses her unique ability to touch objects and see the past, slowly uncovering the truth. This is a methodical unraveling of the mystery coupled with the gradual introduction of supernatural elements, is incredibly effective building tension without rushing. McCarthy's truly excels at crafting a creepy atmosphere, and Oddity delivers, showcasing some of the most effective jump scares that I've seen in a while. A rare feat for me to kind of jump like that. The eerie wooden statue that's carved by a witch adds a fascinating layer of lore, and the subtle nod to Caveat with the rabbit in Darcy's Museum of Cursed Items was a delightful touch. Lee's performance as Ted, a man of science who dismisses the supernatural, creates a compelling contrast with Dorothy's abilities. Every technical aspect, from the isolated setting and unnerving cinematography to the sound design and effects, contributes to the film's unsettling vibe. Bracken's dual performance as the twin sisters stands out. So this is a polished and progressive follow-up for McCarthy, showcasing his ability to truly build a terrifying atmospheric experience. Is a film that lingers long after the credits roll, earning once again an 8 out of 10 for me. And then position number 59 is going to be Soul Eater. This goes by the original title of Les Meilleurs Diams. Now this is once again from 2024. This is directed between Alexander Bastille and Julien Mari. Then it looks like it's written between Annalise Betrel, Ludovic Lefebvre, and Alexis Lepskier. And this stars Virginia Leodon, Paul Hamey, and Sandrine Bonnaire. So this is a supernatural, suspense, mystery, crime, horror thriller film that is from a co-production of France and Belgium. Currently sitting on a 5.8 on IMDb and a 2.9 on Letterboxd, where synopsis being: when violent and gruesome deaths start plaguing a small mountain village, an old legend about a malevolent creature resurfaces. So this one, if you'd like to hear a featured review, is going to be Nightmares Film Festival number 4, which was episode 259. I got to go see that over there. And this one here this kicked off Nightmares Film Festival. This was on my list before even knowing that it was going to be showing there. Has a chilling tone and expertly playing with your expectations. So we have some violent and gruesome deaths, and we have Inspector Franck de Roland, portrayed by Hemet, and a local officer of Elizabeth Guadagnino, portrayed by Leodon, are thrown into a horrifying mystery. As they investigate this malevolent creature, the Soul Eater resurfaces. What truly elevates this is its rich character depth. Both leads are deeply flawed, haunted by their past, which adds layers to their pursuit of the truth. The story brilliantly maintains ambiguity, while the titular monster, is it real or a manifestation of a child's tormented mind? The hidden secrets of the insular village, including a potential cult and a mysterious plane crash, lead to a terrifying and heartbreaking reveal. So this duo here, Bastille and Mari, known for their work on Inside, deliver on this filmmaking front. The isolated setting is a beautifully captured, aiding in the oppressive atmosphere, while the cinematography and framing build palpable suspense. The practical effects, though often seen in their brutal aftermath rather than directly, are incredibly effective. Leodon and Hamey anchor the film with strong, realistic performances, supported by a solid cast. So this is a well-crafted, intelligent thriller that constantly keeps you guessing. It's a film that dives into literal and figurative dark places, blending creature feature elements with a compelling human drama. I highly recommend checking this one out, as this one, once again, I give an 8 out of 10, and it left a lasting impression on me. And then spot number 58 is going to be Humane, one that I got to see a couple times here. This one, once again, 2024. It was directed by Caitlin Cronenberg. It was written by Michael Sparaga. Now, this stars Jay Burcherel, Emily Hampshire, and Peter Gallagher. So this is a political thriller horror film that is from Canada. Currently sitting on a 5.5 on IMDb and a 2.6 on Letterboxd, where synopsis being: in the wake of an environmental collapse that is forcing humanity to shed 20% of its population, a family dinner erupts into chaos when a father's plan to enlist in the government's new euthanasia program goes horribly awry. So this one, if you'd like to hear a featured review, is going to be episode 235, which was Foray Through the Forest number 5, that featured this and The Double Door. And then I also did a mini review on episode 249, which was Foray Through the Forest number 18, that featured The Mummy's Curse and Trap. So what I'll say here is that Caitlin Cronenberg, daughter of David and sister to Brandon, takes on a timely subject of overpopulation and environmental collapse in a world where governments mandate euthanasia to reduce the population. Burcherell, Hampshire, and Gallagher star as members of this wealthy family forced to confront their own mortality and expose their true, often ugly colors, with their father volunteering for euthanasia. Not to mention here that he's also volunteering his wife, who is Dawn Kim, portrayed by Uni Park, who might not necessarily be fully on board. There's also Noah York, who is Sebastian Casson, who it does not want to, who is a little bit better than some of the other ones. There's also Ashley, who is Alana Bale, and then Rachel has a daughter who is Mia York, portrayed by Serena Galamangas. What I'll say is this excels in building a subtle dystopian world that is grounded in reality still, delving into characters' despicable natures. Though the ending might be a bit restrained given the brutal realism displayed throughout, this is still an impactful film with strong performances that spark thought and conversation. So my rating here for this one, once again, 8 out of 10. Then coming in at number 57 is going to be The Purge: Anarchy from 2014. This is written and directed by James DeMonaco. This stars Frank Grillo, Carmen Njogo, and Zach Gilford. This is a dystopian sci-fi action horror thriller film that is from a co-production of France and the United States. Currently sitting on a 6.4 on IMDb and a 2.9 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being: 3 groups of people intertwine and are left stranded in the streets on Purge Night, trying to survive the violence and chaos that occurs. So this one here, I've seen this one I think a couple times now. So the first time, or the only time I've ever did anything on the podcast for it's going to be episode 10, which was New Year, New Movies #1, that featured The Grudge 2020 and Anguish. This was a mini review because I know Jamie and I had watched it. She had never seen any of these movies, and we watched this one together. So this one, I came in with trepidation after a lukewarm reception to the first film. However, this one delivers the experience that I desired from it while taking the actions, from a confined house to the chaotic streets on Purge Night. I praise this, film's enhanced tension. It's effective while not necessarily overwhelming political commentary on class disparity. There are some strong performances, especially from Grillo's portrayal of Sargent, and I appreciate that this film's well-paced narrative and mostly practical effects. There's some few minor CGI flaws. Ultimately, I find this to be compelling and a timely reflection on societal issues, even more so now as we slowly approach having a purge. So my rating is an 8 out of 10, and this is my favorite of the Purge films that I've seen so far, and it's still that way, having, watched them all, and, not necessarily rewatching all of them. Then spot number 56 is one that I've seen a lot of. I've seen it in the theater, I think, at least a couple times. This is Dawn of the Dead, the remake from 2004. This is directed by Zack Snyder, who was written by James Gunn. It was based on the original screenplay by George A. Romero, stars Sarah Polley, Ving Rhames, and Mekhi Phifer. This is a body horror, dark comedy, disaster, psychological drama, splatter, supernatural, survival, tragedy, zombie, action, film, all that good stuff in there. This is a co-production of the United States, Canada, Japan, and France. Currently sitting on a 7.2 on IMDb, 3.4 on Letterboxd, with our synopsis being: a nurse, a policeman, a married couple, and the other survivors of a worldwide plague that is producing aggressive flesh-eating zombies take refuge in a mega Midwestern shopping mall. This actually is going to be very odd because there's probably not going to be a lot of these around soon. But this one, like I said, I've seen it a handful of times. I last watched it for the Summer Challenge series, and this would have been episode 48, Journey Through the Odds number 21, that featured the Babysitter Killer Queen and the Telltale Heart from 1960. This was a mini review over there. And this one, initially, this was hyped, and I watched it numerous times. I've seen it throughout the years. This one, I have a more critical perspective, acknowledging my past naivety. While I appreciate the film isn't a shot-for-shot remake and incorporates new elements, this is a shift from the original social commentary to a more popcorn entertainment style. I think that Sarah Polley as Anna is good. The diverse cast of characters as a subtle touch on classism. I have a preference for slow-moving zombies over this one's fast-running undead, finding the latter to be more realistic. But this has some excellent practical effects, the makeup, a fitting soundtrack that includes a memorable song like Johnny Cash's When the Man Comes Around. The CGI hasn't aged well, and I dislike the noticeable filter often over Zack Snyder's work. Despite some flaws, this is still a good, fun popcorn movie that has its own spin on the classic story. It's not horrible by any stretch. So my rating then for the remake, Dawn of the Dead, going to be an 8 out of 10. And as we start to wind this section of the list down, it's going to be number 55, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein from 1994, directed by Kenneth Branagh. This is written between Steph Lady and Frank Darabont, and then this is from, of course, source material by Mary Shelley. This stars Robert De Niro, Branagh, and Helena Bonham Carter. This is a monster, drama, horror, romance, sci-fi film that is from a co-production of the United States, Japan, and the United Kingdom. Currently sitting on a 6.3 on IMDb and a 2.9 on Letterboxd, where a synopsis being, when the brilliant and orthodox scientist Dr. Victor Frankenstein rejects the artificial man that he has created, the creature escapes and later swears revenge. So Bronigan plays the doctor, and then we have the creature here being portrayed by Robert De Niro. And what I will say here is that if you'd like to hear a mini review, I've seen this one a good handful of times throughout the years, but if mini reviews on episode 247, Foray Through the Forest number 16 that featured The Curse of the Cat People and Oddity. But this one, I appreciate that it stays largely faithful to the novel, consolidating elements that the original Universal film split into two. So this one provides a compelling reason for Victor Frankenstein's obsession with conquering death, and even suggests that Victor himself is a true villain for playing God. So I think that the creature, as always, is a tragic figure shunned by society and seeking only love. There's some good exploration here of societal prejudice, while the use of electric eels is a convenient second creation. I find that the pacing here is pretty good for a 2-hour runtime, especially in the depiction of the dual lives of Victor and the creature. So the strong performance from De Niro, even though they kind of make him a little bit of a villain as this goes on, but I don't have major issues there. Bronigan and Carter are also really good here. De Niro's profound portrayal of the creature is actually something that's quite impressive. The effects, particularly the realistic and uniquely ugly design of the creature, are commendable. There are some minor plot holes. I consider this to be a very good adaptation, darker than previous versions, with some interesting gothic horror themes. Ultimately, I give this one an 8 out of 10. Then position number 54 is going to be Night Watch from 1994. This is written and directed by Oli Bordendahl. This stars Nicolas Coster-Waldau, Sophie Grabol, and Kim Bodina. Now, this is a psychological thriller that I think goes into horror with some of the stuff that we get in this film, but this is from Denmark, currently sitting on a 7.2 on IMDb, and a 3.4 on Letterboxd, where a synopsis being, a law student starts working as a night watchman at the Department of Forensic Medicine in Copenhagen. His mad friend gets him in a game of dare that escalates. As a serial killer's victims start piling up at work, he becomes a suspect. And I'll go ahead and say the main character here is Martin, portrayed by Coster-Waldau, and then his friend is portrayed by, I believe it's Jens here, portrayed by Kim Bonina. And this one, if you'd like to hear, I know I covered this when I was people counsel for the podcast Under the Stairs. I gave this a rewatch, though, officially for the podcast on episode 250, which was Traverse of the Threes, which did my same thing I'm doing here, top 100, honorable mentions, bottom 10. This was a mini review for that episode. And what I will say here is that, also, this has the original title of Natten Vakenten, something like that. I had trouble finding, but glad that I picked up a DVD of it. So I've seen it now twice, and this is intriguing in its premise. We have Martin, who takes a job, and then his friend kind of starts messing with him as they get pulled in this dangerous game, which there's a serial killer that's targeting prostitutes. Now, this has a Giallo-esque narrative where the ordinary person becomes involved in solving the case. Now, in this one, it's Martin descends into madness and becomes a prime suspect, which is compelling, but he also needs to clear himself. I think that Coster-Waldau has some strong acting, and it's actually kind of interesting because I'm used to him on Game of Thrones where he's more confident, but this is a younger version of, him because he was just younger when this came out. Bonina's destructive performance is also good. I love the effective morgue setting, the solid cinematography, and realistic portrayal of blood and bodily fluids. Despite a minor continuity error, I find this to be well made with a complex yet simple story, good subplots, and an effective soundtrack. This is an interesting neo-giallo in my opinion that I give an 8 out of 10. Then we have The Company of Wolves coming in at number 53. So this one here is 1984, directed by Neil Jordan. This is written between, there's a lot of people here. Let me make sure that I get everybody here properly done. And this is going to, the screenplay is done by Angela Carter and Jordan. Now the story of The Company of Wolves is done by Angela Carter. And then there's also quotes from Petit Chaperon Rouge that was done by Charles Perrault. So this one, though, is starring Sarah Patterson, Angela Lansbury, and David Warner. This is a body horror, dark comedy, dark fantasy, werewolf, drama, fantasy film that is from the United Kingdom. Currently sitting on a 6.6 on IMDb and a 3.5 on Letterboxd, where a synopsis being, a teenage girl in the country manor falls asleep while reading a magazine and has a disturbing dream involving wolves prowling the woods below her bedroom window. So that little girl is going to be Rosaline, portrayed by Patterson. So this one here I covered before the podcast, and then I did it again here on episode 240, which was Foray Through the Forest number 10, that featured In a Violent Nature and Bucket of Blood. So for this one here, I discovered this through the Horror Show Guide Encyclopedia that I'm working through. So There are some notes that suggest a little bit like Red Riding Hood. There's much more than that, delving into a complex, dreamlike narrative within a dream akin to like Inception. I think this explores themes like untrustworthy men, the wilderness or the wildness within, the transition from innocence to adulthood, all presented through allegorical folk tales that are told by the wise grandmother who is Lansbury. Now, there are some beautiful cinematography that creates a hazy, dreamlike atmosphere, and I appreciate the practical effects despite being mixed feelings about the werewolf transformations and the use of dogs instead of wolves. We have some strong acting performances. Patterson as Rosaline is good, as well as Lansbury as the grandmother. Though there's some slightly pacing that's off, the ending's a bit confusing. This is kind of like a neo-giallo film as well, and it's a unique take on werewolf lore blended with the fairy tale atmosphere with nightmare logic. So my rating here for this weird and wild movie is an 8 out of 10. And the penultimate movie for this section of the list is going to be Children of the Corn from 1984, the original. This one is directed by Fritz Kirsch. This was written by George Goldsmith and giving credit here to the short story by Stephen King. This stars Peter Horton, Linda Hamilton, and R.G. Armstrong. So this is a folk horror slasher thriller film that is from the United States. This is currently sitting on a 5.6 on IMDb and a 2.7 on Letterboxd, or a synopsis being. A young couple is trapped in a remote town where a dangerous religious cult of children believe that everybody over the age of 18 must be killed. So this one I've seen when I was growing up. I gave it a rewatch with a critical eye for episode 237, which was Fray Through the Forest number 7 that featured Infested and The Ghost Walks. So this one here, I want to like this more than I do. So I've also read the short story when I was in high school. So this is a terrifying premise of a religious cult of children who believe all adults over 18 must be killed, a concept that's even scarier after turning 18. So there's some unsettling nature here of the cult's leader, Isaac, portrayed by John Franklin, and his enforcer of Malachi, portrayed by Courtney Gaines, who are guided by the mysterious entity, He Who Walks Behind the Rose. Being like a subtle Lovecraftian elder god vibe, I think that this has an effective opening sequence, which depicts the massacre of the adults and the chilling atmosphere created by the desolate town and oppressive cornfields. So the pacing here is actually pretty good. It builds tension throughout, and I commend the solid performances from our young cast, especially Franklin's creepy portrayal of Isaac and Gaines' angry Malachi. I also think that Horton Hamilton's roles as the adult protagonist, they're hit or miss for me. There's some minor issues such as like quick cuts during death sequences and somewhat comical depiction of the entity's movements. I appreciate the practical effects, good cinematography, and fitting soundtrack. Ultimately, though, this is well made enough, still relevant with intriguing ideas about religion and society. I give this an 8 out of 10. It's still one of the better King adaptations, even though early on, I mean, it's not on the heights of like Carrie or like Salem's Lot, but still, I think is worth a viewing if you haven't for a while. And then the last movie here to end this section of the list is going to be Black Mountainside from 2014. This is written and directed by Nick Sazowakowski. I mispronounced your name. I do apologize, sir. But this is starring Shane Tordon, Michael Dixon, and Carl Toffelt. This is a drama, horror, mystery, sci-fi thriller film that is from Canada. Currently sitting on a 5.1 on IMDb and a 2.8 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being. As a cold, desolate, northmost outpost in Canada, an archaeological discovery is made. A specialist arrives November 1st. Strange things happen. All contact with the outside world is down. So this one, I did a featured review on episode 161, which was winter year-end number 14, that I had this paired up with The Leech. So this one here, I had heard some buzz before I finally got to watching it, and I like the premise here. It immediately draws parallels to things like The Thing and The Last Winter due to isolated all-male casts and themes of mistrust and potential infection. I love the desolate setting. It's enhancing the isolation and the cold. And also, the descent into madness is another thing that's good here. So what's intriguing is the historical mystery of the discovered structure that they find, where the markings resemble Mesoamerican civilizations despite its location and age. This leads to the film's brilliant blend of supernatural, Lovecraftian, cosmic horror with an indifferent entity claiming ancient origins, and a plausible, grounded explanation involving a frozen bacterium. I also appreciate that this allows for both interpretations. There's a believable cast singling out Turdom's Kurt Russell's type character and Dixon's expert outsider. There's also this effective cinematography, which enhances the isolation and the subtle practical effects and use of shadows. Despite a non-standout soundtrack, it effectively builds atmosphere. I think this is a solid, well-made movie with some good acting, compelling cosmic horror themes, and a chilling sense of isolation. And that's why for Black Mountainside, I give this an 8 out of 10. So that's all I have here then for this section. Let me go ahead and rest my voice, get you over to a break, and then I'll come back for 50 to number 26. And I have a great offer here that I wanted to go ahead and extend to all you listeners out there for oldglory.com. This is a place where you can get over 300,000 items for music, sports, entertainment, and pop culture fans, featuring officially licensed merch from iconic bands and top sports teams. Discover your perfect fan gear and save with my exclusive discount. And that is going to be Cinephile 1. But here you get a 15% discount off of any product, and this is exclusive for something that I'm doing and for what has been offered to me. And I mean, this has things like artists here: Bob Marley, the Beatles, Grateful Dead, the Rolling Stones, Metallica, and more. We also have sports fans have stuff here for your favorite teams with official gear from the NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, and NCAA, showcasing your team pride in style. And they even have some stuff here that celebrate, entertainment, TV shows, movies, lifestyle brands, and it means some quirky gifts to fan favorite apparel. There's something for everybody. With free standard shipping and same day order processing, Old Glory delivers fast and reliable service with every purchase. Whether shopping for yourself or looking for a perfect gift, Old Glory is your one-stop shop for iconic, high-quality merch that reflects your love for music and sports, as well as like pop culture. And I mean, kind of just running through some of this stuff. This is a family-owned superstore since 1969. They're known for their quality and customer service. You can get exclusive selection of graphic tees, hoodies, hats, and accessories. Represent your favorite sports team with official fan gear. Discover quirky gifts, like I was saying, and fun pop culture apparel. Perfect place to shop for, this type of stuff. And there's a vast selection of entertainment-themed products, including movies and TV shows if you're not necessarily into some of the other things. And enjoy reliable and fast service with Old Glory's commitment to customer satisfaction, the ultimate source for high-quality, licensed fan merchandise for all ages. Like I said, my promo code is going to be Cinephile1, all one word. So if you're kind of interested, go ahead and check out their website here in my show notes, as I'll have I actually have more details down there for you as well. And welcome back. So let's just jump right back into this and do number 50 here, which is going to be Saw from 2004. This was directed by James Wan, who co-wrote this with Lee Winnell. This stars Carrie Ellis, Winnell, and Danny Glover. This is a B-horror, body, psychological, splatter, whodunit, horror mystery thriller film that is from the United States. Currently sitting on a 7.6 on IMDb and a 3.7 on Letterboxd, where synopsis being: two men awaken to find themselves on opposite sides of a dead body, each with specific instructions to kill the other, escape, or face the consequences. These are the two latest contestants in Jigsaw's game. So the two contestants are actually going to be Ellis, who's Dr. Lawrence Gordon, and Winnell, who is Adam. And also give credit here that Jigsaw is being portrayed by Tobin Bell. I don't know why I was drawing a blank there for a second. So this one here, I've seen a good handful of times. I saw this one in theater when it originally came out, but I did a mini review on episode 4, which was Winter Year-End number 1, that had Dead Snow and Knife Plus Heart. This is one of the ones that I checked out over there. So this one, of course, is a classic. There we have Two Strangers, Deadly Game by Jigsaw. This is a gritty mystery, while occasionally being hampered by busy editing and a shaky camera, still holds up with compelling tension and a shocking reveal. So we have a low budget where it's still effective, masked by its unnerving and realistic traps. The iconic theme song perfectly complements the sinister atmosphere. Despite a few acting missteps, particularly from Ellis, the performances here generally just kind of escalate in horror, making this truly an iconic entry into 2000 cinema, so that's why I had to have it where I do now. So this one here, even after all the watch, I probably was closer to like a 10 out of 10 the first time I watched it, just because it blew me away. I have now settled on this one to about an 8 out of 10, just because it has diminishing returns, in my opinion, with multiple watches. Now, one that might have a little bit of recency bias is going to be coming in at number 49, which is Nosferatu from 2024. This is written and directed by Robert Eggers. We're also giving credit here to Heinrich Galeen, who did the original Nosferatu, and then Bram Stoker, who did the original novel of Dracula. This stars Lily Rose Depp, Nicholas Hoult, and Bill Skarsgård. This is a dark fantasy, supernatural, vampire, horror mystery film that is from the United States, currently sitting on a 7.2 on IMDb and a 3.7 on Letterboxd. The synopsis is a gothic tale of obsession between a haunted young woman and the terrifying vampire infatuated with her, causing untold horror in its wake. So this one I have only seen once. I got to see it in the theaters for episode 269. Nice. Which was my top horror films for 2024, where I did my top 100, honorable mentions, and bottom 10. I snuck this one in the theater before I did that list and everything like that. So this one, though, we have a Depp taking on Ellen Hutter, who is a haunted by a prophetic nightmares of her husband Thomas, portrayed by Holt, as he embarks on a fateful journey to Transylvania to meet Count Orlok, who's portrayed by Skarsgård. Eggers masterfully blends authentic period visuals with a narrative that emphasizes pestilence and ancient curses, over typical vampiric tropes, effectively using the spread of disease as a metaphor for the impending horror, which is definitely something pulled from the original. While Holt's performance is overshadowed by the strong ensemble, particularly Depp's haunting portrayal, the film's meticulous cinematography, practical effects, and atmospheric sound design create an immersive and unsettling experience. Though it might be a slight departure from Eggers' previous work, this is a compelling and visually arresting horror film that I still really enjoy, and I do need to give this one a rewatch. So my rating here for Nosferatu, though, is going to be an 8 out of 10. Then at number 48 is going to be another 2024 film of Lowlifes. I would prefer this one a little bit over that other one. But this is from, like I said, 2024. Directed between Tesh Guttakanda and Mitch Oliver. This was written by Al Kaplan, stars Amanda Fix, Matthew McCauley, and Brianna Llewellyn. So this is a slasher horror film that has an interesting little twist to it. This is from Canada. Currently sitting on a 6.2 on IMDb and a 3.2 on Letterboxd, where synopsis being: the survival instincts of a road-tripping family are put to the test when they have no other choice but to stay the night at a remote homestead. So for this one here, if you'd like to hear a featured review, episode 239, which was Foray Through the Forest number 9, that I just paired up with Chloe Love Is Calling You. Kind of interesting because we have dual things here where there are people that are in love and they kind of do different things for it. I did a secondary watch of this on episode 268, which is Winter Year on number 25, that featured Don't Open Till Christmas and Apartment 7A. So here, this is best experience without prior knowledge. This is a to-be-found gem that cleverly flips conventions by presenting a road-tripping family, initially appearing as a typical city outsiders who are kind of something here that I don't necessarily want to kind of delve into because it does go into spoilers that are almost slipped up, but this excels with playing with audience expectations, particularly through its nuanced characterizations and unexpected reveals. The country homestead family, despite their humble circumstances, are portrayed with genuine hospitality and surprising depth. So strong performances here from Fix as the daughter to the family who is driving around on vacation, everything Amy, and then there's Matthew McCall, who is outwardly respectable but internally an abusive father. Keith, drive the narrative. Llewellyn also shines as Savannah, a resourceful and talented young woman longing for a life beyond her rural home. Lowlifes is a well-crafted horror film that balances gore with a compelling story, making it a highly recommendable watch if you want to challenge your perceptions and linger along after the credits roll. So my rating here, once again, for Lowlifes is going to be an 8 out of 10. And then moving to number 47 is going to be Calvaire. This, I think this actually translates to The Ordeal, but this is from 2004. This is directed by Fabrice Duwels, who also wrote this with Romain Protet. This stars Laurent Lucas, Brigitte Leahy, and Gigi Corsigny. So this is a drama horror thriller film that is from a co-production of Belgium, France, and Luxembourg. This is sitting on a 6.1 on IMDb and a 3.1 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being: Mark, a traveling entertainer, is on his way home for Christmas when his van breaks down in the middle of a jerkwater town with some strange inhabitants. So this one here, that would be Mark, is portrayed by Lucas. And this one, if you'd like to hear a mini review, is going to be episode 55, which was Italian horror number 6 that featured Monstrum and Tale of Tales. So this is a disturbing and psychologically unsettling experience that, while not as graphic as many other French extreme contemporaries, leaves a lasting impression. We have this traveling entertainer of Mark breaking down in this remote place, finds himself trapped in a nightmarish ordeal orchestrated by the innkeeper Bartel, portrayed by Jackie Beroya, something like that, who is driven mad by the abandonment of his wife. The film clearly intertwines Bartel's descent into madness and depraved activities of the isolated locals, creating a truly unsettling atmosphere. Lucas's performance as his tormented Mark is compelling, while Boyer and Jean-Luc Cochard effectively convey the unsettling nature of the townspeople. We also have Philippe Nehan, who shines as the villainous Robert. Calvaire relies more on psychological torment than overt gore, with practical effects and solid cinematography enhancing the dread. Though the soundtrack is sparse, the film's haunting piano melody contributes to its overall unsettling tone. This is a well-acted, subtle, brutal film that is good watch for those seeking a deeply disturbing psychological horror film that I give, once again, an 8 out of 10 to. And then spot number 46 here is going to be Marabito from 2004, directed by Takashi Mishitsu. This is written by Chaika Konaka. This stars Shinya Tsukamoto, Tomoyo Miyashita, and Kazuhiro Nakahara. This is a body horror, drama, fantasy, mystery film that is from Japan, and this is currently sitting on a 6.0 on IMDb and a 3.3 on Letterboxd, where synopsis being: a fear-obsessed freelance cameraman investigates an urban legend following a mysterious spirits that haunt the subways of Tokyo. So this one I got to see for the Podcast Under the Stairs Summer Challenge series. So that character here is, the cameraman is Masuyoka, portrayed by Tsukamoto. And this one here, though, if you'd like to hear a mini review, is going to be episode 56, which is Italian horror number 7 that featured The Visitor and Sputnik. This was a mini review over there, like I was saying. And this one, Remarkably Shot in 8 Days is a captivating, unsettling descent into madness, blending found footage with compelling psychological mystery. This follows, like I said, Mosuka, a fear-obsessed freelance cameraman and unreliable narrator who, after witnessing a bizarre suicide, delves into the subterranean tunnels of Tokyo in search of a deeper meaning. His journey uncovers a chained woman who is portrayed by Miyashita, whom he brings home, leading to increasingly bizarre and disturbing revelations. This masterfully builds on themes of urban legends, the Hollow Earth theory and Lovecraftian dread, hinting at ancient civilization and elder gods beneath the city. Tsukamoto delivers a strong performance as Masayuki's mental state deteriorates, while Miyashita impressively portrays the animalistic character just known as F. The grainy cinematography, particularly in the found footage segments, enhance the realistic creepiness, and the creature design of the Daros is effectively chilling. Marabito is a well-crafted and haunting film that hooks you early, keeps you engaged as the pieces of its nightmarish puzzle pieces fall into place. This is one I need to definitely give a revisit to at some point. So my rating here, once again, 8 out of 10. And starting off my top 45 here is going to be A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night from 2014. This is written and directed by Anna Lily Amirpour. This stars Shayla Vand, Arash Marandi, and Marshall Manesh. This is a dark romance, vampire, drama, horror, romance thriller film that is from the United States, currently sitting on a 6.9 on IMDb. Nice. And a 3.8 on Letterboxd, where it's synopsis being. In an Iranian ghost town, Bad City, a place that reeks of death and loneliness, townspeople are unaware that they're being stalked by a lonesome vampire. So that character there that they're talking about is actually portrayed by Vand. And this one here, I've seen a couple times now. I believe I got to see this one in the theater at one point. But this one, I did a mini review on episode 98, which was Odyssey Through the Ones number 24, that featured the son of Dr. Jekyll and Dynamic. But this one here is an intriguing, artful, black and white vampire film that is character-driven, slow burn, follows a lonesome vampire who stalks a town, intertwining with the lives of the inhabitants, including the hardworking Arash, portrayed by Marandi, as well as his junkie father. This masterfully uses allegories and subtext, exploring themes of predators and the harsh realities of life, as highlighted by the bleak, oil well-dotted landscape. Vaughn delivers a compelling performance, bringing a human element to her vampire character, while Morandi's portrayal of Arash is a cautionary tale that is particularly resonant. With its beautiful cinematography, effective practical effects, a surreal score, this Persian-language film, shot in the U.S., though, offers a unique and visually striking experience, even if the story is a slow burn. And this one, I give, once again, an 8 out of 10 to. And coming in at number 44 is going to actually be a comedy. You wouldn't expect it to be this high, but What We Do in the Shadows from 2014. This is co-written and co-directed between Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi. They both star in this with Corey Gonzalez-Moquer. This is a dark comedy, mockumentary, satire, supernatural, vampire, comedy horror film that is from a co-production of New Zealand and the United States. Currently sitting on a 7.6 on IMDb and a 4.1 on Letterboxd, or snobs being. Vigo, Deacon, and Vladislav are vampires who are struggling with mundane aspects of modern life, like paying rent, keeping up with chore wheel, trying to get into nightclubs, and overcoming flatmate conflicts. So I'll go ahead and just kind of say here that Clement is Vladislav, Viego is portrayed by Waititi, and then Nick is Gonzalez-Moquer. And these are all different types of vampires. That's what I love about this. So if you'd like to hear a mini review, it's going to be episode 96, which was Odyssey Through the Ones number 22 that featured Bride of the Gorilla and Jacob's Wife. Bride double feature. So this is a hilarious and clever take on vampire lore, following a group of ancient vampires struggling with mundane realities of modern life. So each embody different vampire archetypes, like I said, from literature and film, bicker over rent, chores, nightclubs, while preparing for the unholy masquerade. This brilliantly plays on vampire tropes with the awkwardness of immortal beings navigating human society to their humorous interactions with werewolves and other creatures of the night. Strong performances from Clement, Waititi, Johnny Berg, and the rest of the cast bring kind of quirky characters to life, making their daily squabbles and attempts to fit in genuinely funny. The found footage style enhances the realism, cleverly hiding any budgetary limitations, and the impressive vampire designs and practical effects are a testament to the filmmaker's attention to detail. This is a must-see for vampire fans. I know there's even a TV show that I haven't got around to seeing yet, but if you're looking for a unique and laugh-out-loud horror comedy, I highly recommend this one here for you. Once again, 8 out of 10 for this one as well. Then coming in at position number 43 is going to be Goodnight Mommy, which goes by the original title of Ixen, which I think is IC. So this is co-written and directed between Severin Flavia and Veronica Franz. This stars Lucas Schwarz, Elias Schwarz, and Susanna Huist. So this is a body horror, psychological tragedy, mystery thriller film that is from Austria. Currently sitting on a 6.7 on IMDb. And a 3.4 on Letterboxd, where synopsis being twin boys move into a new house with their mother after she has a face-changing cosmetic surgery, but under the bandages is somebody the boys don't recognize. So this one here, I did a mini review on episode number 17, which was Centennial Club number 1, that featured the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and The Lodge. Then gave us a rewatch. I think that first time was at the Gateway Film Center. I think Jamie went and saw it when we were, dating. And then, because she had seen this before I did, actually, for the first time. And then there's also on episode 98, which was Odyssey of the Ones number 24, that was Son of Dr. Jekyll and Dynamic, where I did a mini review of this film over there. I think that might have been for the Summer Challenge series. So this is a deeply unsettling and psychologically complex horror film that clearly blurs the lines between reality and perception. Twin brothers Lucas and Elias return home after their mother undergoes cosmetic surgery only to find a bandaged, unfamiliar woman who acts strangely, leading them to suspect she's an imposter. The film, reportedly made without a full script, is masterfully shot with the boys' perspective, making the audience question whether their increasingly drastic actions are justified or their mother is truly a stranger. While the pacing occasionally falters, the strong performances, especially from the young twins and West, was an enigmatic mother, effectively conveying the escalating tension and dread. Practical effects are brutally realistic, creating cringe-inducing moments with a sparse atmospheric soundtrack, enhances the pervasive unease. This is a compelling descent into mistrust and madness, offering a haunting experience that will linger with viewers. Once again, 8 out of 10 for this movie as well. A lot of these. And then position number 42 is going to be Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter, directed by Joseph Zito. This, see everybody getting writing credits here, is going to include, based upon the characters created by Victor Miller, Ron Kurtz, Martin Kitrosser, and Carol Watson. The screenplay was done by Barney Cohen, and then there's Bruce Hidemi. Sacco was did the story, and Sean S. Cunningham also is uncredited for coming up with the characters. So then this one is starring Eric Anderson, Judy Aronson, and Peter Barton. This is a dark comedy, slasher, splatter, survival, teen, horror, thriller film that is from the United States. Currently sitting on a 6.0 on IMDb and a 3.1 on Letterboxd, where Snobs being. After being announced dead and taken to the morgue, Jason Voorhees spontaneously revives, escapes from the hospital, and stalks a group of friends renting a house in the countryside near Crystal Lake. So this one here, I should go ahead and say Jason is being portrayed by Ted White. And this one here, though, if you'd like to hear a mini review, I have this on episode 6, which is Winter Urine number 3, that featured Pontypool and a Nasty Piece of Work, and then covered it pretty much a couple years later here on episode 117, which was Centennial Club number 12, that featured the Stone Rider and the Outwaters. I'm thinking the first time would have been, it was the next one in line that I hadn't reviewed before, and then this time around it would have been as I was working through the box set and going to the next one in line that I hadn't watched there. So what I will say is that this picks up where the previous one ended. So Jason Voorhees, actually in this one I have down as Ted White and Tom Savini, is taken to the morgue where he is mortally wounded, but he revives and goes about another killing spree, making his way back to Camp Crystal Lake. This one introduces us to the Jarvis family, including Tommy, who is Corey Feldman, and a group of 6 friends staying for the weekend. As Jason picks them off one by one, the film builds tension, and the practical effects by Savini are a highlight. Despite some minor flaws and continuity questions, I have some nostalgic fondness to this one. I used to watch it all the time, and we have some distinct characters, the pacing, and solid soundtrack, and it's one of the best entries for me in the series, and I think a lot of slasher fans would agree with me here. So that's why I give Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter, an 8 out of 10. Then number 41 is going to be Dead of Night, a.k.a. Death Dream, from 1974. This is directed by Bob Clark, written by Alan Ormsby. This stars John Marley, Lynn Carlin, and Richard Backus. This is a B-horror drama thriller film that is from a co-production of the United Kingdom and Canada. Currently sitting on a 6.6 on IMDb and a 3.5 on Letterboxd, or Snobs being. A young soldier killed in Vietnam inexplicably shows back up to his family home on the night of his death. So this one here, this I didn't know anything about until getting to horror movie podcasts. I watched this before doing the podcast, and I gave it a rewatch for episode 228, which was St. Patrick's Day number 5. That was Leprechaun 6, Back to the Hood, and Imaginary were the featured reviews. This was a mini one over there. And this is a unique horror film from director Bob Clark. This centers on Andy Brooks, portrayed by Backus, a soldier killed in Vietnam who mysteriously returns home. His family, particularly his mother Christine, portrayed by Carlin, struggles to cope with the unsettling presence as a series of murders begin. This excels as a character study, exploring themes of PTSD, grief, and parental unconditional love, and surprisingly relevant social commentary. While the acting has an amateur charm, Marley delivers a strong performance. Early special effects from Tom Savini are a highlight, and the atmospheric synth soundtrack is something that I love. Despite some minor ambiguities, this is an 8 out of 10 recommendation for fans of Clark, 70s horror, and character-driven stories, and yeah, that's where I come in with this one. So a fun film is going to kick off the 40s here, or end the 40s I should say, and that's Phantom of the Paradise from 1974. This is directed by Brian De Palma, who also wrote this with Louisa Rose. This stars Paul Williams, William Finley, and Jessica Harper. This is a dark comedy, drama, fantasy, horror, music, romance, thriller film that is from the United States. Currently sitting on a 7.3 on IMDb. And a 4.1 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being, a disfigured composer sells his soul for the woman he loves so that she can perform his music. However, an evil record tycoon betrays him and steals his music to open his rock palace, the Paradise. So this one's an interesting one because technically I've never covered it on the podcast officially. I did do this during the podcasting days that I've been doing for the podcast Under the Stairs. This was, I think, a retrospective looking at De Palma. So this is a unique rock opera that satirizes the cutthroat music industry. This follows Winslow, portrayed by Finley, a disfigured composer who sells his soul to see his music performed by the woman he loves, who is Phoenix, portrayed by the lovely, lovely Jessica Harper. However, evil record tycoon Swan, portrayed by Williams, betrays him, stealing his music for the new rock palace, the Paradise. The film is a creative blend of Phantom of the Opera, Faust, and the Portrait of Dorian Gray, with themes of corruption, ambition, and the show must go on mentality. While the pacing can feel rushed in the first act, the performances are solid, particularly from Finley and Williams. This also boasts De Palma's signature split-screen techniques and a fitting soundtrack. And I haven't even brought up here that we also have some other secondary people here, and I'm probably not going to go through everybody. I know Garrett Graham is in this one. He's a fun just guy who is just wild. So this one is an odd yet insightful take on a classic story. I give this one an 8 out of 10 and would recommend it if some of the things I said interest you for sure. Then at position number 39 is going to be a very similar thing, as I covered this for Duncan's Where to Begin with Giallo series, and that is going to be 1974 Spasmo. This is directed by Umberto Lenzi, this classic director here. Now, let me go ahead and just make sure I get this correct. So the story was done by Pino Boller, and then the screenplay was done by Massimo Franciosa, Lucia Montagnana, Boller, and then Lenzi. And then this one is starring Robert Hoffman, Susie Kendall, and Ivan Rassimov. This is a giallo, psychological thriller, horror mystery film that is from Italy. Currently sitting on a 6.0 on IMDb and a 3.1 on Letterboxd, with the synopsis being, young couple interrupted during intimacy by disturbing discovery of a mutilated mannequin at a beach ruins. Mysterious man flees before being questioned, leaving couple unsettled with the night's events unresolved. That is not a great synopsis because that is not written, I believe, somebody who speaks English originally. So this one, though, directed by Lenzi, a giallo that plunges Christian, portrayed by Hoffman, and Barbara, portrayed by Kendall, into a bewildering spiral of murder and uncertainty after a chance encounter on a deserted beach. The film, a departure from traditional giallo tropes with its off-screen deaths and lack of black glove killer, expertly weaves a psychological mystery that keeps the viewer guessing whether events are real or merely in Christian's mind. Hoffman and Kendall deliver solid performances. The film's unique use of sex dolls adds an intriguing layer. While I found this mystery captivating early on, a reveal late felt like a cheat, and minimal effects were a slight letdown. However, Ennio Morricone scores a standout, elevated his intriguing and unconventional entry into the genre that I give, once again, an 8 out of 10 to. And coming in at number 38 is going to be At Midnight, I'll Take Your Soul. This is from 1964. This is directed by Jose Mojica Marins, as well as he wrote this with Magda May. He stars in this with her, and then this also has Novaldo Lima. This is a supernatural horror film that is from Brazil, currently sitting on a 6.9 on IMDb. Nice. And 3.6 on Letterboxd, or a synopsis being, a grave digger prowls the city in search of a female to bear him a son. So this one here is one that I covered back on episode 179, which was Traverse of the Threes number 2. Had this as a mini review, which had Murders in the Zoo and Malum were the two featured ones. This is, like I said, mini over there. And this one introduces us to the iconic Brazilian horror villain Coffin Joe, portrayed by Marins. As a local undertaker, Coffin Joe is a ruthless, blasphemous fiend who will stop at nothing to get what he wants, including a son. The film follows his reign of terror over a terrified town where no one dares to stand up to him, leading to shocking acts of violence. Marin's performance as the villainous Coffin Joe is a standout, and the film is surprisingly brutal for its time, featuring impressive practical effects despite a limited budget, with a good supporting cast, an atmospheric soundtrack, and a fitting supernatural comeuppance for its villain. This unique and often unseen Brazilian horror classic is highly recommended, especially for those who appreciate foreign, black and white subtitle films from the 1960s. So that's why I give this one here, once again, an 8 out of 10. And coming at number 37 is going to be Wolf from 1994. This is directed by Mike Nichols. This is written by Jim Harrison and Wesley Strick. This is starring Jack Nicholson, Michelle Pfeiffer, and James Spader. This is a dark romance, werewolf, drama, horror, romance, thriller film that is from the United States. Currently sitting on a 6.3 on IMDb and a 3.0 on Letterboxd, where a synopsis being. Publisher Will Randall becomes a demon wolf and has to fight to keep his job. So Will is portrayed by Nicholson, of course. And this one I watched before doing the podcast and then gave it a rewatch on episode 248, which was Foray through the Forest number 17 that featured The Last Breath and The Mummy's Ghost. This is a mini review over there. And this one is an intriguing take on the werewolf mythos. It follows Will Randall, a timid publishing editor who, after being bitten by a wolf, undergoes a transformation that not only enhances his senses but makes him ruthless in his professional and personal life. As Will grapples with his new animalistic nature, he forms a captivating, dramatic relationship with Laura, portrayed by Pfeiffer, the daughter of his new boss, and clashes with a slimy protege, Stuart Swinton, portrayed by Spader. This cleverly explores themes of power, ambition, and transformation with solid performances from the main trio, particularly Nicholson's nuanced portrayal. While Rick Baker's practical effects are subtle and Ennio Morricone's score sets an atmospheric tone, I appreciate the grounded approach to the werewolf lore, making a solid and rewatchable entry for fans of this genre. So my rating here for Wolf, 8 out of 10 as well. So then coming at number 36 here is going to be The Taking of Deborah Logan. This is from 2014. This is directed by Adam Robitaille, something like that, who also co-wrote this with Gavin Heffernan. This stars Jill Larson, Anne Ramsey, and Michelle Ang. This is a B-horror, body, found footage, mystery thriller film that is from the United States. Currently sitting on a 6.0 on IMDb and a 3.0 on Letterboxd, where it's synopsis being an elderly woman battling Alzheimer's disease agrees to let a film crew document her condition, but what they discover is far more sinister going on. So this one was a mini review on episode 82, which was Odyssey Through the Ones number 9 that featured King of the Zombies and Army of the Dead. So this was a mini review over there, and what I will say is that this is skillfully blends the tragic realities of Alzheimer's with chilling supernatural occurrences. A film crew led by Mia Medina, who's Ang, sets out to document the effects of Alzheimer's on Deborah Logan, who is Larson, and her daughter Sarah, who's Ramsey. What begins as a medical documentary soon unravels into something far more sinister as bizarre events hint at demonic possession. Larson delivers a phenomenal performance as Deborah, subtly transitioning from an independent woman to a deeply disturbing figure. The film effectively uses practical effects, building unease through subtle scares before descending into a wild, terrifying climax. While I found the digital distortion of the footage a minor detractor, this unique premise, strong acting, and effective sound design make it highly recommendable watch, especially for found footage fans. And that's why I give The Taking of Deborah Logan only after one viewing an 8 out of 10. And then coming into my 35th position is going to be New Nightmare. This is from 1994, directed and written by Wes Craven, stars Heather Langenkamp, Robert Englund, and G.F. Davis. This is a dark fantasy, psychological, slasher, supernatural, fantasy, horror, mystery, thriller film that is from the United States. This is currently sitting on a 6.4 on IMDb and a 3.3 on Letterboxd, with our synopsis being a dynamic force has chosen Freddy Krueger as its portal into the real world. Can Heather Langenkamp play the part of Nancy one last time and trap the evil trying to enter our world? So in this one, Langenkamp and Englund are playing themselves, and then we also have Heather playing we also have Englund playing like this dark version of Freddy. So if I give you a mini review, I've seen this a handful of times. I remember getting this when I was a kid, but that was episode 246, Foray Through the Forest 15, featured Dead Man's Eyes and Long Legs. This was a mini review over there. And this is a meta-horror masterpiece that is ahead of its time. This is a unique entry into the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, sees a dynamic entity choose Freddy Krueger as its portal, and forcing Langenkamp, to reprise as Nancy. The film brilliantly blurs the lines between reality and fiction, drawing parallels to the original film while making Freddy dark and terrifying again. Craven's writing is superb, incorporating elements of Langenkamp's real-life stalker and commenting on the horror genre impact. With strong performances from Langenkamp and Englund, effective practical effects, and a haunting atmosphere, this is a powerful and intelligent reimagining of the franchise, highly recommended for fans of meta horror. I know some people don't actually care for this one as much, but I do. I give this one an 8 out of 10. Then at number 34, we have Immaculate from 2024. This one is directed by Michael Moen. This is written by Andrew Lobel. This stars somebody I have a big crush on, and it's kind of bummer to some of the things I've been hearing recently, but Sydney Sweeney. This also has Alvaro Morte and Simona Tabasco. This is a body horror, supernatural thriller film that is from the United States. Currently sitting on a 5.8 on IMDb and a 2.9 on Letterboxd, where a synopsis being: Cecilia, a woman of devout faith, is warmly welcomed to the picture-perfect Italian countryside where she is offered a new role in a illustrious convent. But it becomes clear to Cecilia that her new home harbors dark and horrifying secrets. So that is Sweeney. That's who she plays in this one. So this one did a featured review on episode 229, which was Centennial Club number 15. Had this paired up with Dante's Inferno from 1924, which made for an interesting little religious double feature there. And then also did a mini review on episode 248, which was Foray Through the Fours number 17, that featured The Last Breath and Mummy's Ghost. So this one, a religious horror film that expertly blends themes of faith, science, and bodily autonomy. Sweeney stars as Sister Cecilia, a devout American nun who travels to an Italian convent, only to discover she's mysteriously pregnant despite being a virgin. The film, reminiscent of Suspiria in its setting and Rosemary's Baby in its premise, delves into the unsettling mystery of Cecilia's immaculate conception, hitting at a darker, more scientific explanation. Sweeney delivers a strong performance, portraying Cecilia's emotional journey from faith to horror as she uncovers the convent's sinister secrets. I give it praise for its atmospheric, isolated setting, good cinematography, effective practical effects, and the chilling soundtrack that includes notable Bruno Nicolai theme with subtle yet impactful social commentary on pro-life versus pro-choice. Immaculate is a well-crafted and disturbing horror film that surprised me with its brutal ending. I actually kind of cooled a little bit on it from the first time that I saw it. I still really enjoy it, and I give it an 8 out of 10. Then at number 33, I have the American remake here of The Grudge from 2004. This is directed by Takashi Shimizu, who also co-wrote this with Steven Susko. This stars Sarah Michelle Gellar, Jason Beer, and Clea Duvall. This is a psychological, supernatural horror mystery thriller film that is from the United States and Japan. Currently sitting on a 5.9 on IMDb and a 2.8 on Letterboxd, where synopsis being: an American nurse living and working in Tokyo is exposed to a mysterious supernatural curse, one that locks a person in a powerful rage before claiming their life and spreading to another victim. So this one, I remember when it first came out. I watched it then, gave it another rewatch here on episode 63, which was New Year movie number 5 that featured Hunted and Cruising. This is a mini review over there, I'm guessing, to rewatch for the Summer Challenge series, something along that line. So this one is the American remake of his J-horror classic of Shimizu that manages to deliver a chilling supernatural thrills. Set in Tokyo, this follows Karen, portrayed by Gellar, an American nurse that becomes entangled in this deadly curse, emanating from a house haunted by the vengeful spirits of Kayako, portrayed by Takako Fuji, and Toshio, portrayed by Yuya Ozeki. Now, the non-linear storytelling effectively creates a sense of disorientation and dread as the curse spreads, consuming all who encounter it. Gellar delivers a strong performance as the fish out of water, and the inclusion of the original Japanese actors for the vengeful spirits add authenticity. While the film has benefited from a bit more explanation of the Ju-on mythology for American audiences, it excels with good, practical, and surprising effective CGI, unsettling sound design, and a creepy atmosphere. It's a solid, slightly flawed entry into the supernatural horror genre that really kind of helped with taking off, the J-horror stuff here in the United States. So my rating here then for The Grudge, 8 out of 10. And coming in at number 32 is going to be Shudder from 2004. This is directed between Bangjong Pishanahana-kun and Park Poom Wongpoom. Then they also helped write this with Stefan Sagapisit. This stars Anand Everham, Nada Wernak Thongmi, and Achita Sikamana. And if I mispronounce any of those names, I do apologize. This is a supernatural horror mystery thriller film that is from Thailand. Currently sitting on a 7.0 on IMDb and a 3.4 on Letterboxd, or a synopsis being: when Jane and Tun run over a girl in a car accident, they speed away immediately from the crime scene. However, Tun, a photographer, soon discovers strange shadows in his photos, which unsettles them. Should go ahead and say that Everham is Tun and then Jane is Tongmi. Now, this one I did a mini review on episode 54, which was Italian horror number 5 that featured Troll 2 and Metamorphosis. So this one was a mini review, like I said. And this one is a chilling supernatural tale centered on a young photographer, Tun, and his girlfriend Jane. After a tragic hit-and-run accident, mysterious shadows begin to appear in the photographs, hinting at a vengeful spirit and a dark past that refuses to stay buried. This excels in its use of spirit photography as a conduit for the haunting, a clever take on technological horror trend popular in Asian cinema at the time. While I was already aware of the big reveal, the subtle haunting element, strong performances from Everham and especially Thongmi as the true hero, effective practical effects create a creepy atmosphere despite being a later entry into the Asian horror wave and feeling a bit slower to me. So Shudder is a well-acted and intriguing ghost story that delivers a satisfying sense of justice that I give an 8 out of 10 to. And then coming in at my 31st position is going to be Cemetery Man from 1994. It goes by the original title of De la Morte de l'Amor. This is directed by MKHEXE. Now, this is written between Tazinio Scalavi and Gianni Romoli. This stars Rupert Everett, Francois Hagid Lazaro, and Anna Falchi. This is a body horror, dark comedy, parody, zombie comedy film that is from a co-production of Italy, France, and Germany. Currently sitting on a 7.0 on IMDb and a 3.7 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being, a cemetery man must kill the dead a second time once they become zombies. So this one here, if you'd like to hear a review, I know I've covered this one semi-recently. I'm just trying to see if I can pull this up really quickly while I am stalling for time, if you couldn't tell. That would be episode 218, which was New Year, New Movie number 15, that featured the Wormwood double feature of Road of the Dead and Apocalypse. This was a mini review over there, so I did a decent amount of zombie stuff for that one. So this is a surreal Italian zombie film from Foray that demands a rewatch. While its plot can be inconsistent and confusing at times, it takes a unique take on the undead. Strong performances, especially from Everett, impressive practical effects, and an eerie cinematography and soundtrack make it worthwhile experience for fans of bizarre horror in Italian cinema. Don't go expecting a straightforward narrative, but expect a memorable and unsettling journey. So that's why, for me, I have at this time settled on Cemetery Man being an 8 out of 10. And then number 30 is going to be The Uninvited from 1944. This is directed by Lewis Allen. Now, this is from Dodie Smith, Frank Partos, and Dorothy McCardley. That would be the writers. And then the stars Ray Milland, Ruth Hussey, and Donald Crisp. This is a fantasy horror mystery romance film that is from the United States. Currently sitting on a 7.2 on IMDb and a 3.5 on Letterboxd, where synopsis being, a composer and his sister discover that the reason they're able to purchase a beautiful gothic seacoast mansion very cheaply is the house has an unsavory past. So this one here, the siblings are going to be Roderick, portrayed by Milland, and his sister is Pamela, portrayed by Hussey. And then there is, where is she? I believe Stella is the one that Roderick ends up falling for. Stella Meredith, portrayed by Gail Russell. So this one here, if you'd like to hear a featured review, is going to be episode 251, which was Phrase of the Forest number 19, that featured this and Cuckoo as the two featured reviews there. So this is an early haunted house gem that delivers a neo-gothic romantic mystery. While a slow burn, its intriguing plot, strong performances from Milland and Russell, and atmospheric cinematography create a chilling experience. This film is notable for its ahead-of-its-time themes and early introduction of classic haunted house tropes. So this is one that if you're a fan of classic horror or just kind of the beginnings of the haunted house genre, I would recommend this one. So that's why I give The Uninvited from 1944 a 8 out of 10. And as we start to wind down this section of the list, I have up next at number 29 is going to be The Black Cat from 1934. This is directed by Edgar G. Ulmer. This is based from the story by Edgar Allan Poe. It's kind of inspired. Doesn't really necessarily follow what that one does, but this is also, the screenplay is done by Peter Rurik, and then we have Ulmer and Rurik did the story, and then there's a contributing writer that's uncredited here of Tom Kilpatrick. So this stars Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi, and David Manners. This is a witch, crime, horror, romance show. I think that first one's a little bit misleading, but I digress. We do have a group of Satanists in this one, though. This is from the United States, currently sitting on a 6.9 on IMDb. Nice. And a 3.5 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being, stranded honeymooners follow a mad doctor to a manor. So this one here, I've covered this one, or I've watched this one a few times. I last covered this on episode 218, New Year, New Movie number 15, the Wormwood double feature. This was also one of the mini reviews over there. I've actually also covered this one as of recording this. That episode isn't out yet, but that would be over on Cinema 100, where I joined my buddies Robert and Will to talk about this. So this is historically significant as a pre-code horror film, marking the first on-screen pairing of Karloff and Lugosi. While loosely inspired by Poe's short story, the Universal horror classic offers a chilling atmosphere, especially for its time. With a satanic cult and themes of wartime atrocities, Karloff and Lugosi command the screen with exceptional performances. Though this pushes the nominal heroes to the background, it's a must-see for fans of classic horror and this legendary duo. So for this one here, The Black Cat, I once again give this an 8 out of 10. Then in position number 28, I have Waxworks. This is the one from 1924. It goes by the original title of Das Wachtens-Figuren-Kabinett. This is directed between Leo Bierski and Paul Lenny. This is written by Heinrich Galeen. This is starring Emil Jannings, Konrad Viet, and Werner Kross. This is a fantasy horror film that is from Germany, currently sitting on a 6.6 on IMDb and a 3.3 on Letterboxd, with our synopsis being, a wax museum hires a writer to give the sculpture stories. The writer imagines himself and the museum's owner's daughter into these tales. So I'll go ahead and say that the guy who we're actually following is portrayed by William Dieterle, and then the young woman that he is seeing himself with is Olga Belahev, and she is portraying like a multitude of different characters, but that is the actress that portrays her. So I did a feature review of this on episode 227, which was Centennial Club number 14, had this paired up with Here for Blood. And for this one here, this is a fascinating early horror anthology from Germany showcasing the talents of Jannings, Viet, and Kraus. Now, this German expressionist gem features a poet hired to write the stories, and these are for historical villains like Harun al-Rashid, who is portrayed by Jannings. There's Ivan the Terrible, who's portrayed by Viet, and then Jack the Ripper, who is being portrayed by Kraus. And this one they call him like Spring Hill Jack is the name they use. So it has surreal sets, effective makeup, and impressive performances, making it a must-see for fans of silent film, horror history, and a unique visual style of German expressionism, because we do get quite a bit of that here. So this one here is actually my first bump up in rating, as I give Waxworks an 8.5 out of 10. And the penultimate movie for this one, going to be at number 27, is going to be Silent Night, Deadly Night. This is from 1984. Directed by Charles E. Sellier Jr. This is written by Paul Kamey and Michael Hickey. This is starring Lillian Chauvin, Gilmer McCormick, and Tony Nero. And I'm also going to give credit here to Robert Brian Wilson, who plays Billy. So this one here is a B-horror slasher holiday thriller film that is from the United States. Currently sitting on a 5.8 on IMDb and a 3.0 on Letterboxd, where it snaps being Little Billy witnesses his parents getting killed by Santa after being warned by his senile grandfather that Santa punishes those who are naughty. Now Billy is 18 and out of the orphanage, and he has just become Santa himself. So this one I had watched before doing the podcast, and then I did a mini review on episode 268, which was Winter Year End number 25, that featured Don't Open Till Christmas and Apartment 7A. I gave this one a rewatch for a mini review, and this is a controversial yet compelling holiday slasher that's more than just a killer Santa flick. It delves into the trauma of young Billy, whose parents are murdered by Santa, leading to years of abuse in an orphanage that shapes him into the vengeful killer that he is. Wilson delivers a strong performance as adult Billy, and Chauvin is chilling as a sadistic Mother Superior, who I put on there as being almost as much of a villain too. With impressive practical effects, creative kills, and a surprisingly bleak tone, this stands out for being mean-spirited as is, an entry into the slasher subgenre that I rather enjoyed. It is sleazy, I should also say that. So this one here, I once again give an 8.5 out of 10. And then the last review here for this little stretch is going to be at number 26, I Saw the TV Glow from 2024. This is directed and written by Jane Schonenbrunn. This stars Justice Smith, Jack Haven, and Ian Foreman. This is a coming-of-age psychological drama suspense mystery film that, it's still horror in my opinion, that is a co-production of the United States and the United Kingdom, currently sitting on a 5.8 on IMDb and a 3.5 on Letterboxd, where synopsis being a teenager just trying to make it through life in the suburbs is introduced by a classmate to a mysterious late-night TV show. So the boy here is going to be Owen. Now the older version is played by Justice Smith. He ends up meeting Maddie, who's portrayed by Jack Haven. And then there's also, I'm trying to see if I can find the younger version. It's not easily coming up here, so I'm just going to go ahead and just leave that type of stuff there. And I'll just say that if you'd like to hear a featured review, it's going to be episode 238. I got to go see this at the Gateway Film Center. That was Foray Through the Floors number 8 that I had this paired up with The Return of Chandu. And then I also gave a mini review to this on episode 256, which was Foray Through the Floors number 24 that featured Cry the Werewolf and The Substance. So this one here is a deeply personal and surreal film from Schonenbrunn that blurs the line between reality and delusion. Following Owen, who's portrayed by Smith, and Ian Foreman is the younger version. And there's Maddie, who's portrayed by Lundy Payne, is what their name was at the time of this. They have now changed that to Jack Haven. As they bond over to this mysterious supernatural TV show, this art house horror explores the themes of mental health, identity, and struggles of not fitting in. There's a unique atmosphere, strong performances, ambiguous narrative, allowing for both supernatural and psychological interpretations, make it a thought-provoking and unsettling experience. So, if you're a fan of her previous work, but I've also heard people who didn't like her Schonenbrunn's original film of We're All Going to the World's Fair, you will find a compelling companion piece here that kind of has similar issues while also doing its own type of thing differently. So that's all I have here for this section, so let me go ahead then and get you over to a brief break, and when I come back, I'll give you my top 25 Foray Through the Floors films.
Discover the transformative world of hypnosis and how it can lead you to a happier, healthier you. I'm Cindy Brainerd, a certified hypnotherapist from the Hypno Wellness Podcast, and your guide to finding wellness through the power of hypnosis. Join us every Wednesday for insightful topics and Thursdays for empowering hypnosis sessions. Remember, Hypno-Wellness, your path to a better you.
And welcome back. So let's go ahead and run through this one now. And coming in at number 25 on my list is going to be Cuckoo from 2024. This is written and directed by Tillman Singer. This stars Hunter Schafer, Jan Bluthart, and Martin Soskas. This is a body horror teen mystery thriller film that is from a co-production of Germany and the United States. Currently sitting on a 5.7 on IMDb and a 2.9 on Letterboxd, or a synopsis being, a 17-year-old is forced to move with her family to a resort where things are not what they seem. So I'll go ahead and say that Schafer is portraying Gretchen, who is the daughter that's 17. And then you also have her father is Lewis, portrayed by Soskas. And then he's married to Beth, who's portrayed by Jessica Henwick. And they have a daughter together who is Alma, portrayed by Mila Liu, and she is deaf. So if you'd like to hear a featured review, it's going to be episode 251, Foray to the Forest number 19, that featured this and The Uninvited. And then I also gave this another watch over on episode 263, Italian Horror number 20, which was Lisa and the Devil and the Devil's Game, The Venus of Italy, which was the Mario Bava double feature. This was a mini review over there. So this is a surreal, atmospheric horror film that plunges 17-year-old Gretchen into a nightmarish resort in the German Alps. Singer crafts a disorienting experience, building tension through stunning cinematography, effective sound design, and a pervasive sense of unease. Schafer delivers a powerful performance as Gretchen, navigating a hostile environment and a fractured family dynamic. Something I even brought up, Dan Stevens shines as the enigmatic Dr. Koenig, adding to the film's unsettling charm, while the third act revelations it left me wanting more, and a little bit of clarity would have also helped. Cuckoo isn't captivating, disturbing journey that will linger longer after, the credits roll and everything like that. And I gave Cuckoo an 8.5 out of 10. And one of the newest films on this list is going to be Presence, which is a 2024 film when doing its festival stuff, but it's a 2025 wide release, but I'm still going to consider it here. And that is going to be coming in at position number 24 for me. So this is directed by Steven Soderbergh. Now this is written by David Koepp. Now this stars Lucy Liu, Chris Sullivan, and Kalina Liang. And then this is a psychological drama horror thriller film that is from the United States, currently sitting on a 6.1 on IMDb and a 3.0 on Letterboxd, with our synopsis being, a family becomes convinced they are not alone after moving into their new home in the suburbs. So just kind of give a little bit more information here. Rebecca is the mother, that's Lou. Then we have Chris, portrayed by Sullivan, and then Chloe is her daughter, portrayed by Liang. And there's also Tyler, who is a great swimmer, portrayed by Eddie Madej. So this one here, I did a feature review on episode 274, which was Women Appreciation number 11. Had this paired up with the Helter Skelter film from 2012. And then this other time I had covered this would have been on episode 287, which this was a mini review, and that one had Ash and the Student of Prague from 1935 as the two featured reviews there. So this is a thought-provoking modern gothic film from Soderbergh, seen entirely through the eyes of a spectral entity inhabiting a new family's home. With its genre classifications as horror is debatable, its unsettling atmosphere and unique voyeuristic perspectives create a compelling family drama. We have strong performances from Liu, Sullivan, and Liang anchor the story, exploring the complex family dynamics and subtle gender norm subversions. The minimalist practical filmmaking, subtle effects, and carefully placed clues make a second watch rewarding, revealing the entity's identity and motivations, as well as a well-crafted film that may divide audiences, but highly recommended for those that appreciate Soderbergh's style or intriguing character-driven narratives. That's why for this one here, I'm also giving it an 8.5 out of 10. Then at position number 23, I have Them from 1954, going all the way back there. So this one is directed by Gordon Douglas. It was written between Todd Sheridan, Russell S. Hughes, and George Worthing Yates. So this is starring James Whitmore, Edmund Gwenn, and Joan Weldon. This is a kaiju monster horror sci-fi film that is from the United States. This is currently sitting on a 7.2 on IMDb and a 3.5 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being, the earliest atomic tests in New Mexico caused common ants to mutate into giant man-eating monsters that threaten civilization. So this one here, I'd seen it once before. Also did a mini review on episode 223, which was Black Appreciation number 9, that featured Underground and Black Box. So for this one here, though, this is a sci-fi horror classic. It's a B picture that's praised for its immediate immersion into the story of giant mutated ants caused by atomic tests in New Mexico. The Effective stakes, the desolate desert setting, and the strong character performances from people like Whitmore, Gwen, and Weldon are all strong. So the practical effects, sound design, and cinematography are also recommended for enhancing the tension and realism of this monstrous ant. I also think that the social commentary here, drawing parallels to Godzilla, is actually kind of interesting. And I give this one an 8.5 out of 10. And I would recommend this to fans of classic horror and giant monster movies like this. And then coming in at number 22, going to be a little bit of a controversial pick here, and that's going to be The Terminator from 1984. This is directed by James Cameron, who also wrote this with Gail Ann Hurd and William Wisher. This stars the incomparable Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, and Michael Biehn. So this is an artificial intelligence, cyberpunk, dystopian sci-fi, time travel, urban adventure, action sci-fi film that, like I said, I consider to be horror. This one is from a co-production of the United Kingdom and the United States. Currently sitting on an 8.1 on IMDb and a 3.9 on Letterboxd, or a synopsis being: a cyborg assassin from the future attempts to find and kill a young woman who is destined to give birth to the warrior that will lead the resistance to save humankind from extinction. So this one here, Jamie and I watched this one, I believe, on 4K when I picked that up, and this would be episode 157, which was Italian Horror number 13, that was a Dario Argento double feature of Sleepless and Dark Glasses. So for this movie here for me is that I saw the sequel first. I really kind of enjoyed the immediate immersion into the post-apocalyptic premise. This is a solid movie, regardless of whether you view it as a horror one or not, which I do. I kind of look at him being like an unsolvable force like Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees. I can see and understand that he uses guns, so that's that. Schwarzenegger's performance as the titular cyborg is lauded for its dedicated robotic performances and movements. Weapon handling. Biehn and Hamilton are solid in their roles. The filmmaking is, I give commendations for the grounded sci-fi cinematography, gritty 1980s LA setting, the impressive practical effects, especially, Stan Winston's work on the Terminator itself, the iconic theme song. I give this an 8.5 out of 10. I would obviously recommend this to both horror and non-horror fans alike, and this is one of, the best sci-fi films that have ever come out, especially ones that are a little bit more grounded. And coming in at number 21 is going to be Interview with the Vampire from 1994. This is directed by Neil Jordan, written by Anne Rice. It stars Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, and Antonio Banderas. This is a dark fantasy, psychological, supernatural, tragedy, vampire, of course, drama fantasy horror film that is from the United States. Currently sitting on a 7.5 on IMDb and a 3.6 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being: a vampire tells his epic life story, love, betrayal, loneliness, and hunger. Go ahead and just say that Brad Pitt is playing Louis, where we have Tom Cruise portraying Lestat, the villain in this movie here. I've read more of the books and everything since, deciding to check these out and everything, the source material that Rice did. But if you'd like to hear a mini review, I watched this one growing up all the time, but I did a mini one on 223, which is Black Appreciation number 9, featured Underground and Black Box. I actually went to the Gateway Film Center to check this out. They're doing a series with vampires, and this is one of the ones they selected. So I finally got to see it because I was 7 when this came out. So I'm a big fan of Rice's novels. I think that this does a good job, especially with her writing the screenplay, condensing down the rich mythology into a 2-hour runtime while retaining its heart. I like its exploration of timeless creatures throughout the different eras. The concept of becoming the most beautiful version of yourself upon turning into a vampire is cool. Its depiction of pansexual vampires, a theme that is throughout the novels, is good as well. I also like the strong performances from Pitt in his melancholic Lewis and Cruise as the arrogant Lestat. We also have a very young Kirsten Dunst as the young but mature Claudia. Stan Winston's effects and the film's grand cinematography, as well as its sets, are good. Their contribution to the immense atmosphere is another thing there. So the 2-hour runtime doesn't feel like it. It doesn't have the most exciting pace, but I still think that this one is very good and give it an 8.5 out of 10 because of its well-made, thought-provoking take on the vampire mythos. And we kick off the top 20 here with John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness. He directed this from 1994, written by Michael D. Luca. I believe it is also inspired by H.P. Lovecraft. So this stars Sam Neill, Jürgen Prochnow, and Julie Carmen. This is a supernatural drama, fantasy, horror, mystery, thriller film that is from the United States and Canada. Currently sitting on a 7.1 on IMDb and a 3.8 on Letterboxd, with our synopsis being: an insurance investigator soon discovering that the impact of a horror writer's books have on its fans is more than just inspirational. So this one here, I'll go ahead and say that investigator is going to be John Trent, portrayed by Neil, and then Sutter Kane, the author here, is going to be Prochnow. So for this one here, if you'd like to hear a mini review, I watched this on episode 172, which was Women Appreciation number 8. That featured Humanoids from the Deep from 1980 and Consecration. What I will say here is that I got to the Gateway Film Center because they were doing a John Carpenter retrospective, and I got to see this one on the big screen because, much like the previous film that I was talking about with Interview with the Vampire, I wasn't old enough. So then, this one here is one that I surprisingly missed for a long time. So this has a good Lovecraftian narrative following Trent as he uncovers the terrifying truth behind a vanished horror writer whose works have been driving people to madness. There is a compelling investigative aspect, the questioning of free will and dreamlike nightmarish atmosphere that blurs the line between reality and hallucination. Neil's performance is great, along with a strong supporting cast. I also want to give credit here to portraying a believable descent into madness from him. The practical effects, particularly the Lovecraftian creatures by Greg Nicotero and the K&B team, they get high praise from me. And they also kind of remind me of things that you'd see with like John Carpenter's The Thing. While the soundtrack is less memorable for Carpenter, the film's pacing, rewatchability, and satisfying ending, which ties into his Apocalypse trilogy, I really enjoy this one. I think it's one of his more underrated later films. Actually, I might be wrong. This might actually be one of his more beloved later films. But regardless, you know what I'm trying to say here. I highly recommend this to Carpenter and Lovecraft fans. I give In the Mouth of Madness an 8.5 out of 10. And then coming in at number 19 is going to be Kawaii from 1964. This is directed by Masaki Kobayashi, and it was written between Yoko Mizuki and Lafcadio Hearn. And these are all based on like Japanese folklore as well, but this is starring Rentaro Mikuno, Michio Yaratama, and Misako Wanatabe. So this is a folk horror, supernatural drama fantasy film that is from Japan. This is currently sitting on a 7.9 on IMDb and a 4.2 on Letterboxd, or Snopsbean, a collection of 4 Japanese folktales with supernatural themes. So this one here, I did a mini review back on episode 168, which was New Year, New number 13, that featured The Offering and Rituals. This was one of the ones that I did as a mini review. And I first learned about this one through Fangoria's Top 300 Horror Movies and various podcasts. I knew that this was an anthology film, and it presents 4 supernatural tales. And the first one is The Black Hair, following a samurai who leaves his wife for work and remarries only to regret his decision and long for his first wife. There's The Woman of the Snow, telling of Minokuchi, who is spared by the snow maiden Yuki under the condition that he must never speak of their encounter, a promise he eventually breaks with dire consequences. Third one is Hochi the Earless, centers on a blind temple helper who asks a ghost to recite a ballad about great battles. Finally, In a Cup of Tea, features Kayani, a guard who sees a face in his tea and is later attacked by ghosts visible only to him. So this has beautiful cinematography. I want to highlight the amazing care and detail in each shot, and noting the period-accurate sets. The practical and in-camera effects are, from 1960s are commendable. While the acting is spot on, I also found the pacing to be slightly an issue, suggesting that these could be trimmed for a tighter runtime. Despite all of this is ultimately a classic for fans of foreign and art house cinema. So my rating here for Kawaii is, of course, going to be an 8.5 out of 10. Then at number 18 is going to be Shaun of the Dead from 2004. This is directed by Edgar Wright, who co-wrote this with Simon Pegg. Now, Pegg stars in this with Nick Frost and Kate Ashfield. This is a buddy comedy, dark parody, survival, zombie horror film that is from a co-production of the United Kingdom, France, and the United States. Currently sitting on a 7.9 on IMDb and a 4.0 on Letterboxd, or Snopsbean. And the uneventful, aimless lives of London electronic salesman and his layabout roommate are disrupted by the zombie apocalypse. I should go ahead and say that Sean is portrayed by Pegg, and then we have his layabout friend is Ed, portrayed by Frost. So I've seen this one a lot throughout the years. If you'd like to see or like to hear a mini review, it's going to be episode 63, which was New Year, New Movie number 5, that featured Hunted and Cruising. Pretty sure I watched this because of the Summer Challenge series and just made sure that I, give it another one. So I originally resisted seeing this because I'm a huge Romero fan and I knew this was a parody, but I grew to love this one. So this follows Sean, like I said, whose uneventful life gets upended. And so for me, I like the dry British humor. I think there's some clever references to Romero's Dead series, and there's a strong balance of comedy and horror. While primarily the former, this effectively delivers some zombie action, practical gore effects, and moments of genuine bleakness. The acting, particularly Pegg's evolution from slacker to reluctant hero, and then Frost's comedic timing are something that's very essential to this success. The soundtrack included borrowed, Romero's score and Queen songs. I give it a lot of credit for enhancing the mood. Ultimately, this one is a fun movie made by fans for fans, earning just, a really good, bordering on great in my opinion. So that's why for Shaun of the Dead, going to be the next bump up in rating here, as I give this one a 9 out of 10. And number 17 for me is going to be MKHEXE from 2024. This is directed by Ty West, who wrote this. This stars Mia Goth, Charlie Rowan McCain, Simon Press, and I'm also going to give credit here to Elizabeth Debicki. So this is a serial killer slasher crime film that is also a horror film that's from the United States, United Kingdom, and New Zealand. This is currently sitting on a 6.2 on IMDb and a 3.1 on Letterboxd, where a synopsis being in 1980s Hollywood, adult film star and aspiring actress Maxine Minks finally gets her big break, but as a mysterious killer stalks the starlets of Hollywood, a trail of blood threatens to reveal her sinister past. So go ahead and say here, Mia Goth, of course, is reprising her role as Maxine. If you'd like to hear a featured review, it's going to be episode 244. Jamie and I went to see this at the Gateway Film Center together. We did a little date night. And I believe we might have saw all these together. And she might not have seen Pearl. I'm not positive on that one. But this was a Foray Through the Forest number 14. Had this paired up with The Beast Man. It's kind of funny. And then I also have a mini review on episode 259, which was Nightmares Film Festival number 4. This was a mini review that I did over there as I gave it a rewatch to see how I sat with it. So this one here this is the third installment, of course, of the X trilogy. X is a slasher, Pearl is a character study, and Maxine is a giallo-infused slasher. We follow Maxine, 1985 Hollywood, as she tries to pursue mainstream acting while being stalked by a mysterious killer, and it's believed to be the Night Stalker. So I love Goth's performance here. She really just captivates and has embodied this character. She has a determined evolution. This is a love letter to vintage cinema, capturing the underbelly of LA with its giallo aesthetic, true crime integration, and nods to the satanic panic and video nasties. This has some period-accurate filmmaking, cinematography, effects, and soundtrack are all highlights. Despite guessing the killer very early on, I still appreciate the deeper nuance upon a second watch, and I've ultimately come up with my rating on Maxine as a 9 out of 10, and I think it's a great film, even if it is the weakest of the trilogy, in my opinion. And then number 16, I have Long Legs, also from 2024. This is directed and written by Osgood Perkins, stars Micah Monroe, Nicolas Cage, and Blair Underwood. This is a psychological, serial killer, supernatural, crime, horror, mystery thriller film that is from a co-production of Canada and the United States. Currently sitting on a 6.6 on IMDb. And a 3.3 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being, in pursuit of a serial killer, an FBI agent uncovers a series of occult clues that she must solve to end their terrifying killing spree. So this one I did a feature review on episode 246, which was Foray Through the Forest number 15, that featured Dead Man's Eyes and this film. Then I also revisited it on episode 260, my Halloween episode number 5. That featured Pumpkinhead 2 Blood Wings and Smile 2. This was a mini review for that one. And what I'll say is that this is a chilling serial killer thriller with occult undertones. I'm a fan of Perkins' unique style, Monroe's acting, and Nicolas Cage, who plays the titular villain. He has such an immersive atmosphere established with an eerie cold open. We follow a new FBI agent of Lee Harker, who is Monroe, in the 90s, as she uncovers coded messages and disturbing connection to a decades-long killing spree. I highlight her performance once again as Lee. Subtle hinting at her autistic processing and potential psychic link to the killer. Cage is solid here as his creepy portrayal of Longlegs, effectively flirting with his signature over-the-top style while remaining grounded. I also commend the film's ability to toe the line between grounded reality and the supernatural. We have a strong supporting cast which includes Underwood and Alicia Witt, and the exceptional filmmaking from unsettling soundtrack and cinematography to the brutal practical effects and subtle quick inserts. So after a second viewing, this one firmly secured its 9 out of 10 rating for me. It was a potential top 5. I don't remember where it ended up landing, but this one is one that I think the atmosphere, acting, and unique blend of serial killer and satanic panic themes really kind of bode well for it. So that's why I come in here with a 9 out of 10. And we're kicking off that top 15 with The Substance from 2024. This is directed and written by Coralie Farget, one of those two. And then this is starring Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley, and Dennis Quaid. This is a body horror, dark comedy, monster, psychological, showbiz, drama, sci-fi film. That is from a co-production of the United Kingdom and France. Currently sitting on a 7.2 on IMDb and a 3.8 on Letterboxd, with our synopsis being: a fading celebrity takes a black market drug, a cell-replicating substance that creates a younger, better version of herself. So this one here, I only got to see this one once. I saw this on episode 256, which was Foray Through the Forest number 24, that featured this and Cry of the Werewolf. And what I'll say is that I was intrigued by the trailer's music and stylized visuals. So this is an art house dark comedy that we have, I love this idea of creating a younger, better version of oneself through a drug. And then we do this through Elizabeth Sparkle, portrayed by Moore, and her creation of Sue, portrayed by Qualley. So this is effective with its social commentary on Hollywood's ageism and beauty standards. It's kind of a blend of like the portrait of Dorian Gray with the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with a touch of society. So Moore and Qualley's performances are great here, portraying the complex, selfish duality of this character, while Quaid is commended as this gross depiction of misogynistic producer. Farge's direction is particularly praised here for her stunning cinematography, practical effects, and excellent techno dubstep soundtrack. Although the comedic ending felt slightly off to me, I do need to revisit this just to see if that's still an issue. This was one of the best films that I saw last year. Could have been my number one just because of how well it did. So for me, though, I gave The Substance a 9 out of 10. Then coming in at number 14, I have Exuma from 2024. It goes by the original title of Pamyo. This is written and directed by Jang Ja-hee. This stars Chao Min-soo, Kim Gyo-in, and Lee Do-hoon. This is a folk horror supernatural mystery film that is from South Korea. Big fan of this country. This is currently sitting on a 6.9 on IMDb. Nice. And a 3.6 on Letterboxd, where our synopsis be: in the process of excavating an anonymous grave unleashes dreadful consequences buried underneath. So this one, if you want to hear a feature review, I went to the Gateway Film Center to see this and, kind of went in blindly and was blown away. So that was Foray Through the Floors number 1 that featured this, and Maniac as the 2 featured reviews. That'd be the 1934 one. And then I did a mini review on episode 244, which was Foray Through the Floors number 14 that featured Maxine and the Beastman. So for me, its premise and Korean origin, I had to give this a second watch on Shudder. I really enjoyed it that first time, but I love this shaman duo and geomancer funeral director team as they uncover dreadful consequences from excavating an anonymous grave for a wealthy family. So kind of to give a little bit here is the geomancer is Kim Sang-deok, portrayed by Min Suk, and then we have Lee Hwang-rim, who is one of the shaman, and she does this along with Yoon Bong-gil, and then that's Kim Go-yin and Lee Do-hyun, and then there's also this other guy here, where is he, is Go Yong-gun, who is Yo Ha-jin, who works with Kim. So there was a lot of just names I'm kind of just throwing at you there. But this has a modern approach to pagan beliefs, contrasting them with Christian elements, and highlighting the compelling investigation as clues are uncovered. I think the acting, particularly from Go Hyun and Min Suk, are some of the best parts here, bringing their characters to life. There's some strong cinematography, especially in capturing the remote gravesite, limited but effective practical effects, and creepy sound design, especially for this Japanese spirit that they're dealing with. This all contributes to a strong atmosphere. Ultimately, I highly recommend this one. If you like paganism versus religion, traditional versus modern themes, and a well-executed haunting film, as I give this one, once again, 9 out of 10. Then coming in at position number 13 is going to be A Record of Sweet Murder. This goes by the original title of Aru Yarashaki Satsun Shinsha no Kiriko. Mispronounce all of that, I'm sure. But this is from 2014. Written and directed by Koji Shirayashi. This stars Yeon Ji-wook, Kim Kokabai, and Tezukasa Oi. This is a found footage horror film that is a co-production of Japan and South Korea, once again, there. This is currently set on a 6.3 on IMDb and a 3.4 on Letterboxd, with our synopsis being: a South Korean journalist and Japanese cameraman in South Korea are invited to an abandoned apartment one day. So, this one here. I did a mini review way back on episode 10, New Year, New Movie number 1, which featured The Grudge from 2020 and Anguish, as Derek B. reached out and gave me a way to watch this one. So, this is from the director who did Sadako vs. Kayako. This film plunges us into a nightmarish standoff. A South Korean journalist and a Japanese cameraman are invited to an abandoned apartment building by a childhood friend, Sang-joon, portrayed by Ji-wook-yeon, who claims God has instructed him to kill 27 people to resurrect a deceased childhood friend. I love the tension. It starts from the beginning as we get this creepy abandoned high-rise. Sang-joon's unhinged yet convincing portrayal of a man genuinely believing his divine mission keeps the audience questioning his sanity. This takes an unexpected turn with the introduction of a newly married couple, revealing their own dark secrets and intensifying the standoff. This one is one continuous shot editing style they're going for. We have a tight 80-minute runtime, and it's effective practical effects. So there's some minor issues I have with CGI, some digital film glitches I don't love, but we have strong acting, particularly from Yeon's performance, and the shocking conclusion gave me a 9 out of 10 rating here. I do want to revisit this one. I've only seen it once, but it's an intense subtitle film that if you're a fan of Asian cinema, I think you'll really enjoy this one. So yeah, that's where I'll leave you there. And coming in at number 12, I have It Follows from 2014. This is written and directed by David Robert Mitchell. This stars Micah Monroe, Keir Gilchrist, and Olivia Ludacari. So this one is considered a B-horror, psychological, supernatural, teen horror mystery thriller film that is from the United States. Currently sitting on a 6.8 on IMDb and a 3.4 on Letterboxd. Our synopsis: a young woman is followed by an unknown supernatural force after a sexual encounter. So I originally watched this one once before doing the podcast, and then I gave it a rewatch in episode 97, which was added to the ones number 23. This was featured reviews were the visual and the medium. I'm pretty sure I did this. I rewatched it for the podcast under the Stairs Summer Challenge series. So I initially liked it, but found it perplexing. This one, there's a timeless feel that I love, blending older aesthetics and modern elements with a unique atmosphere in rundown Detroit. So the core concept is definitely a coming-of-age tale where Jay's loss of innocence, who that is Monroe, brings her closer to death, rather than a direct... I also think it's kind of a direct allegory for STDs as well, but both of these are kind of like a major influence that are kind of working together. So we have the shape-shifting entity, which can take on the form of anybody, known or unknown, is a highlight as it's particularly creepy and effective. It contributes to the unknown, and it's unsettling. Monroe's performance is his portrayal of a young woman grappling with this horrible decision, and then we also have Keir Gilchrist is commendable for his role as a devoted Paul who is in love with her, but she kind of just pushes that aside. I also think that we have a minimal yet effective CGI, some good makeup effects, and a strong cinematography that gives character to the setting, while noting a slight issue with some pacing in the middle. It has a great soundtrack, and it's one of the highlights for me. So for me, I recommend this one as a different take on a familiar story, and I also give It Follows a 9 out of 10. And then just falling short of my top 10 is going to be Starry Eyes at number 11. This is from 2014. Directed between Kevin Klosch and Dennis Widmeyer. The stars Alexandria Esso, Amanda Fuller, and Noah Segan. This is a body horror mystery film that is from a co-production of the United States and Belgium. This is currently sitting on a 6.0 on IMDb and a 3.1 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being a hopeful young starlet uncovers the ominous origins of the Hollywood elite and enters into a deadly agreement in exchange for fame and fortune. So this one here, I originally had covered, I believe, I know Jake and I covered this on episode 2 of SideQuest Podcast, and then I also gave this one a rewatch for episode 121, which was Black Appreciation number 6, that featured Black Devil Doll from Hell and The Curse from 2021. That were the two featured reviews. This was a mini review over there, and what I'll say is that I missed this during its initial release, but sought it out due to recommendations. So we follow Sarah, portrayed by Esso, an aspiring actress who enters a deadly agreement for fame and mysterious Hollywood elite company, Astraeus Pictures. I love the subtle allegories for selling one's soul for fame, drawing parallels to old Hollywood horror stories and the casting couch phenomena. Esso's performance is great for her raw and personal portrayal of Sarah's descent, supported by a strong cast of friends and cult members. So the highlights here are the effective practical effects, especially this disturbing bug vomiting scene and this chilling synth soundtrack. It perfectly escalates the film's tension. Ultimately for me, I highly recommend this one. I think it's a great movie in my opinion. So I actually give Starry Eyes here, once again, a 9 out of 10 for this one as well. And kicking off my top 10 is going to be one that might be controversial for some people, and that's The Babadook from 2014. This is written and directed by Jennifer Kent, stars Essie Davis, Noah Wiseman, and Danielle Henshaw. This is a B-horror, monster, psychological, supernatural drama mystery film that is from a co-production of Australia and Canada, currently sitting on a 6.8 on IMDb, and a 3.3 on Letterboxd, or a synopsis being a single mother and her child fall into a deep well of paranoia when children's book titled Mr. Babadook manifests in their home. So this one here, I know I've seen this one a handful of times. I've seen this before doing the podcast, I've seen this in the theater, and I've also watched this with Jamie, and the only time I've covered it on the podcast is episode 97, Odyssey Through the Ones number 23, that features the visual and the medium. This was a mini review. And I think that we have a great journey that follows Amelia, portrayed by Davis, a widowed mother grappling with the violent death of her husband, must contend with her son Samuel, who is portrayed by Wiseman, who has a fear of a monster, only to find a sinister presence manifesting around them. I love the compelling story and ambiguity with this titular pop-up book serving as a creepy, undetailed representation of a creature, leaving us to question if the Babadook is real or a manifestation of Amelia's descent into madness and unresolved grief. The deeper themes of Amelia's struggle with her husband's death and her son, compounded by exhaustion, are definitely highlights for after multiple viewings. Davis's performance is believable as a sleep-deprived, frustrated mother, and somebody who has been sleep-deprived due to children. I can feel some of the things here. Wiseman's actually not as bad as everybody makes him out to be as Samuel, who is effectively annoying. The Babadook's design is, limited with its glimpses and paying homage to Lon Chaney. I like the editing, sound design, and the incorporation of the creature sounds is, enhancing the atmosphere. This is a slight drag in pacing. I highly recommend this. I think the relevant social commentary, strong acting, and effective scares give this one a 9 out of 10. And coming in at number 9 is a classic from my childhood of A Nightmare on Elm Street, the original. I used to watch this all the time. This is from 1984, written and directed by Wes Craven. Stars Heather Langenkamp, Johnny Depp, and Robert Englund. This is a B-horror slasher supernatural teen film that is from the United States. Currently sitting on a 7.4 on IMDb and a 3.7 on Letterboxd, with a synopsis being: teenager Nancy Thompson must uncover the dark truth concealed by her parents after she and her friends become targets of the spirit of a serial killer with a bladed glove in their dreams, in which if they die, it kills them in real life. So this one I know I've seen in the theater as well. I've seen it a handful of times throughout the years. The last time I've actually covered this would have been with Jamie on a bonus episode, number 17, which we did a Nightmare on Elm Street double feature here, doing this on the original and then the remake. So that's if you want to hear a little bit more there. So this one centers on Nancy Thompson, Heather Langenkamp, and her friends who become targets of Freddy Krueger, portrayed by Englund, a serial killer. So I love the terrifying concept of sleep deprivation and an inescapable dream killer, saying how, this plays on fundamental human fear. Englund's portrayal of Krueger is terrifying here, even in an early performance where he's not even given his personality yet. I love the brisk pacing. It immediately plunges into the horror. There's some effective practical effects here, especially Tina's death. She's one of them, and she's portrayed by Amanda Wyss. And then we also have Glenn, who is Depp. They both have iconic deaths as standouts. The unsettling musical score is another thing. Whispering from Freddy contributes to that eerie atmosphere. So the acting isn't great. It's good for a slasher film. Heather Langenkamp is a great final girl, and a young Depp is a fun early role here. So, despite some minor plot points that a little bit's benefited from nostalgia, I also think that I've come to realize some of the things that kind of were issues in the past. This is a classic. I highly recommend. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. And then coming in at number 8 here is the highest film I've only ever seen once, and that's going to be Oni Baba. This is from 1964, directed and written by Kanito Shindo. This is starring Nobuko Aruo, Ijitsugu Yoshimura, and Kai Saito. And if I've mispronounced any of these names, I do apologize. But this is a folk horror drama thriller film that is from Japan, currently sitting on a 7.9 on IMDb and a 4.1 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being: 2 women kill a samurai, sell their belongings for a living. While one of them is having an affair with their neighbor, the other woman meets a mysterious samurai wearing a bizarre mask. So this one, I did a mini review on episode 231, which was Foray Through the Forest number 1, that featured Maniac from 1934 and Exuma. So kind of an interesting that this is a Japanese film. There's some Japanese elements in another one, but this one I discovered through Fangoria and Letterboxd. This title translates to Demon Woman. We follow a mother, portrayed by Ottawa, and her daughter-in-law, portrayed by Yoshimura, as they're living in tall reeds during medieval Japan times. They survive by killing samurai, selling their belongings. The world is upended by the arrival of Hachi, portrayed by Sato. Now, he fought alongside the daughter-in-law's deceased husband and becomes a temptation for this young widow. I love this simple yet complicated story, exploring themes of familial obligation versus survival and the consequences of greed and manipulation, particularly when the mother uses a mysterious demon mask to keep her daughter-in-law from Hachi. So the acting, especially from Ottawa and Yashimura and Sato, they bring these complex characters to life. I thought this was excellently made, with beautiful cinematography capturing the disorienting reads, effective use of isolation through framing, and strong soundtrack building with an eerie atmosphere. This is an art house film. There's some limited dialogue, so that might be another perk here, especially because this is a subtitled film. If you're a fan of classic genre cinema, I definitely recommend this one to you. I gave Oni Baba, after one watch, as you could tell, a 9 out of 10. And then coming in at number 7, I have Black Christmas from 1974. This is directed by Bob Clark, written by Roy Moore. This stars Olivia Hussey, Keir Dula, and Margot Kidder. This is a B-horror slasher whodunit holiday mystery thriller film that is from Canada. Currently sitting on a 7.1 on IMDb and a 3.8 on Letterboxd, with a synopsis being: during their Christmas break, a group of sorority girls are stalked by a stranger. So this one I had seen a couple times before actually doing the podcast, and then I got to go to the Gateway Film Center to watch this on the big screen. That definitely helped, as this film keeps getting better and better for me the more that I watch it. So that was episode 269 that I did my mini review. That was my top horror films from 2024. That was a mini review that I did for that episode. So this one, like I said, has grown on me. We have a group of sorority girls, and a couple of them there are Hussey and Kidder. So Hussey's our main character here. She is Jess Bradford. And then I'll say Kidder is portraying the character of Barb. But we also have like John Saxton, who is Lieutenant Ken Fuller. Art Hindle's in this as Chris Hayden. He is actually dating one of the girls who disappears fairly early on. So for me, though, this one is an innovative film predating the slasher subgenre. It's, has a non-scary holiday for its setting as of Christmas break. So that actually makes it where people are disappearing, that there's a logical region potentially. So then we have a killer largely unseen and only identified as Billy. Through some unnerving, often incestuous sounding phone calls, creates an unsettling atmosphere as well. This is highlighted by effective cinematography and framing, offering only glimpses of that killer and deliberately a slow burn pace that ramps up tension. Hussey's performance as Jess is great, and her determination and modern portrayal of a woman making her own choices, including the decision to potentially have an abortion. So we have some relevant social commentary there. Dooley as Jess's boyfriend Peter is good. I like Kidder as Barb. We also have Marion Valdman as Mrs. Mack. They all have praise from me as well. A little bit more of Billy's backstory and maybe some on-screen kills, although acknowledging are not necessarily essential, would help me to enjoy this even more. I still think this is a well-made classic for both horror and non-horror fans alike, and I give Black Christmas now, after this most recent watch, a 9 out of 10. Then just missing out on my top 5 is going to be Creature from the Black Lagoon. This is from 1954. This is directed by Jack Arnold. Now, our writers here, we have a team. Let me just make sure I get everybody correct and see where everybody goes here. The screenplay was done by Harry Essex and Arthur A. Ross. The story was done by Maurice Zim. And then the idea, although uncredited, is given to William Alland. Now, this is starring Richard Carlson, Julie Adams, and Richard Denning. This is a monster horror sci-fi film this is a Universal classic, of course, but from the United States. This is currently sitting on a 6.9 on IMDb. Nice. And a 3.5 on Letterboxd, or a synopsis being. A strange prehistoric beast lurks in the depths of the Amazonian jungle. A group of scientists try to capture the animal and bring it to civilization for study. So, my interesting history here, I've seen this twice. Both times in the theater at the Gateway Film Center, both times in 3D. So, I did my mini review here of episode 227, which was Centennial Club number 14, that featured Here for Blood and Waxworks. And so what I'll say is, we tell on the story like I was saying, and then we have the immediate immersion into its concept. It stems from a lifelong fascination from undiscovered creatures and evolution, and for me. So seeing this in 3D a couple times is one of the best experiences I've had, especially in capturing the Gillman's seamless underwater movements. I like how it delves deeper into subplots, particularly the opposing motivations of David, portrayed by Carlson, who seeks knowledge, and Mark, who is Denning, is driven by profit and pride, reflecting societal debates that we're still seeing today. The acting is solid. I think embodying this thirst for knowledge from Carlson is good. Adams as Kay, who's unfairly treated as a weaker sex by competing male leads. We also have Rico Browning and Ben Chapman bringing the Gillman to life. They're both great. The filmmaking, there was some amazing character design and beautiful cinematography, effective use of the soundtrack to build tension. This ultimately is my favorite of the Universal classics, and I think it's one of the strongest ones as well. So I give this one just bump up in rating, but just falling short, as I give it a 9.5 out of 10. And coming in at number 5 here to start this off is going to be Gremlins from 1984. Kind of a controversial one. Not everybody thinks this is a horror movie, but I digress. So this is directed by Joe Dante, written by Chris Columbus, stars Zach Galligan, Phoebe Cates, and Hoyt Axton. This is a dark comedy, dark fantasy, holiday comedy, monster, quirky comedy, supernatural fantasy, holiday horror film. I think I might have said those things enough. From the United States, currently sitting on a 7.3 on IMDb and a 3.6 on Letterboxd. Synopsis. After receiving an exotic small pet as a Christmas gift, a young man inadvertently breaks 3 important rules concerning his new pet, which unleashes a horde of malevolent, mischievous creatures on a small town. And that little guy is a mogwai called Gizmo. So this one here, I believe I've seen this one in the theater at the Gateway Film Center. I don't fully remember now. I've seen so many of these classic films, but this one was a bonus episode with Jamie on episode 3 for us over on, one of the bonus episodes. This was a kinder trauma movie for her. So I watched the sequel a lot more growing up. I did end up seeing this one. This one's a borderline family fun, Christmas horror film. We have a boy who, unleashes these creatures. Now, I love the social commentary on capitalism and responsibility, particularly from Mr. Wing's struggling shop. And this would end up being, I think I might have mispronounced that. I think it's Mr. Wang. I don't know. But this is this grandfather of Key Luke, and then his grandson of John Louis is the one who actually sells it to Mr. Peltzer, and that would be Randall, who is portrayed by Axton. He gives it to his son Billy, portrayed by Galligan. So there's some minor plot holes with the rules for the Mogwai. I commend the dark comedy, the pop culture parody, and the effective practical effects using puppets, animatronics, and stop motion. This is distinct, and just how great the theme song is. I love that classic element there. It's surprisingly dark backstory for one of the characters, and that would be Kate, portrayed by Phoebe Cates. I love this movie. It's so much fun. It's a fast-paced creature feature, and that's why this one, ends where it does, as a 9.5 out of 10. Now, a film I came to late but has grown on me is going to be coming in here at number 4 for me, and that's Blood and Black Lace. Original title is Six Donne per el Assassino. Now, this is a Mario Bava film, and let's go ahead. There's going to be a bunch of writers here, so let's get these all squared away. And the screenplay and story are done by Marcello Fondanto. Now, there's collaboration there by Giuseppe Baria and Mario Bava, and then the adaptation for the English version is done by Mary Arden. And this is starring Cameron Mitchell, Eva Bartok, and Thomas Rainer. This is a giallo, psychological, serial killer, slasher, splatter, whodunit, crime, drama, horror film. This is from a co-production of Italy, France, and West Germany. Currently sitting on a 7.1 on IMDb and a 3.7 on Letterboxd. Our synopsis: a mass shadowy killer brutally murders the models of a scandalous fashion house in Rome. So this one here, I know I've done this one for Where to Begin with Giallo for Duncan over on the T-Puts Collective. I actually got to go see this at the Gateway Film Center in the big screen for my most recent watch, and that might be explaining why I'm coming in as I am. So that was episode 241, which was Foray Through the Floors number 11, that featured Two Monks and The Watchers. So for me, Blood and Black Lace is a historic film, potentially the first color giallo, plunges us into this fashion house where a mass killer brutally murders models. I love the intricate and unhinged plot. We strategically pick off suspects in an Agatha Christie-esque fashion, offering satisfying twists and rewatchability without cheating. I love the establishment of giallo tropes that have been highlighted, along with competent police investigation, a departure from later genre conventions. I think we have some strong acting across the board. No single main character, allowing for us to focus on various individuals. Mitchell, Bartok, and Rainer lead a solid cast, playing their roles effectively and creating compelling red herrings. Bava's masterful cinematography is particularly great. The vivid color contrast, impactful shadows influencing later directors like Dario Argento. The practical effects, including standout burn effect and the divisive kills, are also commendable. I love the jazz-infused soundtrack as it helps with the atmospheric contribution. Ultimately, this one is a masterpiece in my opinion. Highly recommend, starting point, especially to those new to giallo. And I actually give this one, after multiple viewings now, Blood and Black Lace is a 10 out of 10 for me. And then coming in at number 3 is going to be Ghostbusters from 1984. So this is another one that might be controversial, that not everybody thinks is a horror film. So this is a high-concept comedy, quirky, supernatural fantasy, action, sci-fi, and like I said, I consider this to be horror from the elements that we get here. So the director is Ivan Reitman. This is written between Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis. Now, they both star in this with Bill Murray and Sigourney Weaver. This is from the United States. Currently sitting on a 7.8 on IMDb and a 3.8 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being: 3 parapsychologists forced out of their university funding set up a shop for a unique ghost removal service in New York City, attracting frightened yet skeptical customers. So this one, I've actually only covered this once on the podcast, and this was a bonus episode that I did with Jamie as we did a Ghostbusters double feature of this one and the 2016 remake, and I might have seen this one in the theater. I feel like I must have at some point. So this is a gateway horror film. We follow the great here people that we have are, let's go ahead and get their names. That's what I'm trying to do here. That's why I'm stumbling. Peter Venkman is Bill Murray. Dr. Raymond Stantz is Aykroyd. Then we also have Egon Spengler, who is Ramis. And then I also want to give credit here to Louis Tully by Rick Moranis, and Winston Zeddemore, who is Ernie Hudson, and of course Dana Barrett, who's Sigourney Weaver. So what I love is that the scientific approach to the paranormal, with believable jargon and equipment that makes the science fiction feel grounded. The mythology of Gozer and the setup of Dana Barrett's apartment building is interesting with the lore they build there. Murray's dry humor as Venkman is appreciated, even though his misogynistic comments are a product of the time. Aykroyd and Ramis are great as the egghead portrayals. Weaver and Moranis deliver solid performances with them. I love the exceptional practical effects for the ghosts, strong cinematography, and iconic soundtrack that extends beyond the famous theme song. So, Ghostbusters. Perfect storm movie. Everything. It's lightning in a bottle. I've actually even seen that little documentary about this film and just kind of things that work. Is that I love this film. 10 out of 10, even though I've actually watched the sequel more than I've seen this one. But this one I can just appreciate for everything that it does. And my runner-up film is going to be one that I could also see people arguing not a horror film as well, but this is Godzilla. The original title is Gojira, 1954. This one is directed by Ishiro Honda. The screenplay is done by Honda as well as Takeo Murata. This is from the novel by Shigeru Kayama. And then there's also the story they're giving credit here is the Giant Monster from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which is written by Tomoyuki Tanaka. So this stars Takashi Shimori, Akihiko Hirata, and Akiri Karada. And I'm mispronouncing those names, I do apologize. But this is an action epic, adventure, dinosaur, disaster, kaiju, monster, political drama, psychological horror. So that's why I put this into the genre as well. But this is from Japan. Currently sitting on a 7.6 on IMDb and a 4.1 on Letterboxd, with the synopsis being after a dinosaur-like beast awoken from undersea hibernation by atom bomb testing ravages Tokyo, a scientist must decide if a similarly dangerous weapon should be used to destroy it. So I've only officially covered this once on the podcast. That'd be episode 222, which was Women Appreciation number 9, that featured Good Manners and Destroy All Neighbors. So I did a mini review over there. I've seen this one in the theater, though, so that definitely helped my feelings on this one. But what I will say is that I grew up loving the monster battling iterations of this creature. I appreciate this original bleaker tone and the anti-war message, a direct commentary on the atomic bombings of Japan. This wastes no time establishing its premise of a dinosaur-like beast unleashing by nuclear testing. Love that realism. Suggesting that this possibility of undiscovered deep water creature. So the acting, particularly from Shimuri as the professor who wishes to study Godzilla and Takarada as the hero, they're good. Their performances are great. The filmmaking, I think, is effective with its practical effects, including model work and forced perspective. I think it's more charming to have people in suit than, modern CGI. The cinematography and framing are also highlights. Despite the slightly heavy-handed sound design, the iconic roar and foreboding score contribute to this bleak atmosphere. Ultimately, this is a classic kaiju film, transcends the genre, and still relevant with its underlying message, and that's why this also gets a perfect 10 out of 10 rating from me. And it couldn't come as a surprise, or it shouldn't, if you kind of know any of the movies that specifically end in years at end of 4, but this one I've seen in the Gateway Film Center on the big screen. I've seen this. My mother showed me this film when I was growing up. It terrified me, and I'll kind of get into the last time I watched this one, but this is going to be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974 as my top film here for my Foray Through the Fours. So this is directed by Tobe Hooper, who wrote this with Kim Hinkle. So this is loosely based on Ed Gein as well. So this is starring Marilyn Burns, Edwin Neal, and Alan Danziger. This is a B-horror, body, psychological, slasher, splatter, teen horror film that is from the United States. Currently sitting on a 7.4 on IMDb and a 3.8 on Letterboxd. Our synopsis is 5 friends head out to rural Texas to visit the grave of a grandfather. On the way, they stumble across what appears to be a deserted house, only to discover something sinister within, something armed with a chainsaw. So this one, the only time I've covered it on the podcast would have been Jamie and I did a double feature when that new one came out a few years ago. We watched the original, we watched that one, and then we did a double feature podcast about it. And this one terrified me as a kid. It's a gritty horror film following 5 friends who stumble upon a sinister family, rural Texas, like that. Its effective use of its hot, isolated setting and its commentary on automation's impact on jobs, even hitting at a sympathetic side to Leatherface as a mentally handicapped character, just kind of following orders and everything like that. And he is portrayed by the great Gunnar Hansen. So I also love that it's under 90-minute runtime. It's a constant tension build-up. No need for lengthy character introductions. We have an amateur cast, but I think Burns' portrayal of Sally's ordeal is a highlight, along with Neil's creepy hitchhiker, Hansen's realistic Leatherface. I mean, didn't even bring up here Paul A. Parton as Franklin is so much fun, even though he's such a whiny character. Jim Sydow as the cook is another good one. Jim Duggan as the grandfather. There's a strategic hiding of gore here, allowing imagination to run wild and make you think how gross and bloody this is. The soundtrack is commendable for its eerie sounds, especially the unnerving chainsaw. This is a classic, simple yet deep story, effective tension and lasting impact, and just low-budget filmmaking at its finest. So my rating, if you could not tell, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I give a 10 out of 10 too. So before I get you over to my last break, I just want to say, what films are omitted here? Are there any of them that I kind of just overlooked? Maybe I haven't watched them since starting the podcast. Kind of give me any recommendations you want to. I'll have any way you can get a hold of me there. I'll also have the full list in the links. This will be an ever-growing one. If I watch something and it hit me better, or if I watch something and it didn't hold up as well, that can change things as well. So let me go ahead and rest my voice one last time before I get over to close out this show for you.
Hello, this is Rue and Willow with the Oh, Fuck Yeah with Rue and Willow podcast. I'm I'm excited you're here again. Always, I'm excited you're here. When I come to my podcast, we talk about sex. We talk about sexuality. We talk about better sex, erotica, all kinds of yummy stuff related to sex and sexuality. Get entertained, improve your intimacy, and get advice to harness your empowerment. You have the tools right in you. Just get the advice. Listen to my interviews on Fridays with experts, doctors, professors, personalities, people who are free and open and have great things to say. And on Tuesdays, I have erotic fiction. Find me on all the podcast apps. Come today. Don't forget to come today. Enjoy your body. Give yourself that amazing experience of orgasm where you can imagine how wonderful that will feel. All of those amazing hormones flooding your body, making you feel exhilarated, amazing, incredible, like never before. Reach for it. Take it, baby. Make yourself come today. You have an amazing day. Love ya. Oh, fuck yeah. Bye-bye.
And welcome back one last time here. And just to kind of go through my social medias and stuff, if you'd like to send me an email, you can send that at journeywithacinephile@gmail.com. You can send me any sort of feedback, or if you have any questions or anything, go ahead and shoot them there, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Or if you want to send me any screener links or anything like that, anything podcast related, you can send it via that way. If you'd like to read any of the written reviews, I'll direct you to Reviews of the Dead, and that's horrorreview.webnode.com. If you'd like to become friends with me on Facebook, I'm David Michigan Garrett Jr. On Twitter, I'm Buckeye from Mish. Letterboxd, I'm David OSU. On Instagram, I'm David OSU87. On Threads, I'm David OSU87. And then Journey with a Cinephile has its own Instagram at Journey with a Cinephile, all one word. Now, all of these ones I will be sharing like my ratings on, whatnot. I know for Letterboxd, all of the reviews are going to be for horror and non-horror alike. Instagram, I will be sharing over there is my different like posters and everything for things that I'm reviewing. My personal account, you might see some personal pictures every now and then if I can remember to take them. And then, kind of same thing for Threads. And then Journey with a Cinephile is going to be more of just kind of posting podcast-related different stuff over there. And I'll also direct you to the Nightclub Discord channel, as I have a little section over there where we have some good conversations. I post all of my reviews and any new podcast episodes or some of the things I'm watching when I actually have time to post that. So keep an eye out over there, and I'll have the link for that and everything else in the show notes there. And then I'm also going to direct you, a way that you can actually listen to the show is going to be through the Pod Nation TV. This is a streaming service and everything like that. There will be a link in the blog posts for all of my episodes, so if you'd like to listen to it that way, it's kind of a cool little thing. You can definitely do that through like Roku TV, and there's some other apps for it as well, just as another way for you to consume this podcast if you decide to. There's also a lot of other great shows that are on that network as well. And for my next episode, we're going to be getting back into what I've been doing. So it's going to be episode 301, which is going to be a Voyage to the Fives. So my goal right now is to watch The Sea Fiend, and I'm going to be pairing this up with hopefully get to the Gateway Film Center to watch together. And then I got to make sure I can find this one as well. But as of right now, my Voyage to the Fives rewatch from 1995 is going to be Vampire in Brooklyn. I have not seen this one in a very long time. I might also be watching Ash as my 2025 rewatch. Jamie wants to watch Death of a Unicorn and Sinners, so I might sneak one of those in if we have some time here. I think we might be doing that here shortly, but not fully positive yet. Things do change with life. But then I'll have a couple more screeners here that I'll have watching, and I'll be going to the Wexner Center for the Arts to watch Pulse. That is the Japanese film, the original one, so I will have that on there as well. So I don't think there's anything else I need to say here for this outro, except that wraps up this episode of Journey with a Cinephile, a horror movie podcast. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of horror cinema. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and follow along for more deep dives into the macabre. Until next time, keep watching horror, and remember, fear is just a frame away.
It had been a wonderful evening, and what I needed now to give it the perfect ending